Welcome back to the channel. This is Trading Storm and you are watching what if Naruto was saved by a goddess after Kakashi's betrayal. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share and subscribe to this channel. Now wasting no more time, let's start the story.
As he lay beside Sasuke's unconscious body, Naruto laughed feebly. He succeeded, he did it, he was successful in fulfilling his pledge to Sakura. He got up slowly and hobbled to his best friend, bending down beside him and clutching the hole in his chest while gasping in agony. "Kid, be gentle." With a start, Naruto frantically searched for the demonic-sounding voice. "Wah. You really are dim, aren't you, kid? I've only been in you for, what, your whole fucking life?" Naruto's gaze expanded. "Kyuubi. Correct, Kit, when you used me to help bombard sense into that traitor of a false bloodline. The seal weakened somewhat, we can now speak." "False bloodline? Really? That's what you ask now? Hurry, bring the Uchiha back to Konoha. He needs medical attention. I'm healing you as fast as I can." "Why are you helping me? Kyuubi, don't you hate me? For the love of Kami, are you really that stupid? That's a question I should ask you. I've made your life a living hell now. If it was anyone else I couldn't care less about those weak fleshwalkers and their horrid ways and short lives. But you've grown on me, Kit, first human to ever do so." Naruto grinned. "I don't hate you, Kyuubi. Without you, Sasuke wouldn't be able to return home now. Thank you, furball." The side of Kyuubi's fox lips quirked with mild annoyance and amusement. He gave the boy a playful glare and shook his head. "Whatever, kid, whatever." As he carefully raised Sasuke onto his back, Naruto laughed once more with a groan of agony. Naruto began to hobble in the direction of the forest. He couldn't spend all day chatting to the furball because he had a goal and a commitment to finish. In the darkness, Kakashi clenched his fists while glaring at his pupil. It was actually the demon. Despite the curse mark, he defeated Sasuke. He was correct all along. Only a real demon could do that. He couldn't understand Jiraiya's decision to train the demon rather than the Uchiha. When Kakashi saw that Naruto was struggling, his gaze strayed to the enormous hole in his stomach. He began to make hand signals while grinning behind his mask. Due to his physical and mental exhaustion, Naruto didn't notice the buzzing sound until it passed directly through his stomach, at which point he saw a Chidori. He coughed up blood and dropped Sasuke. "Kid." When the hand withdrew, Naruto collapsed onto his back and fought to identify his assailant. When he saw Kakashi-sensei gently holding Sasuke over his shoulder, his heart almost stopped. Kakashi-'s sensei. When Naruto saw Kakashi's disdain, his heart fell. No. There's no way Kakashi could be like them. He always gave him a smile, fed him ramen, and said nice things to him. "I am not your sensei, demon. But silence if you're wondering. I never liked you. Acting is supposed to be a shinobi's finest point, yes? Now, I'll leave you to die. Tell the village and Sasuke that he killed you, unlocking the ultimate form of the Sharingan." Naruto shook his head slowly as tears started to fall from his eyes. There's no way this could be true. It must have been a dream indeed. While fighting Sasuke, he fainted. It's not real. "Damn human. Just wait. When I'm out, I'll rip you to shreds." Kakashi grinned at the look of sheer fear and horror on Naruto's face. He felt good about it. He went on to say, "And I'll be considered a hero for killing the demon who killed my sensei. Any moment now. Get up, get up." Kakashi approached Naruto slowly and peered down at him, aiming for his head. He lifted his foot far behind him. "Hurry up. Awaken, Kit." In his thoughts, Naruto said, "I'm not going to wake up, am I, Kyuubi?" "Kit. Hold on." Bringing his foot down, Kakashi slammed it into Naruto's head. Blood was now streaming from Naruto's head as he let out a loud scream before going unconscious. After giving his work a nod, Kakashi turned around and started to walk toward the forest. "Hey Kit. Kit. Wake up." Tozi, Kami, and Yami, also referred to as the Shinigami, looked on in disdain as history was being made. They were incredulous. What did Minato perceive in these Konoha residents? The sensei of Naruto himself. "I've had enough," Yami exclaimed. She herself had heard the man's request when she sealed Kyuubi inside baby Naruto. The fact that nobody but a select few paid attention hurt her. Tozi shook her head and said, "This is dreadful. That village shouldn't exist." With a growl, Kami rose from her heap. "Sisters, let us go." Before they vanished, the other two gave a nod. They reappeared in front of Naruto, who was barely alive, leaning down. Kami gently lifted him up and planted a kiss on his lips. He was able to regain consciousness shortly after his wounds began to heal sufficiently. He screamed, jumped back, and then howled in agony as he clutched his still open wound after realizing what was happening. The three most stunning women he had ever laid eyes on grinned at him, obviously enjoying his antics much to his chagrin. This made him flush. "Kit," exhaled Kyuubi with a sigh of relief. "I'm glad." After asking, Who are you? He blinked. Wait, I am alive? How? Of all of them, Kami was the most beautiful, because we made it so, young one. We are the three goddesses. Naruto took a second look. The three deities Tozi, Yami, Kami. Naruto accepted the pain, got to his feet, and bowed as low as he could after realizing who he had been. What do I owe this honor? When he looked up after feeling a hand on his shoulder, Tozi was grinning down at him. She said politely, "There'll be no need for that. We've been watching you." To relieve the pain, he sat down and asked, "Why you have? Why?" "Because of Minato, not to mention, you're one of the purest souls alive, and from what we've seen, we're absolutely disgusted at Konoha. We wish for its downfall. Will you assist us, Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze?" Namikaze? Your father was Minato Namikaze? At this, Naruto felt dizzy. Yami said, "What'll it be? Hot stuff. We can help you in the downfall, but for a price. When you're strong enough, you'll be ours. Yes, in that way we'll grant you immortality, and we don't mind if you're with other women." After blushing once more, Naruto paused to reflect. Konoha betrayed him after hurting him and calling him a demon. They deserved to be judged for a long time. He decided he was already aware that only the good and the pure would be spared. He bowed his head after glancing up at the goddesses. "I accept the price. Help me bring that dreaded hellhole to the ground." Before Kami took the stage, the three goddesses grinned proudly. "I shall give you the gift of life. You may heal any injury, even death. You're now immortal. When you turn 18, your aging process will stop permanently," she said, kissing his forehead, causing him to glow blue before stepping back. Yami took a step forward. She kissed his cheek, making him glow a blackish purple, and said, "I give you the gift of death. By touching someone, you may cause them to die however you wish." Tozi was last. He glowed green as she kissed his other cheek and said, "I give you the gift of nature. You may control it all however you wish. It is at your disposal, and, with it, you will no longer need hand signs to perform jutsu." The three glows suddenly reappeared, and he gripped his eyes in mild discomfort. His hands were black and swirling, with blue, green, and purple floating about. When he took them off, he surrounded it with rings like the Rinnegan, and his eyes were slits with 4 tomos, like a full-fledged Sharingan. He blinked and went back to his usual self. Wah. That was Infinity, a special type of jutsu eye that had a combination of 3 eye techniques: Sharingan, Byakugan, and the Rinnegan Plus. It has some of its own features as well. You now know every single jutsu known to man and animal. After remaining silent, Naruto bowed his head again. "You have been kind, giving me so much." The always enthusiastic Yami exclaimed, "Oh, we're not done yet. Instead, we're bringing you to meet a friend of ours in a different dimension. While you're training with him for 3 years, Kami will take care of informing that dastardly village of your living. I'll destroy the Akatsuki and Madara, and Tozi will take care of that damn snake." Naruto got tears in his eyes. "Why?" he exclaimed. "And no one's ever done something so nice for me before." He was held by the three. "It's because of your pure soul now. Sleep. When you wake up, you'll be with the Dragon King." Nodding, Naruto fell asleep in the women's embrace. The Dragon King, Bahamut, surveyed his realm as instructed. His dragons have simply withdrawn from their offspring. Excellent. His ears suddenly pricked up when he turned around. He saw Kami, the goddess of life, holding a small child in front of him. The Dragon King bowed out of respect, which he had for almost no one. "My ladyship, what do I owe this honor?" The child, covered in dry blood, was extended by the goddess in her arms. Kami put him down as Bahamut arched an eyebrow. "We, the 3 goddesses, would like you to train him as your son who you'll never abandon." The dragon questioned in disbelief. "What? You wish for me, the Dragon King who's never trained anyone, to do so to a child and adopt him? Are you crazy, my ladyship?" The woman gave a headshake. "Look into his memories, Bahamut. You won't find a finer man. This is but a child. Trust me, he's greater than a man." Bahamut let out a sigh. He was unable to refuse this goddess. Both of them began to glow when he turned his tail and touched the boy's bloody forehead. He closed his eyes. In a chamber, he woke up to a low growl that could have chilled weaker dragons. When he turned, he saw a 9-tailed fox his size. He scowled after his eyes widened. "Kyuubi," he said venomously through the bars. Kyuubi's pitiless red eyes betrayed sadness as she simply stared at him. "Bahamut, it's been long. What are you doing in my host's mindscape? Why are you locked behind a cage? If you're here to search his memories, you know, just be careful to not go behind the taped-off door. I sealed those myself." "Why? They're 100 times worse than what you're about to see. This kid is strong, but if I didn't do what I did, well, just brace yourself." Bahamut did and roamed through the child's recollections. He felt repulsed. Even though it was mostly a mask, he was still able to smile despite all the abuse and deplorable remarks. It's a wonder he felt anything at all. given all that blood and memories? Horrified, he snarled at one of the memories. Even as a child, he was crucified just 8. Something that Behemoth never gave, this boy had earned. Show respect. Then he saw something that was as hot as Ignil's fire and made his blood boil for the sake of a traitor. Naruto's own sensei attempted to kill him, a traitor. Kami and Bahamut agreed the damned must be Konoha. Filled with rage, he withdrew from the boy. He looked at the goddess. I will adopt and train him. He shall be the greatest dragon slayer and ninja in 3 years. The Dragon Prince. With relief, the goddess grinned unexpectedly. She bowed her head slightly and said, I have elsewhere that requires me. I thank you, Dragon King. Then she vanished. Despite his genuine joy, Kakashi tried to appear dejected as he entered Konoha. The demon was killed by him. Unfortunately, Tsunade would kill him for millennia if he said anything. Both ninja and civilians surrounded him after he intervened. Tsunade approached him and frantically glanced around. Where's Naruto? The fact that the Hokage had such strong feelings for a demon made him sick. He closed his eyes and started to act as dejected as he could. It broke Tsunade's heart. Leaping forward, she caught Kakashi by the shirt. Kakashi Hitaki. Where's Naruto? Sasuke and Naruto fought hard in the end. The Rasengan and Chidori hit. Naruto didn't survive. Tsunade began to tremble, her eyes wide with surprise. Naruto's companions were, too. Conversely, the public began to applaud and offer congratulations before the redhead growled. Kakashi noticed Gaara's expression, which was one of mild shock. Naruto wouldn't die from that. Kakashi's eyes narrowed. What are you talking about? I only speak honorably to powerful warriors. Naruto wouldn't die from that. A councilwoman questioned, Gaara, don't you think the Uchiha, who defeated you, would come out victorious? The woman shrank as Gaara snarled, recalling the hardest head he had ever felt from the blonde. Gaara remarked, who told you it was Sasuke? It wasn't him. He was easily defeated. Naruto was the one who beat me. Gaara, don't you think I wouldn't know? I was there. The Uchiha fainted after a few minuets without even putting a scratch on me. I'm sorry. Gaara, Naruto's dead. Uncomfortably, Gaara sensed the one-tail shift. He didn't. What's the matter, Ichibi? Smell the bastard's scent. Even I don't want the blood of such a man. Smell him. Gaara's blood froze before he began to growl, glaring at Kakashi until he nearly passed out. You said, you saw Naruto die, correct? When Kakashi nodded, Tsunade screamed and Hinata immediately clutched her father in tears. That's strange, because I smell something that shouldn't be there if that's indeed the truth. Kakashi's eyes narrowed. What are you talking about? He looked more savage than ever as he demanded, tell me, why do you smell of Naruto's blood? Kankuro appeared shocked as Temari gasped. You didn't, said the puppet teacher. The one-eyed Junin was the target of many clan heads' murderous intent. However, Kakashi was more terrified of Tsunade's expression than of that she appeared on the verge of committing a massacre. What did you do? I stabbed the poor boy in the heart with a chidori. He did. A beautiful woman with her hands on her hips and a severe expression caught the village's attention. Kakashi felt weak in the knees as she glared at him. The Uchiha glare was not nearly as bad as this. A villager demanded, who are you? Who are you to demand my name? The civilian council. The female snorted, I am not under your council's authority. Tsunade turned to the woman, still trembling with anger and vowing to cause Kakashi pain. I am Tsunade, 5th Hokage of Konohagakure. You are? The woman drooled as she showed off her breasts, which were bigger than Tsunade's. That's more like it. I am Kami, goddess of life and light. An obese man approached her with lustful eyes as gasps echoed through Konoha. His eyes devoured her as he asked, are you here to congratulate us for finally killing the demon? Or, are you going to thank us? She snapped her fingers, and the man blazed with rage. How dare you, she said, calling a child a demon. He was merely the container. Honestly, I don't understand what Minato saw in you, heathens. How dare you? Lily Haruno yelled. I dare just fine, woman. I am a goddess, Kakashi Hitaki. Said Cyclops was poised and ready to receive praise, but his hopes were shattered when he saw the expression on her face. For doing the unacceptable, you have fallen from my favor as well as Yami's and Tozi's. I hope you find yourself proud of your decision now, Hitaki. The man appeared pale. Tsunade's face brightened, and the civilian snarled, anyway, I come bearing a message. The boy lives. He is in our favor. We blessed him. He is being trained, and when he returns in 3 years, he shall be the strongest being you've ever met. Why do you favor a demon? Yeah, bless the Uchiha. Instead he needs power. How dare you demand something from me? There's a strict difference between want and need. This village will go up in flames in 3 years. This village is finished. It shall fall by the hands of Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze. He began to mumble his last name. Tsunade exclaimed, but Naruto loves this village more than anything, without hesitation. That was true, until the Hitachi's betrayal. Honestly, if he was a demon he'd do what he'll do in 3 years. Years ago. Goodbye Konoha, only the pure souls that are in Naruto's favor shall live. Good riddance, she gasped and fled. There was also mayhem. The person assigned to Kazekage, Gaara, got up and moved in the direction of the gates. Homura said, Lord Kazekage, where are you going? We need you in the upcoming battle with the demon. Gaara frowned. This place has fallen from my favor as well. I shall spread what has happened here to all your allies. Kami-sama was right. This place deserves to fall. Seriously, Naruto was the only decent being in this village, Kankuro yelled. Temari glared at them all and then went after her brothers. Itachi didn't comprehend what had transpired. He was only a few seconds away from sleeping in his bed, from being awakened by screams, and from entering the Akatsuki's entrance. He saw nothing but a stunning woman in front of all the tailed beasts. They had gathered. The Akatsuki, including Madara Uchiha, were dead before her, and them the only people still alive were Hidan, Kisame, and Deidara, who were cowering in a corner after being bloodied. Ah! Itachi. Uchiha, wonderful to see you. Since Uchiha never displayed fear, Itachi tried his best to appear composed. Never standing in front of a woman who probably defeated every Akatsuki by herself, with the tailed beasts as backup, was difficult, though. As if sensing his fear, the woman's ruby lips melted into a smile. Since this woman was the embodiment of poison, he had no reason to doubt it. She was indeed the epitome of beauty, but it was a deadly kind. Her eyes were a deadly mix of black, red, and purple. Her pale pearl skin made even Uchiha appear tan, and her long black hair cascaded down her back in waves with red curling at the base and tips. She exuded a proud sense of power, was tall, and had a flawless body. Yes, Itachi acknowledged that the mere sight of her frightened him. Not to be forgotten is her voice. It was lovely, but dead. You are? He inquired, managing to maintain his monotone. She gestured to the flinching S-ranked missing nin and said, I'm so glad you asked, Itachi. These fools didn't think of asking until Pain and Madara were dead. Oh, I guess you call him Toby, but whatever. I am Yami, goddess of darkness and death. Many people even call me the Shinigami. Yes, horrible. Itachi had never in his life felt so afraid. Ida-chan was a nickname he disliked, but he was powerless to stop Yami from using it. Itachi was shocked, but he made himself hide it. Being a goddess and all, know that you weren't the one to kill your clan. So, like these wise buffoons, I hope you'll take up my offer. Depends. You know Kakashi, Naruto-kun's sensei, yes? Itachi gave a nod. Naruto's father's student. Don't say that. That man has no right to be such. He tried to murder Naruto. You would be correct if you said that. Itachi was taken aback. He was surprised to learn how good Kakashi was as an actor, though he betrayed him. He genuinely thought that one-eyed man like the Kyuubi container Yami-sama was correct. If he attempted to murder the Yondaimi's only son, he had no right to be referred to as his pupil. We have blessed Naruto, granted him great powers, and gave him the Dragon King as his new teacher in a different dimension. I want you, along with these men, to teach him how to use his new jutsu. True, he knows them all now, but he still needs practice. Serve him. He is now the Dragon Prince. Serve him and help him bring down Konoha from their crimes. That place has fallen from our grace. It would have long ago. But Naruto kept us back. Help him complete that goal while devoting your whole lives to him. I'll let you live if you do so. Was there really anything he could do? No, serve others or perish. I accept, Yami-sama. Wonderful. I'll give you all a year to prepare. Yes. A year. Get lessons or whatever shit you think of together and meet me at the Valley of the End Inn. I repeat, 1 year from today. Don't even try to run away, for I'll hunt you down and kill you. Do I make myself clear? The other members of Akatsuki gave a nod. She grinned. Goodbye, guardians of the dragon. Orochimaru felt frightened. Her emerald green eyes were glaring at him from this otherworldly beauty in front of him. She entered without any blood on her body after slaughtering her way in the whole base. He was unable to hear, feel, or sense anyone else's chakra, not even Kabuto. She was the author of a massacre. He gave her a narrowed look, hissed, "Who are you?" She spat back, "Show some respect, snake. I am Tozi, goddess of nature. I will not tolerate such words against me." Nature's goddess. Like his base. Was she here to kill him? One thing was certain: if she was, he was in a bad spot. "My lady, what can I do for you?" "My sisters and I have turned a blind eye long enough. Orochimaru, we will not stand for this any longer. Your slaughter count could rival that of some demons, and the blood staining you makes you smell like one before more things come about. It's time to end it." Yes, I'm screwed. Even Orochimaru was aware that he couldn't defeat a goddess. "My lady," he said, attempting to force his way out as usual, "let me serve you, then I'll become a great asset to you." The goddess gave him a snarl. "Fool." Orochimaru flinched as her blonde hair began to glow a ghostly green as she hissed. "You think I don't know you? I know your betraying nature, your desire for power, your inclination for blood. It's like your own constitution." When roots wrapped around Orochimaru, he gasped, and they weren't just any old ones. He realized immediately that they couldn't be broken. He made no effort to conceal his fear as time waves of it poured off him and toward the angry goddess. "I planned on fighting you to the death, give you a warrior's death of honor, but I changed my mind. You don't deserve such a privilege. You deserve to die like the dog you are. Know your place. Orochimaru, my sister, Yami, has the perfect punishment waiting for you in hell, and I don't think she likes to be kept waiting." A vine scythe appeared in her outstretched hand. She began to approach the man, who was in a panic. Wait. I won't betray you, wait." She stood before him and said, "Silence, Orochimaru, take your death with honor. I'm immortal. I can't die. I have so many things I must do, please." With a sneer, Tozi raised the blade. "You sicken me." He yelled, "No," but it didn't help. The scythe descended. And it fulfilled its purpose. Tozi allowed the scythe to bury itself in the ground, and the roots withdrew. Leaving no trace of their presence, she disappeared in a green light after saying, "You don't deserve a burial now. I must return to my sisters." Everyone in the village smiled at Naruto as he strolled through the streets. The glares from Konoha were a far cry from this. Bahamut was standing next to him in his human form, like his scales. His hair was long, braided, and golden. He held his head proudly, his eyes rimmed in gold and deep red. His skin was tan, like Naruto's, but not as sun-kissed as the spiky blondes. Since he was no longer malnourished, Naruto has grown significantly taller over the years. Despite being only 15, he had the size of a typical 18-year-old. He had gained muscle, shed all of his baby fat, and nearly resembled his father. The Yondaime, his bangs remained sun-bleached and were only slightly shorter, making his hairstyle almost identical because he could now use the Kyuubi's power however he pleased. Naruto's cheek scars became slightly darker, and his pupils were slits similar to the fox's but still had their luminous, crystalline hue. He enjoyed dressing in a crossover of mage and shinobi styles. Like Natsu and Gray, he wore black and silver pants with a golden dragon encircling the legs in the Asian style. His hands and wrists were bandaged, and he had a black ninja undershirt on over a fishnet. Many ninja students had already begun to wear his ninja-style shoes. Above all, he wore a coat that was reminiscent of the Yondaime's. When the boy put it on, Kyuubi threw a fit over it, talking about blonde bastard Hokages who should have been sent to the bottom of hell. Overall, Naruto had become a romantic figure. He surveyed the village, which was just as big as Konoha but friendlier. He liked to refer to this village as Ryugakure, or the Dragon Village. To his delight and excitement at being raised by a real dragon, he became an apprentice to Bahamut and his adopted son. A year later, however, he discovered that this village was being overrun by ruthless bandits and 4 dark guilds, which defeated the local guild. Fairy Tail. The people pleaded with him to be their leader and teach them his methods and magic. After he killed them all to save the village, Naruto agreed after his dragon father persuaded him to do so. He renamed it Ryugakure, a ninja and magic village, instead of Magnolia. He was now a Kage, the Ryukage, not the Hokage. The Magic Council spent a lot of money on ninja weapons and other items because they were excited to have a ninja village. The remaining Akatsuki members were his ninja guards, who were primarily with him, while the resident guild, Fairy Tail, became his personal self-proclaimed magical guards as a side gig to answering requests. Although they were still referred to as the Akatsuki and Fairy Tail separately, these guards were merged to form the Guardians of the Dragon. It was during this period that he met Urza at first sight. It was love. Urza was a wonderful, strong woman, but she could also be a little out there, as ignorant as he was, and violent. Urza stated that was what she would anticipate from the Ryukage, and the entire village cheered him on despite knowing about his pact with the goddesses and his objective. He even informed her that in order to rebuild his clan, he would need to take several other wives. The Namikaze and Uzumaki scrolls were kindly stolen and brought to him by the Akatsuki, but he did suspect Yami was involved because whenever she and her sisters visited, the immobile Akatsuki members began to perspire like pigs about to be killed whenever she gazed at them. Urza merely grinned once more, acknowledged that she understood, and only gave in if he truly loved that woman. Naruto concurred. The news then sent Fairy Tail into a frenzy. He now had Urza as his first wife. Only a few months had passed since their marriage in the Fairy Tail Guild, and the mages were still intoxicated from celebration and habit. They only found out about his wife's pregnancy a month ago. Even though he was ecstatic, the guild and Urza were most thrilled after that. Urza beat them up because they didn't think she would ever get married. much less have a child. Fortunately, he happened to have a camera with him, so it was a memorable moment. He thought Fairy Tail was a wonderful change from his previous life, and he truly enjoyed it. Remembering Makarov's son Laxus, he sighed in an attempt to seize control of the guild. The man claimed that the Ryukage and Fairy Tail should be the only strong members of the Guardians of the Dragon. Naruto was defeated by Natsu and Gajeel before he could intervene. Makarov ordered Laxus to be exiled before Naruto could intervene once more. However, Naruto used Hawk to send Laxus a message stating that he would call Ryugakure if he ever needed assistance. Laxus wrote back 2 words that he remembered they were genuine, and the paper had a few dried wet spots that looked like tears of gratitude. Thank you. Following that, Laxus turned into a spy and wrote letters informing others about events in their surroundings. Some of the Fairy Tail mages began teaching magic as well. While the Akatsuki taught at a brand new children's ninja school, it was nearly unbelievable that there was a magic and ninja village. If compared, Ryugakure would be the most powerful ninja village, something Naruto was very proud of. Urza yelled, "Naruto!" and rushed in their direction. He winced as she rushed to embrace him and slammed him against her stone armor. She asked, oblivious to the pain she had just caused to her husband's cheek, "How are you?" Naruto grinned. He loved this woman so much, regardless of how much she hurt him, whether intentionally or not. "Fine, Urza love, fine, I'm just heading back to the Namikaze estate. Would you like to accompany me?" Urza had never been good at cleaning, which greatly distressed her. I still need to clean the living room before we leave later today to take down that god-awful village," she said. Mirajane had kindly offered to help her. Urza was finally able to do it well after hours of explanation and demonstration. Naruto nodded and grinned before grabbing her hip and continuing to walk. Urza reddened. Bahamut walked away from the two after grinning and wandered off, seeing something very shiny and interesting. They approached the Namikaze compound on foot. Toma had to bring the original compound from Konoha because she simply could not let him build his own house. He didn't voice any complaints compared to his one-room apartment. It was substantially larger. She didn't have to bring everything, though. It was a mansion with more than 10 bathrooms and 30 rooms. It featured a swimming pool, a large pond, a fountain in the front, a few training grounds, and more. And Kami forbid. Some of Ryugakure's master chefs simply had to insist on preparing his meals, so they came by daily to prepare dinner at no cost, knowing that they would object if he paid them directly. Naruto began paying them in secret after a while because it didn't feel right. After seeing the dying garden, Mirajane and Lucy became his personal florists. Even if her life depended on a plant, Urza couldn't care for it and keep it alive. The two banished her from the garden because everything she touched died. Thank goodness Kami only allowed Fairy Tail and Akatsuki to enter, or he would be inundated with shivering fangirls every day. He reaffirmed his gratitude to his future heavenly wife for allowing him entry only with the owner's consent or blood right. Fangirls acted like wolves, hungry for blood and suffering. A lot of suffering. Those creatures have claws instead of fingernails. The removal of his clothing is the sole objective of those claws. He briefly felt sorry for Sasuke Teme before letting it go. It was well earned by the bastard. Nevertheless, he was still not used to the attention. He was taken aback by the results after he told the village about Kyuubi and his background. He had anticipated that they would turn away from him. However, it only strengthened their resolve. Bless his soul. In particular, Natsu. Well, Natsu was a different matter entirely. He was so incensed after learning about his past that he began chanting, "Down with Konoha," all over the village. He had been approached directly by Natsu, who requested training from him. He asserted that he could be a ninja and dragon slayer if Naruto could. Naruto had put him through hell and smiled slyly at him. Gray joined shortly after. Gajeel began by declaring that he couldn't let Natsu win. He gave them scrolls to study independently. After a month or two he was, after all, preoccupied with paperwork, the scourge of the cage world. He had never seen anyone so determined as those three. Compared to Konoha, these villagers possessed more of the will of fire. Instead, Naruto preferred to refer to it as the will of the dragon compared to the will of fire. It was far more suitable, potent, and unadulterated. Upon entering the compound, the aroma of lunch was already permeating the air, and it became apparent that the unruly cooks had made lunch, something they never did, because he would not be here for some time. He was beginning to sound like Shikamaru, which was great. At that he couldn't help smiling. Urza's stomach rumbled, but she remained erect. Naruto grinned as he glanced at her. "Urza, you're hearing things," she said succinctly and rapidly. With a laugh, Naruto shook his head and planted a tender kiss on her lips. He left a flustered and stuttering Urza behind and wandered off, saying, "I heard nothing." He, Urza, and Bahamut would leave for the world of the elemental nations in a few hours. Konoha's judgment would start in a few hours. The mood was heavy back in Konoha. Everyone, including the villagers, was jittery. 3 years had passed, and they were bracing themselves for the worst given their performance over the previous 3 years. They were unsure of their chances of success in the upcoming Chunin exams. Indeed, Gaara had kept his promise. He had informed all of their allies. Furious with the village, the daimyo of fire drastically reduced their financial resources. All connections, imports, and exports from the village were severed by Queen Yuki of the Land of Snow, which was later renamed the Land of Spring. The Land of Green's queen followed suit. All connections with them were severed by the Land of the Wave. They were even placed on the instantly kill when sighted scroll in the Waterfall Land. So did Iwagakure's hatred. A child is a child, and it was shameful in their eyes to disregard the honor of a powerful man's final wish, even if he was the son of their worst enemy and they wanted him dead. It turns out that Whirlpool Village, which was officially considered extinct, heard about it, where the Azukage was Kushina Uzumaki, Minato Namikaze's wife and the mother of Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze. I'm not sure if that's correct, but whatever. She was furious and also vowed to bring Konoha to an end. When a female Uzumaki is angry, no one can stop them because they are full of chakras. They simply placed large red targets on a stone wall in front of them. Konoha was falling already hard. Tsunade was also fed up with the village. She had secretly gathered all of Naruto's friends and their supportive family members to form a group that would support Naruto when the time came, following the outcry and curses from the public when she revealed that Naruto was Minato Namikaze's son. Only a handful of the Hyuga clan were reliable, but the majority of the clans concurred. Neji, Hinata, Hiyashi, and Hanabi were the main branch families, with a small number of other families. There were even those from Ichiraku. Ramen, Katetsu, and Izumo even sneaked out of guard duty, while Jiraiya and Iruka attended every meeting they could naturally. Sakura, Haruno, and Sasuke Uchiha were left out. The Uchiha brat was being spoiled by the civilian council after he was devastated to learn that Orochimaru had died, the Akatsuki had been massacred, and his curse mark had vanished. They provided him with all the jutsu he desired, and Kakashi even learned clan secrets to become his personal tutor. Sakura didn't really improve. She was still following him around like a devoted puppy. Tsunade was even instructed by the council to simply promote him to Junin, but she refused. She had sternly warned them that if he passed the upcoming exams, he would become Chunin and would have to rise in status like the others. Over the course of the 3 years, it was found that Ino preferred Naruto to Sasuke. She simply didn't want to be seen as inferior. Indeed, it was found that Naruto had the affections of Ino, Hinata, Tenten, Temari, Hana Inuzuka, and even Anko. They fell in love with a demon of sorts, which shocked the village. On the other hand, a lot of ninja thought it was fantastic and commended them for paying attention to their teachers. Regardless of how awful they were, like Kakashi, they appeared beneath the surface. They were dubbed the demon whores by the haters and the Angel Six by the Naruto fans. That last one was disregarded. The Angel Six sat at Ichiraku's, their faces expressionless, except for Temari, who was in Suna. They had all decided to finally confess and share their love stories with Naruto. When they saw him, they chose to share him because they knew he needed to rebuild the Namikaze clan. Despite being the Kyuubi container and everything he had been through, Ino loved him for who he was. A kind, sensitive, loving, and content Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze who put others before himself, not a spoiled, conceited, egoistic bastard like Sasuke Uchiha, a true man. Hinata loved him for almost the same reasons and didn't give a damn about her position as the Hyuga heiress. He was understanding and even called her stuttering issue cute, which she acknowledged caused her to faint and worried Naruto. In order to be more useful to Naruto when the time came, she had overcome her stutter over the course of the 3 years. She also didn't want to cause him any anxiety with the support of her friends and, surprisingly, her father. The stutter did occasionally return when she was anxious or embarrassed. Tenten cherished his tenacity and unforgiving nature. She had witnessed it firsthand when she was younger, and she knew he had been abused. During the Kyuubi festival, both ninja and civilians requested weapons that could be readily disposed of for the so-called demon hunt. She thought it was a new addition to the festival and agreed to help them. Her father became pale, muttered Naruto under his breath, and fled to the Sandem. When she told him when he returned, he reported that everything was good. She discovered Naruto with minor bruises the following day. When she realized what had happened, she felt terrible. His determination and animal scent won Hana over. He possessed a bear's resilience and a wolf's spirit. He was fierce like a mother fox guarding her young, yet gentle like a rabbit, an ideal partner for an Inuzuka. She recalled the expression on her brother's face when she told him that he was unconscious. It was amusing. He was the object of Anko's love. He didn't choose her because of her teacher, her skills, or her penchant for torture. No one had yet been able to see through her mask, but he did. Because I too have a mask, was his sole response when she asked him how, and that's when she fell in love with him. They were similar in many aspects, but when she saw the glares that were even more intense than her own, she realized that Naruto had it worse. Even she recoiled from those glares, but he remained motionless. Tamari had other motivations. She was aware of his past struggles because of her brother Gaara in a way. He was stronger than Gaara. He didn't turn into a bloodthirsty, vengeful monster, no. He was a strong man who was only attention-seeking and gentle. With a sigh, Ino dropped her head to the table more than anyone else. She asked herself, when will we see him again? Anko chuckled. Don't worry. The brat always keeps his word. It's been 3 years. He'll return to us soon, and then I can ride him as much as I want and bear lots and lots of his strong children. Oh, I just know he'll make me scream. And Anko! Exclaimed Hinata, who blushed like the other girls. She gave a headshake. She laughed, picturing the moment when it would happen. Oh, grow up. I know you all dream about it too. He's huge as well. When we were on a mission together, I accidentally saw him bathing. I'm telling the truth when I say accidental. Before shaking their heads and glaring at the female snake user, the girls blushed and swiftly entered a fantasy. They did dream about it, they had to admit. Hannah said out loud, I bet he's just like an animal. She turned away and flushed when she realized those words had left her lips. Hey, Tenten said first. What if he's found someone else in that world? Quiet at the same time, Hinata and Ino said, we'll still tell him. The two exchanged astonished glances before nodding as resolve took over their expressions. Naruto had been kept in the dark about it for too long. No longer. Plus, he needs to rebuild the Namikaze clan. Hannah said. That'll take more than one woman. They gave a nod. It was accurate. Even Naruto realized that competing with just one wife would take far too long. What are you girls talking about? They pivoted. Iruka-sensei, called the person. He gave them a smile and took the last seat at the little ramen stand. Is it Naruto? They turned red. Ino whispered, we just don't know if he'll accept us, all 6 of us. She was also implying Tamari. Tenten went on, or even if he's found someone else already. Believe it or not, I think the brat is handsome right now, said Anko. If my calculations are correct, a real heartthrob, it's only natural for them to find someone rather quickly. Iruka smiled and laughed at them. If I know Naruto, he's not like that one. Miso, please. Sure. Tucci said. The scarred teacher turned to them. Naruto has always hated fangirls. He only spoke of Sakura like that for much needed attention because he knew she'd give it to him. Even if it was painful, it was still attention that he craved. He always spoke that when he meets the right girl, he'll know he won't just pick out a random woman. He wanted to know her, to fall in love. This caused the girls to flush out of pride. Anko turned away to conceal hers. He was always interested in all of you. He came to me saying that he liked multiple girls and he didn't know what to do. He couldn't stop liking them even if some were older. He felt ashamed at first, but I told him it was alright. I knew of his origins at the beginning because of the Sandame's slippery tongue. I knew he'd have to rebuild his clan. So I told him it was alright for only him and him alone. He didn't understand at first, but his shame went away. He's a pure boy. One with a heart ready to be filled. I know he'll accept your feelings. Don't worry, just fill his heart and he'll welcome you with open arms, be he with another woman or not. The girls nodded, content and relieved indeed. This was a fantastic day. Urza, Bahamut in his human form, and Naruto emerged through the portal into the land of the wave, reminiscent of his first high-level mission. Naruto grinned. Zabuza and Haku, his heart skipped a beat. He had to get something done. He raised his hand and led them to the 2 fallen ninjas' graves. He said, his voice echoing a little, rise. Sparkles poured from his glowing hand onto the dirt below. He winced a little. Raising the dead never appealed to him. It seemed like he was meddling in their lives. The 2 fully fleshed ninja opened their eyes as the ground slowly started to open. They had the same appearance as they had 3 years prior. As soon as her eyes opened, Haku yelled, Zabuza, and jerked to her feet. The man moaned. He sat up too and snapped, what? He appeared perplexed upon realizing he was in a deep hole. Sword in hand, he snatched it up, stabbed it into the ground, and left with Haku. Hello again, Haku, Zabuza. The 2 turned abruptly and became extremely vigilant with a comforting smile. Naruto pushed Urza away as she leapt in front of him in a protective manner. Reluctantly, she gave in. The 2 became at ease upon seeing Naruto. It's you, brat, what's going on? I could have sworn that we were. Naruto finished for them, dead? And they all fell silent. It's true, you were dead. I brought you back. What? Haku muttered to herself. Zabuza yelled, how in the hell could you do that? The strong aura emanating from the Namikaze frightened him a little. He believed that nothing, not even a Biju, could have such an aura. With a sorrowful grin, Naruto started to share his tale. Zabuza growled, letting loose his bloodlust and slamming his sword into the ground out of rage, while Haku sobbed as he talked about his betrayal. He was ashamed of himself for recognizing that man. Never again. They appeared captivated by the remainder of the tale and alarmed when Bahamut transformed into a dragon in front of them, snickered, and then turned away. He talked about his beginnings and the necessity of re-establishing his clan. Urza, who still exuded a protective aura, was also introduced by him. In addition to being his wife, she is a member of his personal guards. Fairy tale, she was constantly on guard when she was around strong unknowns. That's my story. So you're the Ryukage of your own ninja and magic village? Replied Zabuza. Naruto whistled when he nodded. Nice, brat. Thanks. So, what'll happen to where Konoha used to stand? Naruto smiled cunningly. The goddesses already have made their decision. Once that land is destroyed and cleaned out of rubble, they're going to send my village to this dimension, to where it once stood. Of course, I'll keep the mountain with the Hokage's faces intact, but nothing else. We'll still be able to travel through the two dimensions, though Ryugakure will basically be like a dimension connector. Go in through one way, you'll still be in the elemental nations. Go out the other, then you'll be in Fury. Wow, brat, that's complicated. I think the complicated thing is being chased by rabid fangirls while trying to find the right ones who love me for me to help rebuild my clan. Damn. I sound like Sasuke Teme. But it was in my father's will, he wished it, so I'll comply. Zabuza smiled in his eyes. You're an honorable man, Naruto, unlike that Hitaki, he spit. Zabuza nodded when Haku whispered something in his ear while blushing. Before turning to face Naruto, he responded, I think that's appropriate. I agree, we do owe him our lives. I have a request. Not anticipating anything of the sort, Naruto raised a perfect eyebrow. Yes? With determination, he said, as a thank you, I would like to join your village as a dragon ninja. With a nod and a smile, Naruto reached into his bag and threw him a headband featuring the dragon character, swirling around it like a whirlpool. Zabuza swiftly swapped this for his missing nin one. Also, you like Haku, the girl I consider my daughter, right? Naruto reddened. I did. That's accurate. The first person he had ever met who understood her suffering was her. He connected with her on a profound level. He experienced some of the loneliness and emptiness once more after she passed away. Then let her help you rebuild your clan as thanks. You did bring us back to life. With a strong expression and her arms folded, Urza cried, I don't mind. Naruto appeared a little taken aback. This was unexpected. The girl seems strong and Naruto likes her. Go ahead. Indeed, Naruto said, only if Haku wants. Haku nodded quickly. His face flushed. The red darkened as Naruto snickered at this. Does this mean I'm a dragon nin as well? If you would like. She gave another nod. Please. Her headband was given to her. Naruto said, come, it's time to visit some old friends. Inari yelled, I'll get it. As the door was knocked on, the boy's face brightened when it was opened. Naruto ni-san. Tazuna and Tsunami were on their feet and running for the door as soon as that shout was given, with tears streaming down her cheeks. Tsunami gathered Naruto into an embrace as soon as she saw him. I'm guessing you've heard? Naruto said, giving the sobbing woman another embrace. Heard? Sneered Tazuna. I'd be surprised if someone hadn't. What happened to you spread throughout the elemental nations like wildfire. Konoha's falling. Your job is much easier now. Naruto remarked, I like things hard. When he finally pulled away from the woman, he tapped Inari on the head, and she immediately embraced him. And I'll be damned if it isn't. Naruto chuckled. So, old man, have you finally stopped drinking? I'm serious, you'll drink yourself dead one of these days. Tazuna huffed. Yeah, right. Urza took Naruto's hand as they entered together. The three were most startled when Zabuza and Haku entered behind him. Why'd I get the feeling that the three goddesses are behind this? Tazuna murmured. He required more sake. And who's this beauty? Urza turned away. Flushed. Naruto smiled. It's a long story, a long one indeed, and I've already told it once today, so sit down, listen, and take it to heart because I won't repeat it again for a week. The three sat down in the living room after nodding. A week had passed since Naruto brought Haku and Zabuza back to life. A lone priest wanted a quiet marriage away from Ryugakure, where the people would undoubtedly throw a king-sized party if they were married, so he and Haku had a quiet one in Tazuna's home. He was aware of one thing: Haku looked stunning in the wedding gown in the Fury style that Urza had previously prepared for the event. Unexpectedly, Zabuza started crying. Naruto received a photo for his records. Additionally, blackmail never hurt. In a way, Haku's wedding ring resembled Urza's. The band had a curled dragon-like design. Urza's was red, and hers was blue. That was the only distinction. The diamond was encircled and held in place by a whirlpool of silver and blue sapphires instead. Urza's tiny stones on the swirl were rubies. Overall, a stunning and pricey ring. Haku was pleasantly surprised to learn that she was expecting a child after the three of them had a biblical night a week ago. She was content even though she was aware that Urza's child would most likely become the clan head. Zabuza talked excitedly about teaching his grandchild how to wield a sword. Naruto was also overjoyed. She is constantly running around and complimenting her wonderful self. At every opportunity it was much to Haku's delight. Like Naruto, she desired a family. They were both familiar with loneliness. They were aware that war was imminent, but right then, everything was ideal. Between his two wives, Naruto woke up. He gave them a tender smile. Excitement surged through his body. He was thrilled to be able to start a family soon and knew they were the parents of his children. He let out a sigh. He wasn't known for being patient, and that was still months away. Urza, too, had not yet displayed any signs of pregnancy. The demon teased, "You know, kid, even if you think about it, it won't go any faster." Naruto growled back, "Shut it, Kyuubi," which made the demon fox laugh. In order to avoid waking them, he slowly stood up and left the room, quietly closing the door behind him as part of his training routine. He made no noise at all as he descended the stairs. The smiles of Tazuna, Tsunami, Inari, Bahamut, and Zabuza, who had appeared a bit more approachable following Haku's pregnancy announcement, welcomed him into the kitchen. He said, "Morning." The forced stimulus response was, "Good morning." As Tsunami prepared breakfast, Naruto sat down to wait with barely concealed enthusiasm. Zabuza turned to face the young Ryukage. "When's this siege going to start?" "We're going to play with them first. I'm going to enter some of my people into the Chunin exams." He cracked a wicked grin. He laughed ominously, making Tazuna, Tsunami, and Inari turn pale and move away. They'll show them no mercy. They claimed to have felt sorry for Konoha. Almost, and to have seen a sinister aura emanating from him. After a brief shiver, Zabuza grinned. "I like this kid. I like him a lot." Bahamut grinned. "That's all my doing." He laughed and joked, "I like you too then." Bahamut turned to his adopted son after snorting. "Why don't you play with them more? Send them a dragon to screw with them." A full-fledged demon fox, ready for the ultimate mischief, emerged from Naruto's smile. Ryubikure had given this smile a fitting moniker. The Doomsday Smile. Doomsday's smiles didn't produce anything positive. Before his smile softened, he said, "Good idea, Pops." He turned to the man who nodded and said, "I'll also send one to Mom if she is truly alive like what Tazuna says. Then I'd like to meet with her at the Chunin exams in 3 weeks." Bahamut gave a nod. He shuddered at the implied "they," and said, "By the way, what are you going to do about those angels that they told us about?" "Ha ha ha. Going to surprise the little ladies and give their fathers heart attacks, right? I just love how your little mind works." After Naruto grinned at the Dragon King, Kyuubi also grinned. He went outside. Shiro, Kuro. Before him came a snow-white dragon and a midnight black dragon. Both of them had golden eyes and were slightly taller than Naruto. Naruto himself was a few years younger than these twins despite being immortal. Dragons age similarly to humans until they reach adulthood. "Kuro, I need you to deliver a message to Konoha and Shiro 1 to my mother in the Whirlpool Village." They gave a nod. Kushina's day wasn't going well. She was angry at Danzo for lying about her son's death and still annoyed by Konoha's treatment of him. As such, he will no longer understand what pain is when she gets her hands on him. She was aware that even Danzo was terrified of the fabled Uzumaki rage, which was typically inherited by women, and that they were vicious when it struck. In her office, a huge dragon suddenly materialized in icy white flames. As she was ready to summon her Anbu, she stopped and recalled what the Kazekage had told her when they first met. He was called the Dragon Prince by Kami-sama. The dragon sat down and held herself up after giving the woman a powerful, composed look. This powerful creature could hardly reach the ceiling. "I have a message for Kushina Uzumaki from the Dragon Prince, my lord." The woman trembled with excitement. And who's this prince?" The dragon gave her a kind look. "Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze." Tears of joy streamed down the woman's smiling face and out of her eyes, almost causing her to faint. She took a seat at her desk slowly. She was ecstatic. Her son didn't blame her for her absence. She was still on his mind. She was ecstatic even though she knew the council had forbidden Naruto from knowing about his parents. She rasped, proceed." At that moment, Anbu heard their cage cry and intervened. They prepared their weapons when they spotted the dragon, but Kushina outwitted them. "Don't raise your hand against this dragon. She bears a message from my son." The Anbu were taken aback by this. The rumors had reached them. They put their weapons away right away after nodding, but they wouldn't leave the room. The dragon gave them a nod. The message is as follows, word for word. Kushina nodded, becoming increasingly nervous. "Go on." "Mother, may I call you that? I know I haven't really known you, but I wish to during my stay in the otherworld. I have established my own ninja village. As soon as Konoha falls, my village will be transported to where it once stood. I would like us to form a treaty there. After all, I am my father's son. I don't want to anger a woman, especially an Uzumaki." At this, Kushina chuckled. The Anbu laughed. He was unaware of an Uzumaki's fury. "I have no idea." A long-forgotten memory made them shiver. Before Konoha's fall, I'd like to meet you during the Chunin exams. I am entering those from my village to screw with them. I request that you be there to watch with me so we may meet and get to know each other better. My dragon father, Bahamut, king of the dragons, also wants to meet the woman who was able to tame a man of such caliber, able to seal the legendary Kyuubi and even summon the Shinigami, or Yami, whichever you prefer. Kushina reddened. I do hope you accept this. I really want to meet my mother, something I never had. Please meet with me. Tell Shiro, the dragon, your answer. Hope to see you soon. Sincerely, Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze, the Dragon Prince and Ryukage of Ryubikure. Kushina was shedding happy tears. Her infant desired to see her. For heaven's sake, her baby wanted to meet her. The choice was clear. She looked at the dragon. I accept. Tell him I shall see him then and help participate in their fall, which I assume will be after the exams. With a nod, Shiro vanished into the same golden flames from which she had entered. Anbu. Prepare for my departure. I want 6 Anbu and 4 Junin to accompany me. Konoha will fall and Ryubikure will rise. At this point, the Anbu went to disseminate the news throughout Whirlpool Village while cheering in a very unprofessional manner. After being tortured for information for yet another day, Anko fell onto her bed. It wasn't that she didn't like it. On the contrary, she adored it. The reality was that it was simply becoming very draining. The number of spies and traitors in Konoha were bordering on ridiculous levels. Those who weren't as devoted to the village have been abandoning them or becoming spies for other villages ever since the destruction was predicted. In a way, she knew this. Why associate with a place where you will inevitably die? Make it less obvious, though, if you're going to betray yourself. Fortunately, nobody from her group had yet been brought in. She would hate to torture the toys from the group Tsunade formed. Even though she enjoyed torturing new ones, she had become close to the people in it over the last 3 years, particularly the Angel Six. She was aware that her love for him was the most startling of all. She hadn't met him since the academy days, but the others had. Many people were unaware that she used to be one of his Anbu guards and one of the few who genuinely cared about him. For this reason, the council removed her from protection detail and threatened to have her put to death if she ever spoke to him again unless absolutely necessary. Being separated from him was a significant shift. She had frequently visited for meals and casual conversation. It was great to hang out with Kurenai, but she had missed the little brat, and it wasn't appealing to prepare all 3 meals by herself. Naruto was also the cause of her dango addiction. One of his favorite dango restaurants, one of maybe 3 food-selling establishments in the entire village that even allowed him entry, was the place he had taken her to after he gave her dango. She was unable to resist eating it because she felt the need to do so. She was shocked when she saw him in the Chunin exams room after breaking in through the window. Since she was taken out of protection when he was 10, she had only seen him in passing on the streets. Her feelings persisted after 2 years. She was aware that he had noticed something when he arched an eyebrow at her actions, but she dismissed it right away, most likely not thinking she could be Viper, the only Anbu who genuinely cared. She wanted to cry when she heard that he had passed away. She was deprived of the opportunity to speak with him once more. She felt both relief and anger when Kami showed up and told them the truth. She was furious with Kakashi for his deeds and the fact that the village had the audacity to celebrate his passing as though he hadn't put his life in danger to save the precious Uchiha. After he betrayed his country, she wished she could torture that person, but she was not permitted to do so. Thousands of butterflies began to flutter in the pit of her stomach and fly down her throat in relief that he was still alive. Shortly after, the Angel Six declared their love for Naruto to everyone. In spite of the criticism they would face, Kurenai, who was already aware of her feelings, frequently made jokes about how the dead last got all the attractive and strong girls and the last Uchiha got all the weak ones. A tiny, affectionate smile appeared on Enko's face as she slightly removed her mask. Her reputation would not be damaged because no one was present. Naruto would be back shortly. She was only genuinely anxious about his learning about the Angel Six. How would he respond? How would he respond? Even if she had dealt with the same things, she couldn't interpret his actions because she knew he wasn't used to that much love and attention. However, that was the past, and the past was irrelevant. The future was what counted, and she saw a bright one. When Shiro came back, Naruto exclaimed, "I see." With joy he nodded, then hurriedly relayed the message to the dragon, saying, "Thank you. Can you please deliver this letter to Gaara, the cage, for me?" As Shiro vanished, he said, "Your mother seems like a very nice woman. You're lucky. Goodbye, my prince." According to Haku, your mother, Urza crossed her arms habitually and asked, "When do we get to meet the woman?" He laughed and said, "During the Chunin exams." He was hardly able to wait for the day. "Ah, Kit, you're evil. I'm so proud of you. Thank you, Kyuubi. I had a good teacher." "You flatter me, but you're damn straight. I was talking about Bahamut." "I'm kidding, foosball. I'm kidding. Both of you were good teachers." "You're lucky I'm behind a cage, Kit. Who's going to participate?" He grinned and said, "Oh, I have a couple people in mind." There were 5 sneezes back in fury. Tsunade faced the civilian council, fighting the impulse to bang her head against the desk she was seated at, and most of the clan heads were doing the same, based on appearances, but Sume Inuzuka was giving in to the temptation and slammed her head hard against the wood. Once more, the demon child was being blamed for this situation by the civilian council. Tsunade yelled, "It's because of how you treated him," at last. Lily Haruno yelled, "This is the demon's fault and you know it." Shikaku Nara let out a sigh. He stated, "I disagree." Kaharu retorted, "What makes you say that? Indeed, if you had just let me enroll him in my route." Tsunade yelled, "That's enough of that, Danzo." The Nara head sighed again. Think back, no matter how much abuse you put Naruto through, he kept himself back, didn't blame the village at all, and loved it with the bottom of his heart. Finally, after betrayal, he snapped. I don't blame him, though I'd have snapped long ago and took my own life or destroyed the village as much as I could personally. I think we're fucked when he gets back. How dare you? Yelled Homura. I speak nothing but the truth. Hiyashi surprised the civilian side by saying, I agree with Shikaku. He was defending the man who was praising the demon. I met the boy a few times due to my daughter, Hinata. He was a fine young man. I was surprised how pure he was. Actually, I'm not surprised, however, that his sensei's betrayal finally made him open his eyes. In an attempt to gain control, Danzo said, Now, I think. When a huge black dragon materialized in the center of the council hall in icy black flames, his speech was cut short. Everyone almost let out a gasp with a sneer. The dragon turned to face everyone. I bring a message from my lord, and who is this? The Dragon Prince, Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze. Quiet. It was broken by Tsunade. Please, speak your message and I want no interruptions. Lady Tsunade. The room flinched as the Hokage slammed her fist into the wall next to her, causing it to collapse. I think you need to remember that I am the Hokage and therefore I am the one in charge, not the other way around, she said to the dragon. Please continue. My master has told me that judgment time has come for Konohagakure. In the name of the 3 goddesses, it shall fall. But, silence! Tsunade yelled. During those 3 years, my master has established a ninja village of his own, Ryukakure, or the Dragon Village, named after his teacher, the Dragon King. He is the cage there, the Ryukage. Thus, he's decided to test his new followers in the Chunin exams in 3 weeks. He, himself and his dragon father, will be joining to watch the show with the other cage. The dragon looked up. Tsunade, shocked to learn that Naruto was a cage, questioned, Is that all? The dragon gave a headshake. The room echoed with complaints. No, 3 years ago, when Yami-sama destroyed the Akatsuki, and Kuro waited patiently for them to stop, she spared 4. Those 4, along with others, have become his personal guard. The guardians of the dragon, those 4 shall be coming as well. Who are they? Asked Danzo, Hidan, Deidara, Kisame, and Itachi. Itachi? The room was in a state of complete chaos. Even Tsunade was taken aback. Kuro said calmly, Also, Itachi didn't kill his clan. The goddesses have confirmed that. Danzo, what do you have to say about that? The man winced visibly. My master would like to know why you had your root kill them and blame it on one of his best guardians. The man snarled. Tsunade felt furious. Anbu, she yelled out, arrest this man for treason, now. As the called Anbu pulled him out, Danzo yelled, What, after all I've done for this village? As they grew farther apart, he yelled, Mark my words, Tsunade, I will get out and take my revenge. His voice became quieter. My master shall arrive in 17 days, 2 days before the exam. Please have a large house ready so he can house his ninja and guards. Clan heads of Yamanaka, Hyuga, and Inuzuka. I must speak with you and a girl named Tenten's father, also a woman named Anko as well. The dragon didn't even bother bowing before he vanished. The hallway was silent. The clan heads grinned, and the civilians were too scared to say anything. It was becoming intriguing. With a slight smirk, the Nara head said, Yep, it's as I said. Fucked. Gaara blinked and blinked once more. There was a white dragon in front of him. A dream? Perhaps insomnia had plagued him for nearly his entire life. It was feasible. Is his mind playing tricks on him? It's also feasible. His brother and sister were staring at him with laughter, and he felt his eye twitch. He was arguing about authenticity with a dragon, and his anger had been transformed from the paperwork to bewilderment and irritation. The dragon said, Cage Gaara? A 3rd time. With his arms still crossed and his eyes fixed on the dragon as though it were going to leap and devour him, the redhead heard this time and nodded. I have a message from my master, Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze, the Dragon Prince. The glaring ceased. Naruto. My master told me to tell you he'll be entering people from his own village into the Chunin exams. Yes. He's created his own village in the other dimension and will move it here. When Konohagakure is no more, he will be watching the Chunin exams. Gaara's expression was emotionless, but he was exuberant. Is there more? The girl jumped and said, yes, Tamari. The dragon gave her a kind look. My master knows of the Angel Six. Like Hinata when she's shy, the girl flushed and began to play with her fingers. Konkuro gave Gaara a slap from her fan after she smirked and laughed at her. My master has told me he accepts you if you so wish. Tamari was ecstatic. To put it mildly, her brothers gave her a joyful smile. If you wish, you may return with me to him. He also told me to tell you in advance time that he already has 2 wives, one from the other world and one from here. To be honest, Tamari didn't give a damn. Such a result had already been discussed by the girls back home. With a squeal, she rushed out of the office and said, I'm fine, let me go pack. Gaara shook his head and remained unmoving. Tell him he has my blessing. What? Asked Konkuro. No, treat her right or I'll slaughter you. Gaara stated bluntly, Naruto wouldn't do that. It's your type of person that I would threaten. Konkuro let out a sigh away from prying eyes. Clan heads and their daughters reportedly met in the Hyuga home back in Konohagakure. Tenten had just arrived with her father when Anko, who appeared perplexed, swiftly followed her. Did you, perhaps, meet with a dragon? Each of them gave a nod. The dragon materialized. Good, you're all here. When Inoichi Yamanaka asked, yes, what's this about? The dragon grinned. Prince Naruto knows of the Angel Six. Oh, surprise, surprise. The jaws of all were on the ground. And he's fine with it. The girls sighed with relief, but they braced themselves in the hopes that he would go on with the message. Yes, he did. He paused for the inevitable as the 4 girls squealed and one, Anko, brightened dramatically. If you do so wish, he accepts you, he said. But, you must know he already has 2 wives. Doesn't matter, says Hana, it's to help him rebuild his clan. Sume proudly exclaimed, that's my girl, as she was thrilled to receive her alpha. The girls rushed to embrace one another. Hiyashi noticed that he was wondering, how did Naruto know of it? The dragon snorted. He said, I can answer that one for you. When you have 3 gossip-loving, all-knowing goddesses that like to pop in randomly, it's hard to keep anything secret in the world. Sweat fell from the room. The clan heads stiffened as the dragon said, also, I have a different message. We do know about your group Tsunade form. Tell them this. The time for Konoha's fall is nigh. Those who fight with me shall live. Those who are against me shall die. After the Chunin exam's last round, Konoha's judgment shall begin. Blood shall rain in righteous fires all around. And this is a battle I will win. Join and fight and your clan shall prosper. Deny and cower and it shall perish. The heads stiffened still further. It was almost time. In a week a dragon will come to the Hyuga household and receive an answer. Fight us, or join us now. If the women would like, I could take you to Naruto. The clan heads laughed before taking things seriously once more as the girls, including Anko, squealed once more and ran out the door. We will give our answer in a week, though Naruto probably already knows the answer. Kuro sighed. Naruto-sama or Prince Naruto, if you join, show respect. Not that the prince cares, but it's manners that us dragons hold very dear to us. They gave a nod. He turned a scaly, amused eyebrow at them and said, oh, before I go, I think I'd like to tell you something unrelated to this message from my lord. The Kyuubi created both the Byakugan and Sharingan when he was bored, and if Kyuubi's in Naruto, then he's technically your clan founder. See? Respect? Then Kuro vanished, leaving a room filled with shell shock. Collapsing onto the throne in his underground base, Danzo snarled. He was able to get out of the cells before he had to face Ibiki because of his root Anbu. The thought infuriated him as much as it relieved him. This is how they pay him back for all that he has done for this village, by imprisoning him and arranging for him to be tortured by a man who made even cages shudder in terror. If only he had acquired that demon brat at birth, he had the opportunity to raise the boy to be a unique weapon that would have given Konoha the advantage over everyone else. Naturally, if he had been in charge, he would have trained the weapon and it would have only obeyed him. If only he stopped his irate thoughts. What's the point of giving up? It was still possible to control the demon brat. He would rule the other world in addition to the elemental nations if he were to take over Naruto. The thought caused his eyes to widen. When he can be an emperor, why choose the Hokage or the leader of the nations? A deity. A cunning smile crept onto his scarred lips as he laughed to himself. Now he just needed to wait for the boy, since he knew the boy would be here himself. Why had his root been looking for him? He seemed to be presenting himself to Danzo in a red ribbon. A moderately sized house was in front of the Angel Six. As if they weren't worth it, the 2 dragons had appeared almost simultaneously. Drop the girls off. and then vanished once more. They gave a headshake. Oh, they would be sorry if they were going to be with Naruto. Anko approached, knocked on the door, and waited. She knocked again. Quiet. She slammed her fist against the door in frustration, and it opened to reveal a stunning woman with blood-red hair, perfect skin, body armor covering her torso, gloves that resembled armor, and a red skirt with knee boots that resembled armor. Ultimately, a goddess with her arms crossed, she demanded, "Who are you?" in a powerful yet alluring tone. Anko disliked being measured. "Well, who are you?" I asked first. "Well, Another girl walked beside her and asked, "Urza?" Her eyes were ice blue and her hair was deep black. She wasn't short for her age, but she wasn't any shorter than the tall one known as Urza. She gave them a commanding glance. "You are?" Anko gave in and sighed. "I'm Enko Mitarashi. This is Ino Yamanaka. Hana Inuzuka, Tamari, Tenten, and Hinata Hyuga were looking for Naruto." Urza grinned. She became red. "Is that so? Why didn't you say so?" He's," she said. "Haku, where is Naruto?" "Taking a shower. I believe he should be out in a minute or two. He's been in there for a while." "Girls. Who's there?" "Some girls who want to see Naruto." "Well, let them in." As the two girls escorted them through the door and into the charming house, Tenten questioned, "Who was that?" Pointing to the living room, Haku said, "This home's owner, Tazuna." With obvious confusion, Hinata asked, "Then, who are you if this isn't your house?" Ino said, "Yeah, and how do you know Naruto?" Urza gave them a smile while flashing her flawless teeth. Her loud declaration, "We're his wives, we carry his children," made Haku flush. The others also flushed. Thus, these two attractive women were his spouses. Urza was a prize in her own right. Her presence made them feel a little dehumanized. In addition, Naruto's children were born to these two. They had to catch up. Really, no one would overtake them. Hana inquired, "How do you get to know Naruto?" "Well, I was part of the Guardians of the Dragon, his personal guards of the mage side, and one of the strongest. We met, got closer, went on dates like a couple, fell in love, married, moved in together, got." Haku covered her friend's mouth with her hand. She let out a sigh. "That's enough. I got to know Naruto a few years ago. He saved my life." "So," Anko said, unable to postpone the one question she had always wondered, "is he huge or what?" The girl's anxiety increased as the two wives nodded and flushed. "Urza, Haku, have Kuro and Shiro returned yet?" Naruto's voice, a little deeper, poured along the stairs. The sound of footsteps caused the girls to straighten, and they nearly swore upon seeing Naruto, who was considerably older. Naruto, much older, much hotter. Naruto was a god. If people believed Sasuke was attractive, he gave them a straight, white smile. His canines only a little longer than usual, but they assumed that was because of the Kyuubi. "Welcome. I hope Kuro and Shiro treated you well?" 6 girls slammed him to the ground before he could get a response when Tazuna and his family rushed in to investigate the noise. Tsunami promptly ushered the disgruntled Inari into a different room. "I'm guessing you missed me." After giving him her response and glaring at him, Anko pressed her lips to his. After a moment of widening, he closed his eyes as well and placed his hand behind her head to intensify the kiss. The other girls blushed as Urza turned her head away to conceal hers. Tazuna dropped his sake, and Tsunami giggled as the girls swooned and scowled, wishing they were in her shoes. Anko's fingers began to curl and she squealed. Anko was breathing heavily when they parted ways, and they got to their feet. Her face was flushed, and she was staring off into space. "Anko?" he inquired, "are you alright?" She gave him a full-on flush, nodded slowly, and then walked back to the couch while swaying her hips, sensuously shaking his head. Naruto turned to face the 5 girls gathered around him. He started to say something, but Tenten cut him off. Was what you said in your message true?" "Yeah. Do you accept us as your wives to help rebuild your clan?" replied Hana. The girls were anxious and restless. They gave him optimistic glances. He arched an eyebrow. "What are you talking about? I thought I told you that was the case in my message. Did Kuro not deliver it well?" The girls' faces took on incredibly joyful expressions once more. Naruto was tackled to the ground by the 6 when his back struck the hard floor. He grunted. Urza called out in concern, "Naruto-sama," as she literally began tossing the woman off of Naruto and cradling him against her chest covered in metal. "Are you alright?" "Yeah," he moaned. "You girls have gotten stronger." "Of course," Ino exclaims. "We didn't want to marry you if we were weak. We've worked hard to share you." "Oh?" Naruto asked, raising an eyebrow once more. The girls flushed and shifted. "You mean you were planning to share me from the beginning even without my consent?" they asked. Naruto chuckled. "I'll never understand girls." He accepted Haku's hand after she shook her head. "That's the thing, girls don't understand boys and boys don't understand girls. It's nature." He glanced at the girls again. "Welcome to the Uzumaki Namikaze clan, my dragon princesses," he grinned. "I see," Tsunade grinned. Naruto told her about his numerous crushes and his hope of having a CRA here in Konoha, rather than in a different dimension as a dragon prince in Cage. This made the boys, Kiba in particular, jealous, but they soon forgot it. They wouldn't be bitches about it because they knew Naruto deserved it. Even Katetsu and Izumo began complaining politely about "lucky bastard" and similar things. Guy yelled, "Naruto really is a boy of burning youth. Unlike my ex-rival," but Tsunade's punch silenced him. Lee screamed, "I agree, Guy-sensei," and was hit with 2 punches. "Silence, both of you. Do you want the council and villagers to discover our little group, huh?" she yelled. "Anyway, please continue, Hiyashi." Clan head nodded in agreement. He turned to face the nearly 70 individuals in the room, both ninja and civilians, and said, "Yes." He left a message. It is as follows. "The time for Konoha's fall is nigh. Those who fight with me shall live. Those who are against me shall die." After the Chunin exam's last round, Konoha's judgment shall begin. Blood shall rain in righteous fires all around. And this is a battle I will win. Join and fight and your clan shall prosper. Deny and cower and it shall perish. Grins appeared on everyone's faces with every word. It was almost time for the corruption to end. Jiraiya grinned. "Damn brat, lucky in so many ways." Shikamaru turned to face Hiyashi, who appeared somewhat pale at this. He arched an eyebrow and turned to face his father, who had also taken notice his son's side, and the Nara head nodded. "Hiyashi-sama, it's troublesome to ask, but are you alright?" Inoichi chuckled. "Oh, he's just still a little shocked at something the dragon messenger said. I, too, was shocked out of my wits." Shuza looked up from his chips as he stood beside his son Choji for the first time tonight. He said, "You?" Inoichi glared at him. "What?" Kiba inquired, curious to find out what would shock Mr. No Emotions. Hiyashi simply averted his gaze, lacking the courage to speak. Sume responded on behalf of her son, snorting at the Hyuga head's actions. "My dear little pup, it seems that the Kyuubi created 2 well-known techniques and he's stunned by it." "What? Which ones?" "Kyuubi created the Sharingan and the Byakugan." After a brief moment of stuttering, everyone's attention was drawn to Hiyashi, who nodded and sighed in agreement with her statement. Their jaws dropped. Tsunade straightened up and said, "That's beside the point. Naruto has sent his message when he will attack. We must be ready by then." "I can help with that." The small fox that skipped over to the bewildered Tsunade caught everyone's attention when it reached her shoulder. She arched an eyebrow at it. "And you are? Amy, one of Prince Naruto's informants? You insult me. I am one of the Kyuubi's summons since Kyuubi-sama is inside Naruto. Naruto gets to summon us," the beast grumbled. Nara Shikaku grinned. "Though Konoha dislikes foxes, they'd never suspect one to be a spy. I didn't even know there was a fox summoning contract." The fox gave a sigh and turned to face Tsunade and said, "Of course not, only those Kyuubi-sama deems worthy can summon us. I bring you news that Naruto forgot to ask Kuro to say." Everyone's perspiration stopped. It was very similar to Naruto. When the messenger arrives at the Hyuga compound in a week, he will bring Dragon Ninja Hite Atesh. An. I think that's right. The headband things correct me if I'm wrong. When the attack happens, discard your leaf Hite Atesh and put on the ones given to you. Even the civilians, so they know that they are on our side, understand? Tsunade remarked, "Makes sense. Will there be anything else?" He ran down and vanished into the darkness, saying, "No, if you need one of us, we'll know." Now that we have that, what will our plan be? The stimulus response in the room was, Bahamut straightened and crossed his arms. "The ninja girls will be trained by magical spirits for 2 weeks before you're married to Naruto. 2 days after you return," he said with simplicity. As the other girls stared, Naruto sighed. This was what he had anticipated from his dragon father, the man. Well, the dragon didn't like people, but he detested weak people. When the Inuzuka woman argued, "Why? We're strong already." Anko gave a nod. "Yeah, what are you talking about? We're ninja for Kami's sake." "That may be so, but as you are, you're no match for Urza even if you all attack at the same time." The Dragon King laughed. "Haku is fine and she carries my boy's baby. I don't want that baby hurt, so, in an hour or so, I'll send you to my dimension to learn the elemental magic. Of course, it'll be nothing like Dragon Slayers, but still powerful enough." The girls turned to face Naruto, who simply grinned and began to drink. He concluded that staying neutral was far safer. That would prolong his life. The girls let out a defeated sigh. They didn't want to offend their soon-to-be father-in-law, much less a dragon. "Good, now go get ready." Bahamut turned to Naruto and grinned as the girls made their way to pack. "You chose good woman with potential, Naru." Naruto returned the smile. Funny thing is they don't even know their own potential. Urza put herself on Naruto's lap and grinned. He encircled her waist with his arms. Hopefully the spirits can help. They have been known to awaken people's inner power. I'm sorry, Haku said. What are these spirits exactly? Bahamut remarked. Spirits of magic. Powerful creatures made up of an element and have complete control over that single element. Urza faced her eyes narrowed dangerously as she said, though they have nowhere near the power of a dragon, their power, it's devastating. I've experienced it firsthand. Naruto remarked, they're not that bad, some of them are my friends. Are they the ones who'll train them? Bahamut gave a nod. Urza remarked, you amaze me, Naruto-sama. You have just as many surprises in you as Natsu, maybe even more. Even he has trouble with the spirits. The "what's that supposed to mean" expression that Naruto gave her was simply disregarded. He turned to Haku and shook his head. Where's Zabuza been anyway? Zabuza gazed at the expansive forest in front of him, which appeared to contort and reach out to him, taunting and challenging him. His face was obscured by a dark shadow because he was so excited to be living again. He simply went out to get Naruto and Haku a wedding present that he had previously forgotten since it was a straightforward error. Why? He wasn't lost. Oh dear, Zabuza was never lost. He was simply, well, he wasn't lost. Snarling, he reached for his sword. One way or another, he would find his way back. These new brides were people he wanted to meet. They had better be powerful. If his cage were to marry a weak woman, he would not tolerate it. The trees around him fell with a swing of fury. The girls packed and were grudgingly prepared to leave within the next hour. Although Zabuza is still missing, he should return within an hour after destroying the forest, based on the distant booms. While Haku and Urza went shopping with Inari and his family in town, the six, Naruto, and Bahamut gathered outside the house grinning. Naruto turned to the woman and spoke, ready? The girls gave a nod. All right. I won't be with you for I'm staying here after the 2 weeks are up. Bahamut will pick you up and bring you back here for our wedding and the final preparations. Understood? Once more, the girls gave a nod. Tenten, who was disappointed that she wouldn't be able to see him for some time, asked, why can't you come with us? After 3 years without seeing him, they were sent away once more one day. I have to stay here and prepare. I have a few people I'm contemplating on reviving and seeing before things begin. With his hands extended, Bahamut said, enough talk. He stated, it's time. As the girls vanished in a dazzling light and a magical symbol materialized beneath them, Naruto smiled encouragingly and waved at them. Anko cried out, motherfucking assholes. As her face crashed to the cave floor, she growled, sat up, and rubbed it. That fucking hurt. Dark laughter drew her attention. Her gaze darted to the darkness, where she seized a kunai and prepared herself. A hissing voice said, a bad mouth, trust issues and good reflexes. I might just like you. A man appeared out of the darkness. Anko studied the creature because, based on appearances, it was not human. It was shaped like a man. Black nails that stood at a point, fangs protruding from pale lips, purple slitted eyes that sent chills down her spine, and skin that made Orochimaru look like a tan god. It had dark purple hair tied in a high ponytail, pointed ears, and piercings all over it. There were purple scales on some areas of the pale skin, which only made it more inhuman. With venom, she demanded, who are you? The animal gave a headshake. Now, is that any way to speak to someone who's doing you a favor? It's not every day you can learn from a spirit. Girl, I'm only doing this as a favor to my friend. Naruto, be respectful. She sighed. She said, earn my respect. The man's face lit up with a savage smile. I really do like you. My name's Khan, a spirit of poison. When I'm done with you, you'll be able to produce poison of any kind from your body. Let's not forget the fighting style of my people. Are you ready to get started, little snake? Anko smirked as he licked along the kunai. I was born ready. Ino touched down on a precipice. The edge broke and she fell before she had even managed to regain her balance. She thought it was over when she screamed, but she ended up just hanging. A boyish voice said, geez, you just got here and you're already troublesome. With a storm beginning to rumble in the sky, Ino looked up at a teenager as he lifted her by her collar onto the cliff's ledge. The teenager had tan skin and stood an inch or two taller than her. He had blonde, red, and white streaks in his hair. He had one lightning white eye and one lightning yellow. He gazed at her. Ino Yamanaka, correct? I'm Blaze, a lightning spirit. You are? Is that an insult? Ino shook her head wildly. No, I was just thinking of something that didn't look human. She was surprised when Blaze smiled knowingly and laughed. He waved it away, saying, you wouldn't be the first. Elemental spirits usually look human like others don't. It's a common mistake. So, you're one of Naru's brides. I must say, he scored well, especially with a chest like that. Ino covered her chest with her arms and bag as she flushed, pervert. He gave a hearty laugh. All right, ready to learn, Ino? She gave a nod. I'm ready for anything. Good, because learning lightning style is very painful. She swallowed with a soft landing on the water. Hinata got to her feet. She surveyed the stunning region of glistening water and a cascade encircled by a stunning rainforest. She turned red. Pretty. Hinata turned as a dreamy voice said, "It is, isn't it?" She noticed a stunning woman with Naruto's blue eyes. Numerous beads and decorations were scattered throughout her silver hair, which flowed elegantly in the wind as though dancing. Hinata felt warm as she smiled tenderly and affectionately. Her lips pink. Her body had a nice shape, but her skin was a little pale. "Hello, little Hinata, I'm Lily, a water spirit." "Hello, Lily-chan," she said politely. "Just Lily is fine, Hinata." "Child, are you ready to bear the abilities of a water spirit? You must be calm and collected, kind in spirit. Do you believe you can hold the healing and destroying powers of water?" "For Naruto-kun, I will." Lily gave the infatuated girl a smile. "Very noble, Hinata. I can see why he loves you." Hinata tapped her fingers together, flushed. "Well, I." She laughed. "I'm kidding with you. Hinata, let us get acquainted so we may begin." Tenten arrived in an area with mountains and rocks, and the only living things there were water and green patches. At this, she scowled. For the next 2 weeks, she would need to watch what she ate and drank. "I know what you're thinking, and everything will be fine. There's a plentiful forest just on the other side of this big rock here." Tenten looked back but saw nothing. She raised an eyebrow and looked down to see a young girl with dark skin that complemented the shadows, black bun hair, and green eyes staring up at her. "Who are you?" "I'm an earth spirit, Tora." The girl arched an eyebrow at Tenten's growl. "It's not you. It's just there was this demon cat that we always had to chase a few years back. I still want to murder the damn thing." Tora grinned with laughter. "You're fun. I just might like you now. Let us begin." "Begin what?" "Training. Of course, why else are you here?" Tenten reddened. "I knew that." The girl gave a snort. "Yeah, whatever, come on, princess. I won't wait all day." When Tenten said, "Hey, only Naruto can call me that," she flushed. The girl gave her a mocking smile. "Well, I'm your sensei. I can call you whatever I want, princess." Tenten let out a sigh. "Whatever." Tamari appeared in midair and began to consider ways to inflict pain on the Dragon King. But she had to quickly use wind jutsu to fly. It was not part of the agreement to drop her off literally in midair. It was merely a murderous attempt. Before clapping reverberated in the overcast sky, a male voice exclaimed, "Impressive." Tamari gazed up into white blue hair and sky blue eyes. Even though the boy in front of her was only 11 years old, he exuded strength. "You are?" "Oh, yes, forgive my lack of introduction. I'm wind spirit named Storm, your new sensei. Pleased to make your acquaintance." "Oh, my name's Tamari." "I know." The Kunoichi were surprised by this. "How?" He gave her a smile. "Do you really think I'd take on a human as an apprentice without knowing at least their name? Bahamut gave it to me when he requested I do this. Naruto's cool, so I accepted in helping one of his brides as long as she gives him strong children." Tamari nearly lost the jutsu as she flushed as Storm laughed at her. She made a futile attempt to cover her blush by turning her face away. Hannah wasn't pleased, absolutely not. She had been thrown into a huge mound of snow first, and now she was wandering the mountains when a blizzard decided to brighten her day. That dragon was something she detested. She swiftly wandered into the cave she saw around the corner regretfully. She was unaware that the cave's floor was a hole. She landed on her butt after falling straight down. It was as cold inside as it was outside, which was unfortunate for her. When she opened her eyes, she was shocked and filled with wonder. There were diamonds and crystals everywhere in the room. She was scanning the area when she noticed a teenager with white eyes, white skin, and white hair. Although she had an albino appearance, she was actually the embodiment of snow. The girl's voice reverberated off the gems as she said, "Hello, young one." "Hello, you must be the spirit I'm to learn from?" "Yes, I'm an ice spirit, Tanya. I do hope we can get along." "Ice? I like that. So, when do we start?" Tanya grinned at her excitement, which brought back memories of their first encounter with Naruto. "Soon. First, let's get you somewhere warm. You'll be used to the cold soon, but for now, come." Hannah yelled, "Thank you," as she desperately needed warmth. So, Drew led Naruto, gazing at the enraged Zabuza in front of him. "Mind telling me why you were destroying the forest?" Zabuza snarled. "Some weird magnetic pull or something caused it to interfere with my sense of direction." "You mean you lost your way?" "You brat, I don't get lost." "Is there a way to speak with your cage like that?" With a growl, Zabuza said, "I don't get lost." With a smile, Naruto said, Sure. Naruto shook his head and lay down on the couch, wondering how the girls were doing. knowing that once the training began, they would be cursing Bahamut's name forever. Zabuza blushed. Then he stomped and huffed towards the kitchen to get some of Tazuna's sake. Kit. The voice he recognized in his mind made Naruto smile. Kyuubi. A long time, you foosball. While Kyuubi mumbled something about ungrateful, disrespectful brats while scowling, Naruto smiled. What do I owe for this honor, then, Kyuubi? Kid, I'm not sure if you'll like the news I have for you. Of course I don't, but you. What's the matter, Kyuubi? To avoid lying to you, I even assumed he was dead before I started. I can personally attest that the damn Reaper most likely just tampered with everyone because she enjoys doing so, because being eternal gets monotonous. Kyuubi, please, well, I believe he is still alive in a coma because it's alive but not very strong. Who? Kyuubi, who? Minato Namikaze, your father. If Naruto were Sarutobi's age, he might have had a heart attack. D-Dad is? Where? A few miles from here, the next town over towards the north. Zabuza. I'm going to be gone for a bit. You are in command. What? So, what am I going to tell my dear old dad about a dragon? Yelled Zabuza. He will put me in the ground once more if he doesn't like it. I'll be right back. Tell him. He ignored Zabuza's cries that it wasn't good enough and yelled as he hurried out the door. Kyuubi, are you certain this is the location? As Naruto strolled through the small, busy village, which was primarily a trade village and typically avoided conflict and lacked ninja, he asked. Yes, I could sense your Yondaime's strong aura from anywhere. I will always despise the man for sealing me. I dislike your pops, but I like you. Take care of it. In mild amusement, Naruto shook his head and said, whatever, Q. A little apprehensive, Naruto entered the tiny hospital. What would he tell his father if this were the case? He had put so much effort into protecting the village and had put his trust in them. What would he do if he discovered that the village, including his beloved student, had disregarded his last request and made numerous attempts to kill him? Bahamut was a good father, but dragons and humans treat their young differently, so he sighed the truth. He would have to tell the truth. He wasn't going to lie to his father for the first time, but how should he treat him? He'd never really had a father before. The woman at the front desk turned to face him with a mildly irritated expression on her face as he approached her slowly. Yes. Oh, how he hated hospitals in this world, she said in a sickly sweet voice. The hospitals in Fury were fine, kind, and smelled like magic and flowers instead of sick and elderly people, though he was still unsure of how. Well, aside from the scars on my cheeks, of course, I'm searching for a man who resembles me a lot. I believe he is my father. For a moment, the woman's eyes widened. Akio-sensei. Even though her screech wasn't as bad as Sakura's, it still hurt, so Naruto covered his sensitive ears as she screamed toward the back. A man with a stubbed chin walked out looking lazy, but he exuded professionalism in every way. Naruto grinned, and even though the man didn't look it, he could tell that this man was the best of the best. What? With a firm tone that sounded like he had just woken up, he asked. Think we got an ID on the blonde John Doe, she said, nodding at Naruto. The one who has been in a coma, you know. The doctor's eyes widened like the nurse's, and after examining Naruto for a moment, he nodded and said, okay, come with me. The blonde could sense the hopeful anxiety radiating off the doctor, but he remained silent as Naruto nodded and followed him through the white halls until they reached a room. This is it, take your time, he almost cried as Naruto nodded and entered, closing the door behind him. The Yondaime, Minato Namikaze, Naruto's father, was in a coma. In front of him he bit his bottom lip, approached him, and sat down on a chair, staring directly into the face of the man who had long ago sealed his fate, but he didn't hate him. The Yondaime, who looked a lot like an older Naruto, reluctantly raised his fingers and wiped some blonde hair from his face, grinning a little at the warm touch, demonstrating that this man was real and not just another one of Naruto's dreams. Kyuubi. What, kid? I was sleeping. How can I get him to wake up? Because why should I tell you? The Nine-Tails snorted. I despise the man with all my evil soul. I would prefer that he die pathetically and remain in this coma forever. Please, Kyuubi, this would mean a lot to me. You're lucky I see you as my kid. Kyuubi moaned. Brat, you owe me for this. Naruto looked longingly at his father, whom he would soon meet, and said out loud, sure. Naruto nodded and bit his thumb, allowing the red to spill out. We'll need blood. Make sure the damn man's mouth gets it by concentrating your and my chakra into it. After that, the pest should awaken. Naruto nodded, followed instructions exactly, and watched, praying that this would work, pulling his thumb away from the cold lips just when he thought he had failed. The Yondaime's hand flinched, and Naruto's face lit up. He saw the man groan and slowly sit up, clutching his head. He blinked and glanced around, as if perplexed, before his gaze fell on Naruto, unsure of what to do. Naruto permitted a tiny smile to cross his lips, and then he found himself in a tight embrace, stiffening but slowly wrapping his arms around the man's back. Urza hugged him, but she made sure he understood to exercise caution when touching him. Naruto. You mean that? He withdrew and gave the man a hopeful glance. You're my dad, aren't you? The fourth knitted his brows and narrowed his eyes, saying, You weren't told? Shaking his head, Naruto said, I found out when I was 12, and not from anyone in the village. His eyes were filled with sadness. I'll need to speak to that old geezer, he's dead. Even though he was in a coma, Minato could feel each day go by as if he were awake, only he would sit in darkness and wait day and night, unable to sleep for him. It felt like an eternity since he last saw his son, and he was still holding him around the shoulders, still in shock. Orochimaru established a village after turning traitor some time ago. 3 years ago, he killed the old man in an attack. Now, Tsunade Ba-chan is the Hokage. Her lips quirked as Minato said, Is she? How have things been going for you in the village? Like a hero? He grinned broadly, but it vanished when he saw his son's expression. You have me to thank for that. What's wrong? Dad, they ignored your request. What are you discussing? Naruto opened his mouth several times, then sighed, put 2 fingers on his father's forehead, and closed his eyes. A trick he had learned from the Kyuubi during his jutsu training, and since the demon was imprisoned, he had to demonstrate the technique to the blonde child in a different way. The older man was filled with memories of Naruto's early years, including the beatings, the assassination, the consoling conversations with Kyuubi, Kakashi's betrayal, his encounter with the goddesses, and his new village. Naruto was relieved that he was free of the scars from his early years, and he had to force himself not to thank Kyuubi for this. Minato's face was filled with rage as he withdrew his fingers, and the room was filled with killer intent. Naruto would have been trembling and fainting if he had been any less than cage level, but he was grateful that he was stronger and was not affected. Minato became even more enraged as he hissed with great venom, I can't believe I saved that place. A Rasengan slowly formed in his free hand, which wasn't wrapped protectively around Naruto, who once again flinched against his will. I'll Rasengan them to their next life, especially Kakashi. Minato said, It's unbelievable that he was my pupil. He will have to eat his eyes and balls after I crucify him. Yeah, I still don't like him, but I appreciate his perspective. Minato, go. Why don't you simply let me go, Kit? Together, he and I can handle them. What say you? So to speak, you won't even get your hands dirty? And after Konoha is destroyed, what will happen? Spree is killed. The demon joyfully declared, a big, toothy smile spreading across his foxy lips. With a sigh, Naruto turned to face his snarling father. Dad, the man said, turning to face him with a now gentle expression, even if you support that village, I'm going to destroy Konoha. Will you support them or me? I don't want to be enemies. I want to know if you choose to support the village where you were raised, I won't hold it against you. Minato sneered, Isn't it clear? Why would I support the village that lied to my wife about you living, betrayed us both, and almost killed you? I'm not on their side at all. I'll always be by your side. Naruto gave the man holding him a radiant smile and said, Thanks. When will I be able to meet these wives of yours? Thank you for reading my note regarding the clan's reconstruction, my boy. Do you enjoy owning a harem? He asked, grinning mischievously. I hate that word, it makes me feel like Erosenin. As the young Rukage shuddered, Naruto laughed, I prefer to call it a big family instead. Alright, Minato said with a smile, come on, I want to get some exercise, meet these girls, and practice piercing civilian chests with my Rasengan. You are aware that they will likely weep over your lack of support, aren't you? I'll laugh at them like how they laughed at you, the Yondaime said with a sadistic smile. Yes, indeed. Stain their brains and allow their blood to flow after tearing out their insides and feeding them to the crocs. Choke them on blood and flesh by tearing out their tongues and jamming them down their throats. Allow them to experience the anguish of phoning for assistance and having no one respond. As their weak lives disappear from their sight, watch them cower like a king and... That's the sound and look that Dr. Akio saw when he came in, and it made him shiver, but he was also amazed that this man was up and moving like he wasn't in a coma for 15 years. Naruto ignored the ranting fox, and he had the same smile on his face. Though his was slightly influenced by the Kyuubi, they both began laughing, a little evilly. Father and son were returning to the wave an hour later. Tazuna, who was constantly reprimanded by Tsunami, had brought out the liquor. Everyone was sitting in her living room, except for the Angel Six, talking and laughing, and occasionally Urza or Haku would touch their bellies, as if that would make the baby move. Then, all of a sudden, Zabuza, who was sleeping on the couch, leapt 10 feet in the air and slammed against the floor face first, shocking everyone. Zabuza-san? What's the matter? Haku inquired, a little alarmed. Son of a bitch. Fucking. There's no way in hell he's alive. He screamed, appearing a little alarmed by the chakra signature that was drawing closer and closer. Who? Zabuza gaped and trembled a little before the door opened and Naruto and an older Naruto entered, both of them wearing nearly the same smile, with the exception that Naruto's was more fox-like. Hokage, YY Yondaime, everyone, meet my father, wasn't he dead? Gasped the room. With pride, Naruto declared. Hey. Sputtering unintelligible syllables, Zabuza almost passed out. Wah. Yami decided she was bored and didn't want my soul, the two blondes said. Laughing at him, she tossed me into a random location within the elemental nations and put me into a coma. Before laughing, Naruto arched an eyebrow at his father and said, that sounds just like her. Mouths remained open. Please close your mouths, a bug will infect you. Minato-sama, I'm Urza Scarlet, Naruto's first wife. Urza stood and approached the man. Examining him from head to toe and feeling the power emanating from him, she smiled and extended her hand. Taking her hand, the man grinned and said, a redhead? Why do redheads always appeal to namakazes? As the woman bowed courteously, he asked himself more than anyone else. Beside Urza, Haku stood and bowed, saying, I'm his second wife, Haku. After a brief sigh, Minato gathered the two girls into an embrace, making them squeak, and then he withdrew, grinning. You know, we're family now, he said, bowing is too formal, and hugging is not prohibited. The girls blushed and hurried back to the couch. Zabuza, who had always admired the man in front of him and was saddened to learn that he had died defending Konoha from the Kyuubi, slowly sat up and gazed at him in wonder before bowing. And you are? The Yondaime politely inquired. Demon of the Mist, Zabuza. Sir, he pointed to his dragon headband and remarked, missing nin turned dragon nin. The Yondaime swiftly tied it onto his forehead, and Minato's face brightened as he took his Konoha Hitayate, an. I think it's right this time, from his clothes, slashed across it with a kunai, and grinned at his son, who reached into his clothes and took out a duplicate of the one that Zabuza and Haku wore. And now, so am I, as tall and proud as ever. Bahamut entered the room, and the two men immediately locked eyes, staring at one another for what felt like 100 years before Bahamut finally said anything. Yondaime, Dragon King. It was a straightforward conversation that made many people perspire. I see you've been retrieved by my son, Minato corrected, my son. They scowled at one another, engaged in an internal conflict over fatherly rights for Naruto, who, of course, was unaware of the exchange, as was Urza, while the rest of the room grinned and laughed. All right, I need to take care of some business. He gave Minato a nod and said, I'll be right back, Dad, to Bahamut. The others in the room nodded at him, but the two didn't hear, their glares still fixed on one another. After going outside and stretching for a while, Naruto exclaimed, Nora. Naruto grinned at the Dragon Prince as a huge black and blue dragon that was a little bigger than Shiro and Kuro materialized in front of him. Can you do me a favor, Nora? Nora laughed. From massacres to jumping into a volcano, to messages, my prince. With a nod of approval, Naruto threw a big bag at the dragon, who arched a scaly eyebrow. This is, your objective. Listen, I need the Hyuga compound to receive a message. Anxiety was running high in the Hyuga's compound, and Tsunade was beginning to walk around complaining to herself it had been a week, and all of the rebellion's key figures were present, including Jiraiya, Ibiki, Iruka, and the clan heads. Tsunade already didn't like this dragon and wanted to punch him until next Saturday, but just as she took a swig of her sake, a giant dragon appeared in front of them, seemingly grinning mockingly at them. Everyone flinched as the dragon said, Maggots, I have been sent by my prince for your answer. Huffing, Tsunade said, isn't it clear? We've decided to participate. We want to bring down this corrupt village, Uchiha this, and Uchiha that. Arguments with the council are getting old to me. With a nod of approval, the dragon threw his clawed foot at them, causing a big bag to fall in front of them. The Nara head remained motionless, deciding that yawning was the best course of action in that circumstance. Unwilling to wait for the slack-jawed Nara, Hiyashi Hyuga crossed the room to the bag and opened it. Revealing about 100 dragon nin headbands, he nodded to the dragon and gave them to Tsunade, who glanced. I'm grateful. These will be distributed at the following meeting. At the conclusion of the Chunin exams, Prince Naruto will stand and yell, it's time for judgment. The dragon said, the plan is simple, and the conflict will start. Go after everyone in Konoha, nobody else, they'll be on our side, just Konoha, you get it? The room nodded, and Tsunade said, Fully, clans will be offered a place in Ryugakure, Nora said. Nodding, don't worry. Even though your homes will most likely be destroyed, put all of your most prized belongings in a newly constructed clan house and seal them. We can create a perfect replica of your former homes with the assistance of each clan. At the same time, the clan heads bowed their heads and grinned, saying, we accept. My prince also wants to know how the so-called duck butt Teme prick and the pink banshee howler monkey are doing. The room was filled with frowns and snickers to everyone's surprise. Shibi Aburame, who hardly ever speaks, let alone swears, said, the little bastard is being spoiled. He's requesting our clan secrets and our daughters, Hiyashi said, nodding. Fortunately, the council is requesting that they return to assist in rebuilding the Uchiha, so he sent them away as if I would ever allow my daughters to be close to him. He's much worse than 3 years ago. Uruka sighed after losing to Naruto. He threatened to kill the brat and demanded the secrets of the Namikaze and Uzumaki clans after learning Naruto's identity. Fortunately, to his dismay, all of those scrolls vanished. They all knew where they vanished to, and the dragon grinned. The pink thing, too? They all moaned, worse. Louder, more annoying. Demanding. She even had the audacity to ask me, the Hokage, to teach her how to defeat the demon brat and help Sasuke produce robust offspring. She even went to the council, and I naturally turned her down, much to their chagrin. There were snickers when Shibi muttered, she's more ugly. Very well, thank you for the report. Nora replied, now, I best be on my way. Hold on. The dragon turned to face Hiyashi as he said, since Hinata disappeared, the council is requiring that Hanabi wed the Uchiha boy. To everyone's surprise, Hiyashi bowed to the ground, saying, please take her to Naruto for protection. Hiyashi never bowed to anyone. He said, I beg you. As a branch member escorted the girl in, she was wearing tiny rings under her eyes to indicate that she was terrified to sleep for fear that someone would break into her room and take her away, and she looked utterly miserable at the order to marry the prick. I don't think my master will have any qualms with it, the dragon said with a slight smile. Little one, get on my back and don't let go of me no matter what. Looking at her father, she nodded and said, Hiyashi-sama, I. Stop talking. Hanabi, we won't have any of these old customs after this war is over. Both the caged bird seal and the elders will be gone. Please refer to me as dad or father from now on. Additionally, let Hinata know that. With tears in her eyes, she nodded and gave her father a quick hug before clambering up on the big reptile and saying, bye, in a barely audible whisper. The dragon vanished in flames after that. Although he knew that Sasuke would likely get worse, Naruto had to admit that he was taken aback when Hanabi arrived at Izuna's with the explanation and report from Nora, which made him growl. Sakura. Well, he can't say he didn't expect it. Since she was soon to become his sister-in-law, Hanabi appeared to be smiling more than he had ever seen her in the village, which made him smile back. He didn't want his sister-in-law to be depressed because that would go against everything he stood for, and if she was, Hinata would most likely kill him. Hinata and the other brides have been training for a week now, and Naruto was curious about how they were doing. He knew from sparring with the Spritz that they weren't going easy. He was about a mile away from Tezuna's and could finally breathe fresh air after shaking the unpleasant and painful memories from his mind and relaxing under the blue sky. Although he told them otherwise, Bahamut and Minato believed they had to compete for fatherly rights over him, which made the air in the house very thick and uncomfortable. Despite the abilities Kami gave him, he had to understand what he was doing when dealing with an injury that he found quite difficult. He had been thinking about reviving the Sound Five. Not all of them, of course, but Kimimaro. He was a strong ally, one that had the potential to surpass Orochimaru, and the deceased snake bastard knew it and gave him that fatal disease, which he doubted he could heal completely without knowing the full gist of the virus. When he heard a twig snap, he jerked to his feet, kunai in hand, eyes keen, and he looked around the wooded area before his gaze widened upon a figure not far away. What? Enko, covered in burns, bruises, poison marks, and her own blood, fell to the ground, panting, and raised her head to glare at her sensei, who was grinning down at her with obvious amusement. Little snake. What's wrong? Are you already exhausted? Has just a week of my training broken you? Kon teasingly asked. Horrible, you are not entitled to refer to yourself as Naruto's bride. A twisted smile appeared on Kon's face as something snapped inside her, and she shook and growled before standing straight and motionless, trying to contact her life's energy with closed eyes. His eyes widened as she began to glow purple, and he licked his lips and smiled, fusing his energy with hers while the girl was unaware of what was happening around her. I don't know what Naruto sees in you, he said, slashing an arm with his nails to divert her attention. Simply put, you're a strange young girl with an odd personality. Who could ever love you? She began to shake, blood streaming from her wounds, and bit her bottom lip, trying to ignore the crazy spirit's voice that seemed to have such a strong hold on her. Well, perhaps I ought to speak with Naruto. He is, after all, a friend of mine. I'll let him know that you aren't good enough, strong enough, or worthy of him. He'll abandon you like lunch yesterday, correct? Orochimaru's pupil. You see, I would do that. His simile expanded and began to laugh as her eyes opened, glowing a sinister purple as her life energy began to unconsciously sucking in his, and he withdrew after converting her energy into pure poison. As her energy began to wane, she clenched her teeth and snarled, "Don't assume that, Naruto would ever," she looked at him, "be like you." Her energy surged, sending it flying in all directions and poisoning every plant, making them melt and wither. Khan laughed and held out his hands, saying, "Yes, fantastic." As Anko began to feel weak, her eyelids slowly drifted together, her energy dwindled, and she began to fall. Khan was at her side in an instant, catching her and laying the icy girl on the ground. Even though she was unconscious, a tiny smile appeared on her lips as he whispered, "Well done, little snake, well done indeed." As Ino screamed, Blaze winced once more. She had recovered, of course, but it would be painful to be shocked by lightning bolt after lightning bolt. Ino gritted her teeth and closed her mouth. She needed to be strong for Naruto. She fell to the ground as the lightning subsided, and Blaze approached her, saying, "Better, but not yet. Get up, we'll keep doing this until the pain of electricity is gone." With a nod and a grunt, she rose slowly and inhaled deeply before lightning struck her again. Blaze couldn't deny that he was impressed. In fact, she had been acclimating to lightning more quickly than any other person he had ever seen, and he was secretly boosting the lightning's juice each time he hit her. She would be able to withstand most lightning now without perspiration, but he didn't want most. He wanted it to be all no lightning or electricity to ever harm her. She was gritting her teeth again, but that's a lot better than screaming. So Blaze was shocked that she wasn't screaming this time. He saw her features gradually soften until they had a calm appearance, and her hair flowed around her like she was swimming. It was an exotic sight. She collapsed to the ground, gasping for air, and he clapped before approaching her on his knees and saying, "You did good." She grinned back at him, "And I must say that you looked absolutely sexy when lightning strikes you." "Pervert," said she. "We're prepared to move on to the next phase," he said with a laugh. "Tomorrow, we'll get started." Before everything went dark, she smiled again. As the girl worked on healing, the next step was to pull water out of thin air, and Lily grinned at her charge, Hinata, who appeared to be a perfect fit for the water element, having already become one with the water and able to breathe it, much to her surprise. Water was more effective than chakra at healing. It never ran out and healed everything. It could heal anything, and the only thing it couldn't heal was death. Hinata winced as the water spirit cut a wide slit into her skin once more. "Again," she said. The Hyuga nodded and her hand was surrounded by glowing water. She focused and held it up to her wound, which began to heal gradually. Lily nodded, thinking that Naruto had chosen the ideal bride. The girl was a genius, and a powerful one at that. She couldn't help but smile again. "Stop the rock, princess, please." Tora, who had been teaching Tenten that in order to control the earth, one must be like the earth, strong and immobile, yelled as another boulder began to fall down a cliff towards the panting, sweating, and bruised Tenten. Tenten strained her ears to listen, but this time her weapons were not helping. Recalling the previous lesson, she stopped straining her ears and, upon sensing a large vibration, she thrust her palm forward, striking something before it fell away. Before there was applause, there was silence. "Well done, princess." Tenten took off her blindfold and searched for the rock, finding it in fragments below. Her eyes widened, and she then grinned and leapt with delight. "Yes," she exulted. "Not just yet, princess. Hold on." As though to demonstrate her point, she snapped her fingers, causing Tenten's heart to stop as at least 20 boulders appeared behind the spirit. "Now put that blindfold back on and let's start. You still have a long way to go." Tenten was feeling lightheaded as they walked along a cloud. Storm told Temari, "I'm impressed for a human. Your wind control has improved greatly." Following that covert insult, Temari wrinkled her nose and said, "I'll have you know, Naruto is human as well." "I wasn't making fun of your kind," Storm said. Shaking his head, he shrugged his shoulders and said, "Plus, technically, Naruto is greater than human, but whatever." She blushed at her assumption. "I was just saying that humans usually don't have such great control on wind." "What will I discover now?" he asked, guiding her to the cloud's edge. He responded, "Wind control varies depending on the situation. It is easiest when you're calm and difficult when you're angry. There are many different types of rage, including extreme anger, danger, desperation, and helplessness. We're now working on the rage category because you excel in the calm category." "How?" He gave her a menacing smile, which she disliked since it usually meant she would be hurt, like this, he said, pushing her off the cloud, and as she fell, she looked up to see him smiling and waving at her. For a moment, she felt powerless as she screamed and crashed through the air, reaching for her fan only to realize that Storm had destroyed it, claiming that using a fan was cheating. Confused, she tried calling the wind to her again, this time more desperately as her speed continued to increase, but it never came. As she fell, Storm observed, "Perhaps I ought to assist her now? No, we should give her more time." She recalled Storm's words. Wind control was harder to control during the rage category. It dawned on her that she needed to be calm, so she took a deep breath, relaxed, and closed her eyes. Storm, who was watching from a distance, smiled. Tamari lifted her hands slowly and summoned the winds to her. She felt herself slowing down until she was stopped and floating in midair. She opened her eyes, grinned, and willed herself to ascend to the cloud. Storm was on. "I am going to kill." Before she could finish, her sensei pulled her into a tight embrace. "Fantastic work. I never imagined that you would truly understand the first time. Excellent." He gave each cheek a giddy kiss before bouncing off. She put her anger aside and grinned at the infrequent compliment, touching her cheeks. Slowly but surely, she was starting to help Naruto. For this, Hana cursed Bahamut, the winter, the ice, and her sensei. Yes, she was doing well in her training. She had developed an immunity to the cold, and she was gradually merging with ice, but that didn't mean she detested it. Oh no, she detested it. She was frozen in a block of ice right now, thanks to Tanya, who was sitting in the corner grinning while reading a book and petting a polar bear. She had informed Hana that they were going to make her one with the ice today, making her its controller, its messenger, and ice in human form. But she had no idea that she would actually be frozen. She growled, but the ice muffled her voice. "Hana, sweetie, don't look at me like that," Tanya said, glaring at her student after hearing the faint sound. "Feel the ice. Take a listen to its melody. Feel it move. Feel it melt and solidify. Don't interrupt me while I'm reading until you understand it," she said, turning away from her charge. Hana closed her eyes and relaxed, forced to listen lest she be trapped in the ice forever. She heard a strange sound slowly, and then she quickly realized that Tanya was correct about ice having a tune. She let go like the water, realizing that it was water running through the ice. Hana pulled up her hands slowly, discovering that she could somehow, and Tanya put down her book as she heard the soft, gentle tune of the ice cracking, moving, settling, and water running inside and outside of it. After touching the ice's shell and allowing the coolness to permeate her pores and cells, Hana felt her body glow without realizing her hair had turned white. She grinned and pushed on the ice's shell, breaking it and causing her hair to turn brown again. "Wonderful, young one, wonderful." Tanya calmly stood up and walked to her charge's side, helping her up. The compliment made Hana smile, and she said, "Thank you." "Let's go have some tea," Tanya said, nodding. "Now that you've mastered the ice, your training will be more intense tomorrow." Hana shivered for the first time since she had developed an immunity to cold. It was quiet back in Whirlpool Village. People had just heard about the planned invasion by their cage's child. Ninjas were already pleading for assistance. They were disgusted after learning what they had done to their cage's son. Then there was a shout of joy and rage, and the cage's desk flew through the window, almost hitting some of the civilians. They all turned to face the cage tower, shrugged, and went back to work. Right now, Kushina was both insane and too happy. The reason? Danzo was nowhere to be found. Disappeared and was totally unnoticed. This had just been confirmed by her spies in Konoha. She wanted to seize the closest Anbu and tear his head off because she was so furious with him. However, she was also relieved that the idiot had been removed from the council at last. She also let out another shriek of rage because she was frustrated that she probably wouldn't have the opportunity to destroy him herself. She began to laugh to herself, and the Anbu in the room recoiled. They were right to be afraid. She was insane, but she was the Red Death, after all. Not to mention an Uzumaki who was a female person who inherited the Uzumaki rage. Yes, she was a dangerous person. Fu ran farther and farther away from Takigakure, clutching her bleeding side and arm. She had had enough of that place. They did not treat her any less than mud. She would have given up or gone crazy long ago if it weren't for Nanabi and the 7 tails that were sealed inside of her after all these years. Nanabi had kept her alive, and she wasn't going to let the Biju's efforts be in vain. She was ecstatic about the opportunity to finally escape when she was given a mission close to the wave's edge. However, her owner, Cage, had touched the seals on her neck with his fingers, indicating that it would be foolish for her to flee. The Cage could kill her with a single snap of his fingers if he so desired. However, she was too valuable to the village and too strong to be killed. She would simply experience pain, so much pain. She defied the other Taki ninja and ran away when she got to the border, but not before getting hurt herself. which Nanabe was finding hard to recover from due to her frequent movements. She was aware that she couldn't stop. It was necessary for her to move far enough away from the activation that the seal would be weaker when the other shinobi returned. Despite her body's protests, she forced her numb legs to continue running at top speed while cursing under her breath because her vision was already beginning to show black spots from blood loss. In her soft voice, Nanabe whispered, "Keep pushing yourself, Fu-chan. Just a little further and you'll be relatively safe." A tiny smile appeared on her lips. She could practically taste freedom on the horizon. Abruptly, her body ached. She bit her bottom lip, causing blood to drip from it as she screamed as the seal appeared in a fiery red hue. The hand holding her wounds leapt up and gripped her neck. Her screams faded to whispers, and tears spontaneously poured from her eyes. To make it less likely that they would find her, she had to be quiet. As she staggered towards an opening in the dense woods, the pain intensifying from what she believed to be her cage's frustration and rage, she inwardly gasped, Nabi, can't you do something?" Nanabe muttered her silent apology, "Fu-chan." With a hint of rage in her voice. She was upset with the humans who dared to call her Fu-chan, her baby a monster, rather than her vessel. "Sweetie, there's a chakra signature up ahead." Fu's eyes went wide with fear. And ninja from Taki. Right here? An internal tug of desperation tugged at her when they caught her. What would they do to her? She had gone for a walk once, but the villagers believed she was trying to flee, so they couldn't heal her for days. She choked on her breath as she stumbled more quickly this time. She had really tried to get away, and she didn't want to know what they would do. "No, it's not a shinobi from Takigakure. I've never felt such a signature before. Head towards it, sweetie. It's our only chance." She prayed to any god, deity, or omnipotent being who even bothered to listen to a Jinchuriki that the signature belonged to someone helpful, kind, and strong as she went toward it, nodding as more tears of agony and fear streamed down her tanned cheeks. The finalities of consciousness left her as she stepped into a clearing. "Don't worry, I'll protect you. Rest," she thought as she fell toward the ground. Thanks, Nanabe." The last thing she heard was, "Wah," Tazuna said. "So, let me get this straight," while glancing down at the girl with the green hair who was lying in one of the guest beds. "You were just minding your own business when out of nowhere this girl appears and collapses." Naruto gave a nod. "Yep, that's the gist of it." The drunk sighed, shook his head, and made his way to the door. "You and your little adventures will kill me one day." As he studied the girl, Naruto complained, "Not before the alcohol." Using professional eyes to examine the cuts, bruises, and badly healed fractures, Minato said, "It looks like she's had it rough." He noticed a sequence on her belly as he pulled up her shirt to check for additional injuries. "She's a Jinchuriki too." Naruto squinted his eyes, being well aware of how people perceived and handled Jinchuriki. He hissed, "Her village probably did this. I'm willing to bet she was running away from them." The Yondaime sighed and nodded. "I'm no expert with the human body like Haku is, but judging from the scars she's been treated just as bad as you." That caused Naruto to wince. Wounds some didn't heal even with Kyuubi's chakra. Even if you were a Jinchuriki, the worst of the worst, those that would likely kill you 10 times over, would never recover. "Hey dad. Could you go find Haku for me?" The Yondaime got up and went out the door after saying, "Sure." "Hey, Kyuubi." "What? I've got a Jinchuriki here. Can you tell me who she holds?" "A Jinchuriki? I go to sleep for 5 minutes and while I'm dreaming you find yourself a Jinchuriki? Sometimes I wonder if more than just Kami, Tozi, and Yami like you. There's Jashin, he treats me like a little brother, and there's..." In frustration, Kyuubi rolled his eyes and said, "It was a rhetorical question, Kit, like an Inuzuka taming a dog. The child could tame gods. You want me to identify the demon, correct?" Naruto gave a nod. "Yeah." There was a brief pause before Kyuubi burst out laughing. "Nanabe? You found Nanabe's vessel? Didn't think I'd be seeing her anytime soon?" Gazing at the girl's aching face, Naruto wondered, "Nanabe, that's the Seven Tails, correct? Why is she hurting so much?" He pondered. "Nanabe is the delinquent of the Biju. She's a caring creature. She is despite her power. She's sweet, kind, peace-loving." He summarized, "So, the complete opposite of you." "Correct. She always gets on my nerves. Don't do this. That's not nice. Have some compassion. Don't insult the humans. Don't this, don't that. Blah, blah, blah." I can't tell you how nice it is not hearing her and her talk about kindness, though she's powerful and can be quite scary and sadistic when she's angry. Well, let's just say not seeing her is a perk about being sealed inside someone. Naruto gave an eye roll instead of the Kyuubi. He would have liked to have the Nanabe sealed inside of him. He could do without Kyuubi's passion for blood, death, and massacres, even though the two had grown close over the years. "You don't seem to like her very well." "I hate her," Not as much as I hate the Yondaime though Ichibi, on the other hand, hates her with all his demonic being. He's worse than me when it comes to blood and slaughter, and she always gets on his case, and, because she's stronger than him, he can't do anything about it. It's sometimes fun to watch too, Kyuubi said, drifting off into a recollection. Naruto grinned at the final remark. It would be fascinating to watch that psycho battle a demonic saint. He returned his attention to the girl in pain. It wasn't her wounds, which Nanabe had almost healed. Perhaps it was an internal issue. No, Nanabe would have started by healing those. Naruto, please think he exerted himself as a Jinchuriki. What were some of the things that Sarutobi kept from happening to him? Being made into a mindless weapon, being killed, being imprisoned, being made into a baby machine, having his descendants join Root, having a loyalty seal put on him, and getting a weight. Naruto glared at her crimson neck and allowed chakra to seep into it. Chakra encircled the girl and stabbed itself through his hand as a warning. Just as a seal appeared, he stayed motionless and composed, still glaring at the seal on the girl's neck. Don't worry, Nanabe, I won't hurt her, she's like me. At that point, the chakra became calmer but remained there. It withdrew from his bleeding hand, which Kyuubi promptly tended to as it came into full view. His growl became even more ferocious as he pushed more chakra into her neck. Fucking sons of bitches. He turned to see a startled Haku and a perplexed Minato at the door. After hearing a squeak, Naruto's glare didn't diminish and gestured for Minato to come look. The man scowled and cursed as well when he saw what had infuriated Naruto. What's wrong? Inquired Haku. The Yondaime growled. We got ourselves a loyalty seal. She inquired, what is a loyalty seal exactly? A loyalty seal is just that. A seal that ensures the loyalty of one to another. The Sandaime kept one from being placed on me so I couldn't go against the village. Naruto spoke softly. If you disobey an order, fail one, or simply displease them, they can force you through indescribable pain, so you won't do it again. If it's activated for a long period of time, you will die, and it's not a peaceful death. Now that Haku understood why she had been brought here, it was her turn to curse. As soon as the chakra began to intensify, she began to examine the girl. Haku promised, without even pausing her examination, I won't hurt her. As he ran his fingers over the intricate pattern, Naruto muttered, do you know of a way to disable it? I may be a seal master, but I've never seen a loyalty seal like this one. Minato gave a headshake. Neither have I. I'd have to study it. With a nod, Naruto produced a scroll and hastily sketched a precise image of the seal on the paper before folding it up. Haku, please keep her alive as long as you can. She didn't look at them as she said, I'll do my best, but I've never worked with a seal that's supposed to kill her. Her soft voice effectively conveyed the message to hurry. I can't promise anything, but I can at least prolong her life by a few hours, I think. Naruto turned to his father outside the room. Minato arched an eyebrow at his son's tone of voice and said, go visit mom. This was an order, not a suggestion. As much as I'd love to, we have a dying girl in there. I can take care of it. I'm on par with you right now in seals. I can't visit with you because I'm a Jinchuriki too. I feel a connection to my fellow vessels and can't abandon them. Minato sighed after gazing into Naruto's stony eyes. It appeared he had no choice. All right, but if you need any help, send a dragon. Of course, Naruto said with a smile, but, before you go, I have a present for you and mom. What kind of present? He asked, his eyes gleaming like a child's. Damn it. Naruto snarled as he threw the scroll to the floor. He had begun studying the seal 4 hours prior, and he had made no progress at all. Whoever created this was either a seal genius or just happened to stumble upon it. Kyuubi. What? Screaming like this will make me go deaf, Kit. With his gaze fixed on the seal on the ground for the fox demon to see, Naruto questioned, do you know how to deactivate this seal? A seal? Kit, what in the nine hells made you think that I know about seals? You're sealed. Your logic has left me speechless. Shut it, Kyuubi. Do you know how to or not? The Biju King sighed. I have no knowledge of seals. I may have been sealed a few times, but I find seals in general a waste of my time. You know, if you knew about seals, you might have been able to avoid being sealed numerous times. Get back to your studying. That girl doesn't have much time left. The young Rukage refrained from rolling his eyes at Kyuubi's digression. The demon was correct. He knew the girl should have passed away by now, and Haku was the only reason she survived. His gaze returned to the seal, and he traced the pattern with his finger. It was true that he could heal death after all. He had revived Zabuza and Haku, but this type of death is distinct. The causes were not natural. He had been in a coma for days the last time he had attempted to recover in a similar circumstance. He was aware that he could simply let her die and bring her back to life later, but he would be damned if he did so. He wasn't cold-hearted. He wouldn't allow her to go through this suffering and die only to be brought back to life. He was missing a single, crucial component that would have allowed him to piece everything together and save the girl from certain death. He frowned at the seal design. wrinkled his nose, and tapped his finger impatiently and irritably on the table. But when he noticed something that made him pale, he stopped glaring. They didn't. With her brain malfunctioning, Kushina gaped at the man behind her desk. It appeared that he had passed away. He is no longer there. No body was ever discovered, or it couldn't be her husband, her love, or her sunshine. It must have been a cruel trick. Minato cannot be the culprit. Ready to call her Anbu if necessary, she drew a kunai and positioned herself. The man whined with a dog pout. Is that really necessary, Kushi-chan? She asked. His lip protruded, and his eyes widened and became teary. Only his son could match his skill at this. Kushina winced. There was only one man she knew who could pull off such a face. She had to be certain, though. What did you do when I went on a 2-month mission for the leaf? Well, you see, rewind. At the Konoha front gate, Minato Namikaze asked his wife, extra food? 5 Anbu and Jiraiya stood behind the two, laughing at their antics. Kushina said, yes, and added another checkmark. Clothes? Yes. First aid? Yes. Underwear? A red-faced Kushina yelled, for Kami's sake, Minato. While the 6 behind them laughed, perversely, Jiraiya, I'm fine. But, Kushina, I'll miss you. She turned away from her ostentatious husband and crossed her arms. You're the one who assigned me this mission. Minato, now, let me leave. But, Minato. Nodding, the Yondaime sighed and pouted. Kushina stood up straight, leaned down, and kissed Minato's forehead. She gave him a wink when he looked up at her. She and her team disappeared as soon as she said, be back in 2 months, Minakoi. Minato gazed at the vacant space in front of him before he broke down in tears. I changed my mind, Kushina. I'll assign the mission to someone else. I miss you, he wept. And Jiraiya was at a loss for words. He was rolling around in laughter on the ground too. The end of the flashback. The pitiful man before her made Kushina perspire. He was pouting and tapping his fingers together. She let her eyes well up with tears of happiness as she sighed and shook her head. She walked slowly up to the man, her arms wide open, and they embraced right away. Minato then put her face in his hands and kissed her. If the Anbu hadn't made the decision to talk to their cage, they would have remained in that position forever, reunited and safe in each other's arms. One stepped in and started to speak, but stopped when 2 people glared at him and simply parted ways. His eyes widened upon seeing the Yondaime, and he took the hint, pushing the others out and closing the door behind him. He glanced at Kushina and sighed. He pouted. The moment was ruined. She looked at him with fresh sorrow and slapped the back of his head playfully. Her words trailed off as she bit her bottom lip and looked at her husband. How are you still alive? I thought, she said. The Shinigami decided she didn't want my soul. I guess she put me to sleep, and the next thing I know I'm waking up in a hospital with Naruto next to me. I never died. She smiled slightly at the man and reached out to touch his chest as though to confirm that it was not a dream. At least you didn't lie to me, like Konoha. Yes, was his somber response. He sighed and shook his head, unwilling to continue, saying, they have fallen quite low, haven't they? I'm so disappointed. What happened to the people filled with the will of fire and looking, underneath, like they're so proud of? We, and my village, are going to help Naruto, Mina-kun, she said. Whose side are you taking? With a charming smile that made women of all ages swoon before Naruto was even born, he said, Kushi-chan, I'm hurt. Do you think I'd take any wide besides my beautiful wife and child's? She smiled back and gave him another hug. Then let's go. I still have to ready my ninja and... He said, wait, and she gave him a weird look before a squeak sounded throughout the room. The squeak came from his direction, and he blushed before scratching the top of his head. Naruto gave me a present. You have one as well. Her gaze brightened. A gift from her infant. Well, where is it? The Yondaime took something from his pocket between his handcuffs and extended it to her own outstretched hands. Her eyes glowed as his fingers opened. A red baby dragon with big eyes and a tilted head was placed in her hands and was staring at her. This, he pointed to the blue baby dragon that had emerged from his hair and said, I have one too. We raise them and train them and they'll always be able to find Naruto. I hear they're excellent fighters and messengers. Kushina said, hello little one, to the dragon in a whisper. What's your name? She smiled as the tiny mouth opened and a joyful squeak emerged. I'll call you Squeaky. When Minato's emerald eyes met his, she snorted, but covered it up with a cough. The baby dragon expressed its disapproval by wrinkles on its nose. No? Well, Luna? The baby dragon joyfully pranced after spreading its wings. Oh Minato, isn't this just a lovely gift? He raised an eyebrow in a suggestive manner and said, wonderful, now back to business. We don't have to go right away, do we? Grinning, she put the baby dragon in her bag, took Minato by the wrist, and began pulling him from the office. When their cage slammed the door open, the Anbu jumped. Lady. She yelled, "I'm taking the rest of the day off," and hurried away, pulling the blonde man along. The poor Anbu could only look on in confusion as they passed. Haku scowled at the girl's neck seal. It always returned stronger than before. No matter what she did to combat it, she was getting really annoyed about it. In all honesty, she wanted to simply stab the girl in the neck until the cursed item was removed from this planet. However, this would result in the girl's death, which Naruto would not approve of. Well, life was full of options. Fucking idiots. This whole damn world is full of fucking idiots. The demonic scream that reverberated throughout the house and the sudden explosion of Kyuubi's and Naruto's chakras made her jump when the door slammed open and she saw a very angry Naruto with red eyes. She squeaked, then she whimpered, without meaning to. Naruto needed to hear the whimper in order to relax. His eyes turned back to blue as he inhaled deeply and balanced his chakra, but he was unable to stop the hateful expression from molting onto his face. What's wrong? The damn seal is the problem. Don't tell me you couldn't solve it. He growled and slammed his fist against the wall, causing it to crack, saying, "Don't need to. I already know that these people were idiots just by looking at it. They foolishly combined two seals blindly thinking it would make it stronger. I'm surprised the girl's even alive still." Haku's gaze expanded. "You mean, yeah, even without activating the seal, it was killing her, and they probably didn't even care. If they knew, they probably didn't even check to see if it was safe. Do you see why I hate this world so much?" Haku's eyes narrowed. "Can you do anything about it?" He got up and cracked his knuckle, saying, "I can. But I must warn you that I have no idea what I'm doing and will probably end up in a coma." "Just," she said, taking his hand, "don't do anything stupid." He smiled and squeezed her reassuringly. He knelt in front of the bed and said, "Understood, Nanabi. I'm gonna need your help though. I have been given the ability to heal any injury. I don't want to mess this up. Your vessel will be in pain. I need you to keep it at a minimum. My understanding of the seal is shaky at best, so I don't understand entirely how this will end up. Do you understand?" A gentle yellowish orange began to cover the girl's body. As his response, he turned to Haku and made a sound barrier in a flash. With stubbornness, she declared, "I'm staying here. You already said that you'll probably collapse." His hands began to glow a gentle blue-white, and he turned back to the girl. "Then let's get started." To help Nanabi have more freedom to assist her vessel, he laid one on the girl's stomach seal and wrapped the other around her neck in a firm but gentle grip, and the girl began to flail and scream without conscious thought. Just as he had anticipated, still unable to remove his hand from her neck, he grunted as a fist struck his chest. "Nanabi, keep her still." Almost immediately the thrashing stopped in order to keep the girl's hands pinned above her head. Haku hurried over regretfully. The yelling continued. It was agony for Naruto's sensitive ears. They would be ringing for days, he was certain. He shifted his gaze to the seal and gave it a quick glance. He began sinking his fingers in. After slightly shifting his hand, Haku wasn't prepared for the fingers to pierce the girl's skin without causing any harm. He had anticipated blood, and tearing the environment around his tanned fingers actually appeared to ripple, much like when you toss a pebble into a pond. Even though it appeared to be painless, Nanabi's chakra rose in an attempt to keep her vessel calm as the girl's screams intensified tenfold and the great flailing resumed. Naruto was able to lessen it somewhat by shifting his attention to the girl's stomach, but he still wished Nanabi could just put an end to it completely. Naruto whispered, already feeling a little lightheaded, "Hold her down, Haku." Seals were among the most effective ninja techniques, although many people are unaware of this. Additionally, if someone makes even the slightest mistake with one, it will not only be dangerous but also drain the healer and remover of a lot of energy. Where is it now? He thought even if a seal was flawless, it was still like playing with a house of cards. If you give it a slight bump, everything will fall into place. The girl would most likely die in this situation, and who knows what else might happen. When his fingers found the perfect spot, he smiled. "I found it." Grunting at the seal's efforts to cling, he wrapped his fingers around it and withdrew it in a burst of white light as her husband removed it from the girl like tape on a wall. Haku watched in awe and suppressed the girl's cries. After floating in the air for a while, the seal eventually vanished. Gasping for air, Naruto fell to his hands and knees. Haku was at his side instantly. "You'd think an ability from Kami would make you invincible." He inhaled. "Nothing's invincible, Haku. To heal something I must have an understanding of it. At least I didn't understand that seal very well, so it's natural this will happen. I'm going to sleep now, okay?" He leaned against her shoulder and closed his eyes while she nodded, "Good night." Naruto closed his eyes, and the girl's glow returned. A flash of intense chakra and a dazzling light made Haku close her eyes and turn her head away. She opened her eyes and gasped as it got dark behind them. There was a beautiful woman before her. Her bangs were pulled back into a braid that ran down the middle of her long, golden hair, which was tipped with orange. She was dressed in a tight-fitting blue kimono adorned with golden beetle patterns. Her soft green eyes grinned down at the unconscious girl as she crawled to her side. Haku asked, reaching for senbon needles as a precaution. Who are you? The woman gave her a kind smile. I'm Nanabi. Fu looked down at Naruto, examining every muscle and nook. She simply couldn't comprehend his saving her in the eyes of others. She was a Jinchuriki, a monster. She wanted to kill them all because no one cared about her well-being or even bothered to look at her without giving her glares of all kinds that said they were superior to her. Her first instinct was to attack the raven-haired girl who was holding an unconscious blonde. When she woke up, a stunning woman who was giving her a disapproving look stopped her from killing the girl, and boy, the woman spoke in a tone she was all too familiar with before she could spit out a "Let go, Nanabi." She initially doubted that the woman in front of her was Nanabi, her demon mother figure in human form, but she was proven wrong twice when she used her chakra to reveal a memory that only the demon inside of her would have known. She was left speechless and asked how it had happened. Nanabi wasn't certain either. Something had happened to the seal on her stomach when the boy, Naruto, had opened the loyalty seal, which caused her eyes to widen before she turned to look at the blonde boy. Only by a string was she still bound to Fu. As soon as Fu pulled up her shirt, she saw that, in fact, 90% of the seal was gone. Naruto wanted to stay for a while after being moved to the bed where she had been unconscious. The woman, Haku, was reportedly his wife, and after her brief outburst of attacking them, she was hesitant to be left alone with her husband. She reassured her that it wasn't her ninja style to attack her savior. For some reason, that seemed to ignite something inside Haku, and she nodded grudgingly before leaving with Nanabi, who had given her a very meaningful look before vanishing behind the door. And here she was, looking directly at the lifesaver. Because of everything that people had done to her, she harbored a deep and abiding hatred for them, and they reciprocated her hatred. They hated her first, so she didn't feel bad about it, and when she felt kinship with the blonde, it completely perplexed her. It was beyond her comprehension. He was a person, a deplorable, repulsive, power-hungry, perverted, shallow being who would sooner use her as a tool for his own evil plans. Was he planning to do that? Taking advantage of her gratitude to make her do something? Her orange eyes glowed with a yellow hatred as she growled at the idea. Then she relaxed. Unlike a mere human, she would not lose her temper and betray a promise. He wouldn't wake up anytime soon. She was told. Haku said he saved her even though he was aware of the consequences and that he would be unconscious for some time. She felt warm inside, which was unusual for someone like her. She gazed at his serene countenance. His chest slowly rose and fell with his steady breath, and his hard, handsome features were calm and relaxed. They were big and calloused from hard training. With one hand resting on his side and the other on his chest, she extended her hand to feel, then recoiled at her motion and withdrew it. His head resembled the sun beaming down on its moving planet as his spiky, sun-bleached hair cascaded across the pillow and fell over his face. His tanned skin gleamed in the low light, giving his whisker scars a wild, exotic appearance. To see if he would purr like a cat, she wanted to touch and stroke them. His eyes were covered by closed eyelids. His eyelashes were long and dark, which also helped to conceal his eyes. She was curious about their color. Such a person would undoubtedly have distinctive eyes, ones that would captivate her. She punched her forehead and shook her head. What was she contemplating? Was she really just having romantic fantasies about a stranger? She must be out of it, yet there was no other explanation. She would never consider a human being in that way. He was just another human, and she detested people, right? She disliked having doubts. Doubt was a weakness, which is why she detested it. After the village and its residents turned her last weaknesses against her, she vowed she would never have another. He had to be removed if he was becoming a weakness, but she made a promise. Everything was so annoying. She rubbed her thumb over Naruto's surprisingly soft skin, letting her fingers slide around his rough hand as she sighed and gave in to her instincts. It was rough, to be sure, but it was also gentle. Did a man's hand look like this? They all pushed her away because she had never held one before. Her first crush came back to her. She couldn't even recall the name of the boy he was. He had a disgusted expression on his face when she confessed. For months after he spat those words, they continued to pierce her deeply. Are you kidding me? I'd never touch such a disgusting creature, let alone go out with you. Stay away from me, demon. She vowed never to fall in love again after experiencing the same thing with her other crush. When you were a Jinchuriki, it always ended violently and painfully. Still, why was she beginning to feel the same way about him that she did about those other boys? Because he had saved her? She was unable to comprehend why her emotions and body were acting in this way. A tear began to well up in her eyes. The pain of unrequited love was equal to that of receiving glares. She couldn't and would never fall in love again. She reluctantly released Naruto's hand, only to be met by a pair of crystalline blue eyes that were fixed on her. Her heart almost stopped. Urza's normally stern eyes cracked into worry as she asked, "How is he?" She was afraid because Naruto had never before shown such weakness to anyone in Fury. Haku gave the redhead a smile. Fine, exhausted, but he's fine. Urza appeared to relax. Who's the girl? She inquired, giving Nanabi a wary look. She can't sense magic or chakra, and she's never seen anyone else enter. The woman with the multicolored hair gave her a soft smile. I'm Nanabi, it's a pleasure to meet you. Nanabi is in the 7 tails that Naruto's told me about? Yes. She was about to equip when Haku put a hand on her shoulder as her eyes narrowed. It's alright, she's not going to harm us. If she was, she'd have done it already since Naruto's unconscious. Where's Minato-sama? Whirlpool. Bahamut-sama. Out, Zabuza. Well, lost once more, taking a walk in the woods. She complained to herself how come that man was never able to read a map. Urza nodded, deciphering what she had said. She looked her over from head to toe before turning back to the demon. She wasn't duped. Even though she appeared innocuous in this form, the power that she could normally hardly sense was overwhelming her. Even when it was suppressed, she would remain vigilant regardless of what Haku said. From what I've understood, you Biju have been sealed away. Why are you out of your seal? I may be out, but I'm still connected to Fu-chan in a small way. I'm not really sure what happened, but when the loyalty seal was removed, I found myself being forced out of the seal. We'd have to ask Naruto-sama when he wakes up. Haku's forehead wrinkled at the suffix, sama. She could see why some people would call him that, but not from a Biju with her rank and influence. She recalled his efforts to save Fu with a loving smile and half-lidded eyes, saying simply, he saved the life of my vessel. He has my respect. He's a Jinchuriki too, right? Haku and Urza both nodded. Her soft smile expanded. Then that's another reason why he has my respect. Being a Jinchuriki is not easy for anyone. You're different than the other Biju. She reddened slightly. I'm known as a delinquent in the demon world. Demons that act like me usually get bullied, but because of my power I've avoided it. She raised her eyebrows. So, which one does he hold? Kyuubi. Nanabi's gaze expanded. Q-kun? She asked, then laughed. I should have guessed from the whisker scars. So why did she attack me and Naruto? The bright face of the demon became very sad. As you know, Jinchuriki aren't treated the best in this world. Because of this, Jinchuriki don't trust easily and some despise humans as a whole. My dear Fu applies for both of those. When she sees a human she doesn't know, her first thought is to attack. Trust is very important for Naruto. I had the feeling he never really did trust us until after he revealed he was a Jinchuriki to the village. Urza cracked a grin. I still remember the face he made when we accepted him. Acceptance. Something Jinchuriki crave and can usually never have, Nanabi murmured. It's a sad thing really. As Haku put it, alright, I'm confused. How on earth did you end up being sealed? You seem like you won't harem a fly? Nanabi gave a shrug. She sat elegantly on the couch behind her and asked, why else? As time went on, the other major ninja villages started to gain Jinchuriki. Takigakure feared that they'd be overlooked and wanted a weapon of their own. They tracked me down and sealed me into Fu-chan. I've been watching over her ever since. I see her as my little sister that needs protection and comfort. She received a smile from both girls. Some Biju appear to develop an emotional bond with their vessels. Nanabi views Fu as her sister, while Kyuubi views Naruto as his son. They began to question whether it was just the two or how many other Biju joined their vessels. So, Nanabi said, grinning broadly, when are you due? Owing. The girls blushed. After a moment of realization, Urza stammered, instinctively assuming the defensive against her pride stance she always takes when she feels ashamed. How'd you know? She asked. Don't underestimate a demon. I can feel the chakra swirling around your uteruses and a new chakra signature forming in them as well. I could tell you were pregnant the moment I saw you. She was beaming. So, when are you two due and how was it? The girl's redness intensified, and then there was a scream that filled the house. After her brief vocal demonstration, Fu pinned herself against the wall and watched drearily as Naruto took his hands away from his ringing ears while wearing a pained expression. She was always aware of how loud she was, and she was proud of herself for being able to still use her banshee shriek, which always took her enemies by surprise and briefly lifted them out of their funk. She blushed as he spoke in a naturally raspy voice and laughed a little. Well, you certainly have a pair of lungs on you. I'm Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze, by the way. After stopping her blushing, she responded politely in her mind. She was thinking, Fu, apart from Kushina Uzumaki and Minato Namikaze, where else has she heard the name Uzumaki Namikaze before? Wait? You're the Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi? He smiled, the one and the same. She therefore felt a connection to him for that reason. Like her, he was a Jinchuriki. Their existence was cursed in every word that was spoken to them. They were hated, glared at, and spat at. She had never met another Jinchuriki before, and if she had remained in Taki, she would have been told to bring him back in order to strengthen the village's position of loyalty. Furthermore, why didn't he mention that she was holding his hand? In any case, she was relieved that he wasn't. Before she had a chance to think, she blurted out, "Why'd you help me?" She understood subconsciously that he needed to have known she was a Jinchuriki but not previously in order to heal her and remove the seal. Why would a Jinchuriki assist a regular person? He blinked. "You were hurt, do I need another reason?" The words hardly registered in her mind as she gazed at him, and then the door slammed open, revealing Urza, Haku, and Nanabi. Urza exclaimed, "Naruto," before running to embrace him. "Are you harmed?" After carefully removing himself from her iron chest, he stood up and performed a full 360 to demonstrate that he was injury-free, as he had promised. "Urza, I'm fine. See?" Before turning to face the source of the loud cries, Urza and Haku relaxed. "Are you alright?" asked Haku. Still not understanding why a human would care about her, she raised an eyebrow before giving a small nod. Nanabi approached her and put a gentle hand on her shoulder to reassure her that she could rely on these three. She would not, of course, since Naruto was similar to her, she could. But the other two were still regular people. Gaining her trust wouldn't be simple. Haku asked, "You woke up sooner than you said you would." Sheepishly, he rubbed the back of his neck. "Yeah, well, I thought it would be longer. I'm actually quite surprised I'm awake so soon. Maybe my body just got used to it perhaps." After giving him a fierce look, Haku shook her head. Asking Naruto questions never worked out the way one had hoped. She looked at Fu and Nanabi. "Would you like some tea? Tsunami had dragged Tazuna to the market, so I'm afraid there's little here right now." Nanabi said, "Tea would be lovely." Fu nodded. "What about Inari?" "He's at school." Naruto. His thoughtless question caused the blonde to flush. "Right, I knew that." She rolled her eyes and left the room, saying, "I know you did. I'll be right back." Nanabi said, "She's a nice girl." Naruto gave a nod. "She's an amazing woman. I'll go help her." Urza exclaimed, "Make tea?" "Yes, you can't make tea?" "But what could I possibly have as an ulterior motive?" He smiled. Urza laughed as he hurried out of the room, asking naively. Nanabi grinned and started to say something, but was taken aback when Fu, who appeared both perplexed and irate, beat her. "Why? Why do you love and care for him? He has a demon sealed inside of him. He is a Jinchuriki. He is not typical. Why does he reciprocate these feelings?" She hated being so vulnerable, and her voice sounded shaky and pitiful, much to her ire. "You're a normal human, and normal humans abuse us. I don't understand." Urza gave her a very serious look and said, "As an answer, I can ask you a question of my own. Why do you treat all regular people like a plague and despise them? They mistreat us. They treat us like property and the lowest of the low, calling us demons. One gave birth to you." This declaration caused Fu's eyes to widen. That was true, but... "Is your mother something you hate?" "No, until she was killed while attempting to shield her daughter from another beating. Her mother was the only person who supported her over the years. Just as not all demons are the same, not all humans are either." Knowing that someone would accept him, Naruto reached out to others. He wouldn't be recognized as the Kyuubi by anyone. He wouldn't be hated by anyone. It was that belief that brought us all together. He has earned it and discovered people who accept him for who he is. He is more than just the Red Death Kushina's son. He is more than just the Yellow Flash Minato Namikaze's son. Not all of him is the Kyuubi Jinchuriki. He is Ryukage of Ryugakure, Naruto. And the most compassionate person you will ever encounter. Your personality and beliefs define you as a monster, not your Jinchuriki status." Urza turned away and walked out of the room, while Nanabi turned to face Fu, who was looking shocked and remained silent, understanding that the green-haired girl needed some alone time. The redhead had made a point, but Fu was having trouble understanding it. She sighed and leaned against the wall, knowing she needed to do some thinking. Minato said sharply, "No, Kushina. However, I'd like to visit my child." Before the Chunin exams began, Kushina had been nagging her husband to take her to see her son, but he had turned her down, which shocked her because Minato never turned her down unless there was a valid reason. She simply didn't see the harm in seeing her son, whom she had assumed was dead. "We are unable to. He's occupied with planning Konoha's demise because he is simply too busy. He must prepare his allies without sacrificing his training schedule and form alliances for when Ryukage has moved here." Pouting, she said, "But you'll see him when we and the other cages arrive for the preliminary operations," he said, placing his hands on her shoulders. "Be patient, Kushi-chan. It will happen soon." She gave him a fierce look, sighed, and gave in, saying, "It won't be long, right?" "Nope," he said, shaking his head. "Soon, you'll be able to give him the back-breaking hug you used to give me when you were happy." While experiencing phantom pains down his spine, he remarked, "Until then, you can always write to him." She looked at Luna, who was sleeping next to Minato's baby dragon Ko, and nodded, saying, "All right. So they'll still deliver letters even though they're this small?" Yep, well, that's what Naruto said, and for Kami's sake, they're dragons, he said, nodding. They're more resilient than messenger birds or toads. She nodded in silence and then flashed a brilliant smile, saying, I'm going to write him right now. As she shrugged off his hands and sprinted in the direction of the closest brush and blank scroll, she exclaimed. Minato, who had never known how much he missed seeing his wife, grinned after her and laughed at her antics. He would have to thank Naruto later for bringing him here and waking him up. With a yawn, Naruto returned to his room to find Fu still there, sitting dazedly on his bed, and he raised an eyebrow before approaching her, standing a few feet away and looking curious. What's wrong, Fu? He inquired. She thinned her lips, but she didn't move. She still didn't understand it. Whenever she was by herself with him, she felt like blushing and 1,000 butterflies appeared in her stomach, which Urza's words only made worse. Are you married to Urza? Squatting in front of her, he grinned and said, Yep, so is Haku. She allowed a look of surprise to appear on her face. They're both? Yes, he said, nodding. In addition, 6 other people are also my fiancés. Her jaw dropped. You're not the only one who was surprised, he said, laughing at her response. Nevertheless, a lucky bastard occasionally follows when I tell a man about his gaping. Why? You see, my parents left me a scroll before I discovered they were still alive. In order for me to be the final Namikaze, my father was supposed to have died sealing the Kyuubi into me. I would have been the last of the Uzumakis because my mother was also supposed to have died. In case you were unaware, the Clan Restoration Act, or CRA, applied to me because I was responsible for rebuilding the clans. It's my job because my parents are too old to have children anymore. Naturally, I would only wed the person I truly love. I detest men who simply pick attractive women off the street to sat their twisted cravings. You have a harem, then? I hate the word harem. The phrase, big family, appeals to me. She gave him a close look. He was strong, kind, understanding, a Jinchuriki. In a way, he was perfect, and it made her heart skip a beat. Could I be? She thought. There's only one way to find out. Then she did something that even shocked her. She leapt up and gave him a kiss, unaware of what was happening. His eyes widened for a moment before he closed them and kissed her back, wrapping his arms around her back and inserting his right hand into her hair to draw her closer and intensify the kiss. In a sense, Fu felt fulfilled. She couldn't explain the joy she was experiencing or the reason behind her actions. She had only recently met him, for heaven's sake, but she couldn't help herself. Panting, they withdrew from one another, and Naruto gave her a goofy smile before saying, well, that certainly was forward. She turned red. Haku and Urza smiled at one another outside the door. Well, it appears that we have someone else with whom to share him. That it's still growing astounds me. Well, you know the saying, Haku shrugged. The greater the better. Naruto was pleased. Why do you ask? It was time for 2 things. His brides to return. Bahamut had just gone to get them, and it was almost time to pick up his Chunin exam participants. He began to laugh. Oh, this was going to be fun, he recalled telling his father. The 2 of them laughed so evilly that Inari and Tazuna ran out of the room as soon as they walked in. He snickered at the thought. Is it time? Urza inquired while she still wore the medal on her chest. It wound around her stomach, allowing a fishnet shirt to lay over a red one to ensure the baby and Urza were more comfortable. Naruto looked at her, who had developed a bulge on her stomach over the past week and a half, indicating that the child inside was growing nice and strong. He patted the seat next to him and replied, soon. His bride came over and curled up beside him, and he noticed that his hand was lovingly circling her bulge. She smiled and rested her head on her husband's shoulder. I wonder who he or she will look like, he said. Maybe your hair and my eyes. Touching her stomach, she thought, what about names? If it was a boy, I reasoned, Ryu would mean dragon in this world. Keita means little dragon. If it's a girl, I believe that's correct. I like that, she said with a smile. Ideal for you, the dragon prince, and everything. His smile returned, and he said, that's why I thought of it. One of the voices at the door said, simple yet perfect. When the 2 turned to face Haku, she curled up in Naruto's free arm. Where's Zabuza? Follow the booms, she said, opening and closing her mouth as a loud bang reverberated through the forest. Lost once more? Rolling her eyes, Haku said, oh, he doesn't get lost. Naruto laughed and said, I suppose not. I take it that the forest simply throws off his sense of direction? You know him so well, remember what I said to you? She gave a nod. You're taking me with you to the other world you now live in, because not only am I with child but I'm supposed to be dead. Urza moved to put her back more comfortably against the back of the couch and remarked, if Konoha sees a supposedly dead person, Not only would it probably give us away but make them even more suspicious of us. Urza is staying to maintain appearances, and a disguised Zabuza will assist with the invasion with the 4 you selected to take part in the Chunin exams. The Akatsuki, and your brides. Haku added, "You're going to leave me in the Namikaze compound. Because of the baby, Urza is not permitted to fight, but she is permitted to assist in some way." That is correct. I hope that doesn't come across as, "Oh, that makes perfect sense. In addition, I don't feel like risking my baby in a fight." Naruto gave her a smile and said, "I'm glad. Who are you bringing here, then?" Urza inquired. Naruto smiled and said, "You'll just have to wait and see." He shivered as a dark aura began to form behind him, and he turned to see Nanabe and Fu glaring at Urza and Haku. Although she had improved in human company, she seemed to detest them the most for some reason, and while others could understand why, Naruto couldn't. "Fu, want to join us?" Huffing, she said, "No way, go on, sweetie," Nanabe urged her. "With those two, no," she whispered to the demon, "I want him alone." "Oh, my little girl is maturing so quickly. She's already aspiring to be a woman." The Biju uttered those words, her face flushed from the pictures in her head. Nanabe. Fu's face was even more red than the demon's as she sputtered. "You might really enjoy it now that you've brought it up. According to what Haku and Urza have told me, he also appears to have a nice body." Nanabe, slow down. "My love, give yourself to him if you love him. In any case, it's what adolescent boys consider." Fu's blush reddened as she huffed and turned away from the loving demon. She stomped towards a chair and slammed herself into it and looked away, pouting in a way the others watched with confused expressions before looking to Nanabe, who shrugged. He suddenly became animated and smiled. "Is there a problem?" As he let go of the 2 girls and got to his feet, he exclaimed joyfully, "Nothing wrong, something good." "Fu, Nanabe, do you want to see the other brides?" The demon teased, "But of course, you lucky bastard." Fu frowned at the idea of sharing, and Nanabe nodded immediately with a big smile on her face. "Come here, Haku," Naruto said, rolling his eyes before turning to face the 2 girls on the couch. "We're going straight to the other world." After saying hello, the 3 went out the door after the girl nodded and got up, and a few seconds later, 7 figures, his brides and Bahamut, arose in a blaze of light and magical symbols. When he felt the chakra and magical levels of his brides, Naruto couldn't help but smile. The Angel 6 were stronger than ever, radiating the power of their element, and Naruto looked at Bahamut, who was now sporting a few bruises, and raised an eyebrow. Bahamut simply nudged his head toward the females, and Naruto nodded in understanding, knowing that they would be furious with him for what they had to endure. "Hey, hot stuff," Enko said enthusiastically, waving her hand. "Can I see what's under those pants of yours now?" Before he could say anything, Ino and Hana slapped the purple-haired girl on the back of the head. Naruto blushed, which made Haku laugh at him and Fu glare. "How was the training?" Naruto asked, attempting to hide his blush. After giving him a long look, the girls grinned and said, "Horrid." Sweat trickled down Naruto's face. "I apologize for that," Bahamut persisted. The girls glared at the already bruised dragon in human form, who looked away with a strange grace and pride, and then they turned to face Naruto. When they noticed Fu glaring at them, it took them a moment to realize that she was jealous, and then he smirked. Naruto, momentarily perplexed by the appearance of those eyes, looked to his side and raised his eyebrows in understanding before beaming at the girls. "Ladies, meet my Nanabe, and Fu, meet my fiancés, Fu and Nanabe." As Fu's glare deepened and she clung to Naruto's arm, Nanabe's smirk expanded as though to demonstrate his point. "I was right," Nanabe said, jokingly punching Naruto in the arm. "You're one lucky bastard. If Jiraiya found out, he would cry. Ero Sennin would probably worship me as a god as well." Sennin Ero. After learning that the perverted sage was the enemy of women, Nanabe muttered, "That's the perfect name for the pervert," and then burst out laughing. "I have to leave for the day, but I'll return soon, probably later today," Naruto said, laughing and carefully removing himself from Fu before approaching his other brides and giving them each a quick peck on the lips that made their faces light up. "Please settle in, princesses." As though in a trance, they murmured, "Hi, Naruto-kun." "Haku-chan." Naruto extended his hand to her, and she accepted it with a smile. "Bahamut." The Dragon King nodded and extended a hand, which Naruto accepted, and the 3 disappeared in the same manner as the brides. After her dizzy vision cleared, Haku's mouth fell open as she wandered around, forgetting about the group, and glanced at the pictures of Kushina and the Yondaime on the walls. She stopped at one, where Minato and Kushina were cuddling and lovingly looking down at a blonde baby wrapped in Kushina's arms. The baby had no whisker marks, but she could still tell it was Naruto because no one had the same shade of blue for eyes as he did. As he walked beside her, Naruto said, "That's the only picture of the three of us. Before I learned that they lived, I would always talk to the picture when I needed advice, as if it would suddenly come to life and embrace me in parental love. Isn't that silly? However, I'm happy they're still alive." When Bahamut coughed, the two withdrew, blushing slightly but keeping their fingers intertwined. Haku looked at him and embraced him, understanding fully what it was like to feel alone and hated. "I'll go explore and broaden my horizons. We'll meet back here after you finish what needs to be done, okay?" Haku nodded, and Naruto said, "Yes, father." Bahamut disappeared out the door. So, Haku started, "Now what should we do?" "Well, I considered telling the Akatsuki first. They are now known as the Guardians of the Dragon, but they are still the same." "Yes, that is what you told me. I've been hoping to meet them after all. They used to be the shinobi world's worst enemy," she remarked as she made her way to the door. "We're not taking the street, oh no." Almost frantically, he spoke. "Why?" she asked him, raising an eyebrow. He shuddered and said, "The fangirls, they're all over the world here, and I have more than Sasuke bastard. We will have to flee from rape-seeking rabid wolves everywhere we go. If we leave they'll run after me for me and try to get you to be my wife." He shuddered once more. She blushed a little, then gave him a pitying look as she planned to kill them. Perhaps she and the Angel Six could think of something gruesome and out of the ordinary to frighten them away. As black and golden flames encircled him, he said, "Come here," and took her in his arms. "Hold on." They appeared in front of a big building with a Japanese-style dragon painted to swirl around the double doors. Haku stumbled from the sudden sensation, but Naruto supported her with his arms, and her eyes widened a little when she saw the building. "What?" Haku started. "The Akatsuki call this place home. Unbelievably, they take their work very seriously, especially Hidan, who is constantly complaining about something Jashin wants him to do. Perhaps it is because I am on a first-name basis with his god, whom I have met." Before he opened the doors, he reflected, "To be honest, I don't really understand him. Follow me." It took Haku a moment to comprehend that he was on a first-name basis with the blood god. She dismissed it, pointing out that he was married to the three goddesses. After entering, Haku looked around the place, comparing it to a traditional mansion from the elemental nations, with a slightly different style from Gado's, but more cozy and homey. She thought she could fall in love here. Then there was a crash, and Naruto shushed her, smiled, and put a finger to his lips. The two slipped into the kitchen, where they heard shouting, and when they peered inside, they saw the four surviving members of the former Akatsuki yelling at one another while wearing their uniforms. The robes were now white with bright gold and red dragons and patterns swirling around the cloaks, and the Guardians of the Dragon wore uniforms modeled after the Akatsuki robes for the comfort of the former members, which made them glow overall. "I'm positive that you're the person who consumed my last banana sundae, Kisame, so screw you." Hidan yelled. "No, I didn't. Don't hold me responsible for things I didn't do." The civilians, who were more than willing to serve Naruto's personal guard, put banana sundae on every menu in Rugakure, much to Hidan's delight, after it was found that Hidan really enjoyed a treat called a banana sundae here in Fury. Naruto suppressed a laugh. Why do you believe it was Kisame?" Deidara inquired. "Itachi or I could have done it, but it wasn't me. The fucking banana stain on Kisame's shirt is proof that it was him." "That's from my vanilla pudding, you jackass," Kisame said, looking down and scowling after raising an eyebrow in surprise. "You know it's from my fucking sundae." What are your thoughts, Itachi?" Itachi took another sip of his tea and grunted, demonstrating that he didn't really care about such a pointless argument, without even looking up. "Well, it certainly is as lively as when I left, isn't it?" Naruto said, grabbing their attention with a laugh. "Sama Naruto, it's great to see you again, Naruto-sama," exclaimed Hidan passionately as he hurried to him and bowed his head. With his ears ringing, Naruto uttered, indoor voice, "Hidan." This guy can be heard over the pink banshee. "Kyuubi, please stop." "Whatever, sorry, Naruto-sama, welcome back." Itachi smirked as she turned to greet him, saying, "Welcome home." "Hey, brat, how are things going for you in that world?" "Hello to you too, Sushi." Kisame, who detested the name, had a tick mark on his forehead. Since Naruto was his cage, he had no choice but to comply. "Brat, when are we going to have the bloodshed?" The fish man's enthusiasm made Naruto snicker. "Soon. I came here to pick you up and collect my Chunin exam participants." "Chunin tests? Why would you wish to take part in them?" "Indeed, Naruto-sama is too awesome to take part in such a small event," Hidan said. "According to Naruto, not me, but some members of Fairy Tail will to find out how well you trained them. I'll also test a few from the academy. Why? You mean to tamper with them? Itachi's voice sounded monotone. Itachi's brow twitched and Naruto smiled almost evilly as he said, "You know me so well, Ida-chan." Naruto had taken up that nickname from Yami and quickly warmed up to it, much to the chagrin of the Uchiha. Hidan had kept his gaze on Haku during the conversation, saying, "Hey," at last expressing his thoughts, "Who's this bitch?" After giving Hidan a long look, Naruto grinned and said, "Hidan, Itachi, Kisame, Deidara, meet my second wife, who's pregnant I might add Haku. Naruto-sama, please pardon this lowly servant of Jashin for insulting your lovely bride." Hidan's face fell instantly. He screamed and dropped to his hands and knees. Haku bit her lip to contain her laughter as Naruto and the other guardians appeared mildly amused. "Forgiven," Naruto said, "now, pack up, we're heading out soon. Oh, I have 7 more brides back in the other world, just so you know." Itachi grinned and said, "Good luck. That means there'll be a lot of mini Narutos running around." Deidara practically squealed. He exclaimed with delight. Before Naruto turned to face Haku, the room began to perspire at the long-haired blonde. "Should we go and fetch the participants? The prospect of you meeting Fairy Tail excites me. They're a lot of fun." "Psychotic, insane, crazy, idiots," the guardians said politely. "They're just energetic, that's all." Naruto sighed. He spoke, turning to Haku and taking her into his arms, "Let's go." And they burned away. The two materialized in front of a big, elaborate, guild-like structure bearing the Fairy Tail emblem, and Haku arched an eyebrow at its appearance. "Greetings from Fairy Tail, my other guard. Naruto, you have a large number of guards. You're not even in need of them." They insisted, Naruto said, laughing at the compliment. "Who was I to refuse such vivacious individuals? Number is just not in your dictionary," she said, rolling her eyes. With a mocking look of hurt, he said, "I've said no before." "When?" "A while ago." "Name and date." "Should we enter now?" When the doors opened, a big vase flew out and shattered onto the floor, followed by a chair. She rolled her eyes once more as her husband sidestepped the question and made her stand away from the doors, much to her confusion. "Hoko number Karyu," repeated from within. "Ice make." Lance screamed, and then there was a big explosion. "Those two," Naruto muttered in amusement as he shook his head. "Stop that, you idiots." Manly squeaks were heard after an older voice shouted. Kyuubi muttered, still as lively as ever. With a smile, Naruto said, "They always will be." Haku's eyes widened as Naruto took her hand and guided her into the guild. She could see only one thing everywhere she looked: anarchy. Even though she knew that magic wasn't as destructive as jutsu, she had to admit that she was impressed by the sight of chairs and tables flying everywhere. Along with magic, Naruto had previously explained that magic was different and didn't require hand signs or chakra, so she decided it would likely be a pleasant experience to learn some magic for herself. Then a blur sped past them and smashed into one of the few tables that were still standing, and a man in nothing but his panties got to his feet, massaging his head as a red blur smashed beside him, and the two glared at one another before tackling. "Fists are used by men," someone yelled from the fighting crowd. Everyone turned to watch Naruto laugh, and when the fighting ceased, smiles appeared on practically everyone's faces. "Master Naruto, Naruto-sama," reverberated in the guild. "Hey, my boy, Naruto." Holding up his keg of beer, Makarov said, "Welcome home." "Yo, old geezer, I see you haven't keeled over yet," he waved. "With these idiots, I'd worry too much if I just died," the elderly master chuckled. "No. There are still years left in me." "Good to see you, old man," Naruto smiled. Makarov was like the third to Naruto, a shorter twin of the geezer rather than a replacement, and he had liked the old master right away when they first met. "Naruto." "Yes." The Rukage was suddenly confronted by a flying blue cat and a person with pink hair. Naruto said, "Hello, Natsu." He nodded to the winged cat and said, "Happy." "You know what, Naruto? The tree walking is now possible for me. I can control my chakras." Proud of his former pupil, Naruto grinned and said, "Well done, Natsu. How about jutsu? Even though I only know 2 fire jutsu techniques, I'm getting better." "Hey, tree walking is something I had before you," Gray boasted. "A liar. I got it before you did." "I didn't." "I assume you're very good at ice-based jutsu." Naruto interrupted the impending battle with these words. Gray said with a nod, "Of course." Natsu laughed and said, "He only knows 2 as well." Hey, well, Haku here is an expert in ice jutsu, Naruto said with a smile. She could likely be of great assistance to you. Haku. Everyone's attention was drawn to the stunning woman standing beside Naruto, who gave them a kind smile. Who is she? Let me introduce you to my second wife. She also bears my child, just like Urza did. Two adolescent girls, one with silvery hair and the other with blonde hair, squealed with delight and leapt for her. Congratulations. The two of them yelled. I'm Lucy. And I'm Mirajan. After grinning at the three girls, Naruto turned to face Gajil and said, Hey, Iron Head. Iron Dragon Slayer said, looking at his cage with a hint of annoyance. The tree walking exercise is now possible for Natsu and Gray. How about you? Yes, I got it before they both did. The two appeared to be about to respond, but then they fell silent, pouted a little, and turned away, demonstrating to the guild, which by this point was laughing at them, that he was telling the truth. Natsu turned to Naruto as though to shift the topic. So, has Konoha received their just punishment yet? Yes, Happy exclaimed. Naruto stopped when he noticed a blue-haired girl and a cat, knelt down, and grinned at her, saying, Not yet. Hello, who are you? She said, Wendy, with shyness. A white woman named Happy caught Naruto's attention. You're a dragon slayer, aren't you? He was the most attractive creature Wendy had ever seen, and even Charles, the cat, raised an eyebrow in admiration of the Rukage's appearance. Wendy blushed and nodded. Everyone had heard of the blonde cage, and everyone had at least once seen his picture. However, in real life, he truly did look like a blonde god. From where did you come? He inquired. See Kate Shelter. His eyebrows went up. Oh, so it's finally happened. Charles gave him a startled look as her eyes grew wide. You knew? The cat inquired. I've met the old guy once, Naruto said, nodding. He was not of the living. In essence, yes, he did move on at last. She could only nod, still stunned. We defeated a dark guild while you were away, and since her guild was no longer in existence, Lucy started, but she stopped short. After grinning once more, Naruto extended his hand and said, Welcome to my personal guard, the guild. Fairy Tale, Wendy. After a brief moment of widening, Charles gave her a slight shove, and she swallowed before shaking his hand and saying, Please take care of me. She giggled a little as Naruto ruffled her hair and said, You'll like Fairy Tale. I apologize for the interruption, but you mentioned that you haven't yet destroyed Konoha, Makarov said. Why is that? The guild members smiled when Naruto replied simply, Well, I'm gonna play with them first. There's an upcoming exam called the Chunin exam where genin who pass advance to the level of Chunin. Just to play with them before the tournament's verdict, I'm entering 6 people, 3 from the academy and 3 from here. Hands went up in the air right away, offering to take the test. I already have the 3 picked out. Natsu, Naruto said with a small laugh. Yosha, he cried out, igniting a fire. Gray. All right. The nearly nude teenager gasped and looked down as Kana said, Gray, your clothes. And Gajil, the slayer of the Iron Dragon, grinned. Happy. Yes. You can't come. Hey. Happy and Natsu both cried out. There are no animals like you in the elemental nations, and their presence could destabilize the area. Only animals can communicate through summons, and if they discovered someone who couldn't, the nations would compete with one another too. What? Happy stammered nervously. Investigate the unknown species' origins, mechanism of action, and potential benefits by dissecting or testing it. You have to remain here until Rugaker transports you there. Before they shivered, Happy and Charles had horrified expressions on their faces. Happy nodded and looked down, not wanting to be dissected. Besides, Naruto started once more, I need someone I can trust to navigate Rugaker with Wendy and Charles. Naruto winked and said, Happy, I need you to do this for me. The cat's expression brightened. All right, I suppose it won't be that long. With a smile, Natsu said, Good luck, Happy. Yes. Now, when you're ready, the 4 people I named will meet me at my compound while I get the final members. Lucy, could you also escort Haku-chan there? Yes. By the way, which team will it be? A surprise, said Naruto, shaking his head. Before we depart, I'll be getting someone else as well. In his mind, he added, and this is an order from your cage. His face and voice grew solemn and icy. Don't attack him or you'll face my wrath. He won't be coming with us but will become an official resident of Rukage. The room nodded and shivered. Naruto's joyful expression reappeared. Amazing. I have to leave now. Goodbye, he said, disappearing into the flames. I wish I had that ability. Natsu uttered those words. According to Gray, don't we all? Calm down. We'll figure out Shunshin eventually, said Gajeel with a sly smile. How are you aware of its name? I actually read the scrolls he gave us. Naruto wandered into Training Ground 1, which was a section of land in a hazardous area of the forest that surrounded Rubikar. As far as the experienced eye could see, there were natural hazards and traps, and because travelers had been lost there numerous times, Naruto had made the decision to fence it off and use it as a training ground for academy graduates. Hearing voices, he turned and went into the forest, where he saw a boy sitting on a fallen log, shaking his palmed head as if this were happening every hour of the day, and two girls arguing with each other. They appeared to be about Naruto's age, perhaps 15. Naruto smiled, realizing that he had found Squad 1. One of the specially trained students was Christian Taiga, who sat on the log. Urza had recognized his potential and had trained him as her student while he was still in the academy. He was the oldest member of the squad, with the Rubikar headband on his forehead, and he was about 4 feet 9 inches tall, but he made up for it with speed. He had short black hair and wise brown eyes, and he wore a black t-shirt and karate pants with ninja sandals. Since their official sensei, Itachi, is rarely present, Christian is primarily the team leader. His power has earned him the nickname Iron Demon, as he once defeated 10 other squads on his own and won. He was named Rookie of the Year. Christian's magic was for high-level defense with the iron rings wrapped around his hands. He is also built for speed and power, the group's muscle, and the voice of reason when things get out of hand in the team. Daniel Morga Finella, mostly called Morga by others, was one of the two girls arguing. She was 14 years old, 4 feet 8 inches tall, with emerald green eyes and dark red hair that reached her shoulders. She was dressed in white loose pants with ninja sandals on her feet, a white muscle shirt underneath a black, fire-resistant unbuttoned vest, and a ninja headband strapped onto her left arm. She looks up to Natsu as a teacher and an older brother. She used fire-based magic, which was powerful but not as powerful as that of a dragon slayer like Natsu. In addition to her specialization in destroying fire jutsus, she used her magic to transform her hair into an endless supply of unquenchable flames that would do her every wish. If she could imagine it, the flames could form into it. As a result, her flames would intensify with her anger and frequently defeat her. She is known as the Red Medusa in the squad because her hair is her magic, resembling Medusa's snakes for hair. Jenny Tundrex, the other arguing girl, was 14 years old, 4 feet 8 inches tall, with icy sapphire eyes and long black hair that reaches the small of her back. She was dressed in blue pants and a blue jacket, with a loose-fitting Rukage headband around her neck. Like Morga and Natsu, she views Gray as an older brother and a teacher to be reached at all times. Although her ice-based magic is similar to that of Gray Fullbuster, it is not the same. Her ice magic is based on golems and destruction, and she is fascinated by the rare ice-based jutsus. She is the team's brains, and she and Morga frequently fight with Christian, who stops them. She was known as the Frozen Angel. Since the Akatsuki were the only ninja in the area to teach, Itachi was the squad's official sensei. As previously stated, after training them and leading them on a few C-rank missions, he left them to fend for themselves, only occasionally checking in. Despite appearances, Squad 1 has amazing teamwork when it comes to it. Naruto didn't believe in D-rank missions, which were only to appease civilians who were too lazy to water their gardens and get their mail. Instead, he had them go on C-rank missions and have teamwork building exercises during the mission and during training. I take it that Squad 1. 3 heads turned to look at him when he said that. They leapt to their feet and knelt down in front of the Rukage as soon as they saw who had spoken to them. They returned the echo, Naruto-sama. He gently reprimanded them, shaking his head and motioning for them to stand. I'm not one for that kind of thing, you know that. Christian said. We know, sir, but that doesn't mean we have to listen. Yes. We're just being respectful of our leader, Morga added. What knowledge do you have regarding respect? I don't even think you know the meaning of the word, Jenny said icily. What a bitch. Now, Naruto replied. I actually have a mission for your squad. He knew that they hadn't had a mission in a long time because most of the ones that had been coming in lately were either for the guild or too high ranking for them yet, so they perked up at that. How may we assist you? I want to play with them first because, as you know, I'm demolishing my old house in a few years. When we have more ninja, we will hold something called the Chunin exams. However, I'll have all 3 of you take part in it. Are you sure you want us to win? Christian smirked and cracked his knuckles as he asked. Just say the word, boss. Morga snapped her neck from side to side. Jenny quietly hissed, respect. Naruto grinned slyly and said, then kick their asses to next century. Laxus was walking down a dirt road with a sack slung over his shoulder. He was relieved that nothing unusual had been happening lately, but he was also sad that he couldn't report to his cage, for whom he still worked covertly. He felt as though he had a purpose now that he was no longer a member of Fairy Tail. Indeed, practically everyone in Fury was aware that their lovable, most powerful, and attractive teenage leader, who controlled the Magic Council, had gone to exact revenge on his former village. He recalled hearing about Konoha's treatment of Naruto and was furious because no one in Fury, or even a village where a demon had attacked, would treat someone who risked their life to stop a demon from attacking in this way. In fact, they all knew that if he was a demon, Naruto would have killed them all for such treatment, but he remained faithful until his sensei, well, you can't really call him that, Kakashi, betrayed him. He wanted to help. He sighed when flames appeared in front of him. He leapt back and assumed a fighting stance, prepared for whatever came. He was startled, shocked, actually, when it turned into Naruto, and a smile appeared on his face. Naruto-sama, the blonde said, I have a proposition for you, Laxus. His eyes grew wide. A suggestion? Are you interested in becoming a dragon nin? But I'm no ninja, he said, his eyes widening before he burst out laughing with delight. I am a sorcerer. We can fix that. After Konoha falls, I'll designate a teacher for you. I must caution you, though, that you will not receive preferential treatment. You can't be a fairy tale mage anymore because you're a criminal, and people will definitely be keeping a close eye on you. But I can pull some strings. I may have too much faith in you, but I see your commitment and perseverance. Laxus, would you like this? Laxus's eyes filled with tears of happiness, which he promptly wiped away before beaming a broad, contented smile at the cage. I would. Amazing. Naruto smiled at the man and extended his hand, saying, now, let's go to the others. Laxus accepted it without question and mumbled, thank you. Laxus tried so hard to hide a single tear, but Naruto saw it and grinned, saying, you're welcome. After giving the three boys a beating they would never forget, much to the amusement of the former Akatsuki members in Squad 1, Naruto leaned down with a menacing grin and declared, attacking a dragon ninja is a serious felony. Natsu, Gray, and Gajeel weren't happy about Laxus's presence when Naruto returned, and the three boys were quite vocal when they attacked Laxus. I'd hate to have to discipline the three of you. They also kept their mouths shut, afraid of whatever punishment Naruto had in store for them, and made a valiant effort to be kind to Laxus, who didn't seem to mind them. After he apologized to the four shocked people on his hands and knees, they reluctantly forgave him. The men continued to talk about how lucky Naruto was to have found such a beautiful and talented girl, and after introducing Haku to Laxus, they sat down and ate her cooking. Haku called her a weak woman, then trapped Gajeel in her ice mirrors and beat him to a pulp without causing him any harm. The notorious Ryugakure Ice Princess was born with the support of the fairy tale members who had already forgiven him and regarded him as a comrade once more. Laxus went to apologize to his grandfather. Later that evening, Naruto had watched the man wander off into the night with thoughts racing through his head. They soon made their way back to the elemental nations. Judgment then started. Katetsu and Izumo both sighed, the former resting his head on his hand and falling asleep every second or two, while Izumo was leaning back in his chair, sound asleep. One might wonder why Konoha's gate guards were so sound asleep, but the day shifts and the nightly meetings with the resistance quickly catch up with you. Even ninjas needed to sleep. He had been suffering from a lot of headaches lately, so Katetsu suppressed a yawn and scrunched up his nose. His eyes flickered closed, then he looked up to laugh. Never thought you two ever got tired. When Katetsu saw who had spoken, he smiled broadly and gave Izumo a shove, which knocked the man out of his chair. The man moaned and crawled up to scream at his friend, but the friend jerked his head to look at a teen with whiskers, and Izumo smiled back. My little friend, welcome back, Izumo said. Naruto smiled and covered his face with a hood, and behind him were four figures in silver, gold, and red, their garments swirling with the most intricate of dragons. Behind them were 6 women, masked and wearing somewhat skimpy but very effective kunoichi clothes, and on his other side was a green-haired beauty who was staring down at them as if they were ants that didn't deserve approval, while an even more beautiful woman stood slightly behind her, smiling at them. Naruto, welcome back, or Naruto-sama, if I may. Knowing at once that these two were part of the resistance, Naruto grinned at them and said, see you two soon. He then walked away with the others. Katetsu laughed and said, won't this be enjoyable? Oh, it'll be fun for those on his side, hell for the others. Izumo smiled. Have you gotten the camera I requested? Katetsu produced a costly camera with a cunning twinkle in his eyes and said, I did. Good, now we can capture the moment when all the bullshit this village put us through slaps them in the face. Examining Konoha, Naruto realized that not much had changed in the previous 3 years, save that people were now observing him with caution and curiosity. Clearly unaware of his identity, he knew that if anyone ever discovered who he was, the glaring would return. He noticed that Ichiraku Ramen appeared slightly larger than before and grinned, relieved that the two-person family was doing well despite his absence. He would have to go see them later, but for now he had a task to complete. With his sensitive hearing, he turned to face the council room and smiled when he heard that a meeting was in progress. "Are you ready?" He questioned his wife, Fu, Nanabi, Bahamut, and his disguised brides, the Guardians. With a smile, the Dragon King said, "As I've been for 3 years. I say we destroy them all right now for harming Naruto-sama," Hidan said, gesturing with his scythe. "Hidan," indoor voice Tenten chastised, "we don't want people to know it's Naruto-kun yet." "Hi." Hidan sulked behind his mask. Naruto smiled as he recalled the hilarious moment when the Akatsuki met his brides. When Hidan insulted them, they beat him to within an inch of his immortal life, and he was jumpy around them for the rest of the day. He even hid behind Naruto when Enko cracked her knuckles at him. Fortunately, he is now normal, though he is still elusive around the Angel Six. "She is correct, I want to cause trouble for them, keep that in mind," Hidan. Saluting, he said, "Hi, Naruto-sama." "Fu." He questioned the lone individual who didn't appear to have an answer. He inhaled deeply and nodded, saying, "If they're anything like the council in Takigakure, I want you to promise me something." She scowled as she stared at the big doors in front of her, unpleasant memories creeping into her head. "What?" he asked, raising an eyebrow. "Leave some for me to slaughter." He laughed and said, "Of course, my lady." The civilian council was demanding that Naruto be killed immediately upon entering the village once more, and Tsunade was tugging at her hair once more while nibbling at her bleeding lower lip to prevent herself from yelling at them and escalating the argument. While the other clan heads, with the exception of Shikaku Nara, who appeared to be sleeping, were attempting to maintain their composure and failing as annoyance poured off of them in waves, Tsume was once again slamming her head against the table in front of her. "He has sufficiently embarrassed us," Lily Haruno yelled, and she received echoes of agreement. "We've fallen this far because of him. We are on the verge of a depression. We will have to go to war if we don't at least gain some allies during the exams. War would be more expensive than we currently have." Hiyashi, who was usually composed, finally lost it due to the foolish blathering of the civilians. He snapped. "We'll empty the Namikaze accounts." Homura responded, "Not like anybody is using them and there's enough to buy an army stored in there." "That's not possible. It was practically thievery," Tsume yelled, halting the banging of her forehead and glaring at the person who had suggested such an act. "We will, and we can. We need money to keep our village strong and fed. Kaharu declared war will help us maintain our dignity and..." "Bullshit." A fist slammed against wood. All slackness and drowsiness disappeared when everyone turned to witness a startling sight. A furious Nara clan head glaring more fiercely than Uchiha. "This has nothing to do with pathetic pride. The lives of hundreds of soldiers would be lost in a war against a hidden village, and pride isn't worth it," he yelled. "Lives cannot be renewed, but pride can. Taking money that isn't yours will only demonstrate to others how far you've fallen," he growled out. "You wouldn't touch that money if, as you claim, this is truly a matter of pride. Naruto's life wouldn't have been made a living hell by you. Did you consider his life to be a game? Was there a covert prize distribution, and who could harm Naruto the most? I have no doubt about it. Your pride and even your life were lost the moment you touched that child even once. When you all die, I hope you all rot in hell." The civilians were unable to respond. In fact, they were unable to speak. Nara simply yelled at them. Tsunade nodded in agreement, while Inoichi and Shuza gave their former teammate proud nods. The other clan heads simply smiled or smirked, relieved that the civilians had finally stopped talking. The council room's doors suddenly swung open, or rather, slammed open, and 13 individuals entered, 5 of whom were masked, and the leader shielded himself with the hood of a very Yondaime-like cape. "Who are you?" A councilwoman was called upon. Come really, do you need to know? We are not yours to demand from," he said in a tone that froze over, making the shinobi shiver in anticipation and the civilians shiver in fear. "No offense, Tsume-san," he said, looking up at Tsume once more in a sweet tone. "Arrogant dogs." All of the shinobi in the room could see he was powerful and well beyond their lead, but since they were civilians and couldn't sense power, they ended up doing the foolish thing. "None taken," she said with a hint of amusement. "You dare? The Honorable Council of Konohagakure is who we are. Who are you to say that to us?" yelled Lily Haruno. To the amusement of the clan heads and the annoyance of the Haruno, he turned to Tsunade, ignoring her completely and utterly, and even the Anbu in the shadows, who were tense to attack if necessary, were suppressing snickers. Lady Tsunade, still as beautiful as always. "Well, thank you," she said, blushing briefly before it went away. "Could you tell me your name?" "I am Tsunade Senju, Konohagakure's current Hokage." "Thank you for asking kindly, Lady Tsunade, or should I say, Tsunade Ba-chan. Her eyes widened, and she whispered, "It can't be." Many women blushed as his hood dropped. "My name is Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze, Ryukage of Ryugakure, and I'm here to take the tests with my ninja." As they gazed at the much older and hotter Naruto, the room fell silent and Shoksume licked her lips at the alpha-like aura he gave off. Oh, Hana was one lucky bitch, how she wished her husband had been like this boy. The silence was broken by Tsunade, who said, "Of course," and, "Naruto." She smiled warmly at him and said, "Welcome back." He shrugged and said, "I can't say it's good to be back, but whatever, I'm entering 6 people." After throwing him a form, she said, "Fill that out and deliver it to me when you're finished." "I'm grateful. Ba-chan, see you later." "Naruto-sama," Hiashi said, standing up. "You dare not refer to that abomination as Sama." The civilians let out gasps and screams as their friend fell dead, but a councilman's shout was cut short when a blade, more precisely, a scythe, went through his throat. "Tsunade-sama. Find him immediately." Confused, Naruto glanced around. "What? Why?" "Nothing caught my attention." Tsunade grinned. "I didn't either, too much to drink, probably." "Tsunade-sama." The council complained. "Silence. I hope to see you around, brat," she snapped, smiling as she turned to face Naruto. Before turning to face Hiashi, I said, "You got it, Ba-chan. You had a question for me?" "If you don't mind, who are those behind you?" he asked, nodding. "Ah." He grinned. In order to keep the panic at bay, he used a shortened version of Nanabe's name to indicate to the 2 girls. "This is Fu and Nana. And next to me is Bahamut, the Dragon King." This caused flinches. "The ladies are my angels," he stressed, causing smirks. "And then these 4 are my guardians. Well, this beautiful flower is Urza, my wife." The men who were swooning at her growled at him until they were silenced by glares. "The king of the dragons, did you say?" Sume inquired. "You don't trust me, lady? Pardon me, but I see a human standing in front of me, not a dragon," she said, shaking her head. "Is it possible for a chameleon to blend in with its surroundings?" he grinned. "I suggest that Bahamut-sama teach Sasuke Uchiha everything he knows," Homura said as he got to his feet. "I second that." The third, overruled. "If you haven't remembered, Bahamut was never from this village, and I am no longer," Naruto yelled, drawing cries of annoyance. "You can't treat my people as though they were your own. Even in the afterlife, I will make you regret trying to rule my people." "Besides," Bahamut said, "I will only ever train Naruto forever, nobody else." "But, the Uchiha needs power. I think Kami-chan once told you that need and want are very different." "Good day," he said as he left, adding, "Oh, before I leave, I will not permit you to treat my people like scum in any way. We can put up with glares, but unappreciated words and deeds are another matter entirely and will not be accepted." The door slammed shut after that, though it was obviously nothing like the Namikaze compound, which he was certain was decorated by both his mother and the female villagers of Ryugakure. Naruto collapsed in Sarutobi's old mansion, which Tsunade had lent him for him and his guests to live in during the exams. He had to admit that the old man liked to live in style. He rolled over on the couch and sighed into the pillow he was burying his face in. "I get so pissed off just looking at the council's faces," he complained. "They have no right to shout at Naruto-sama. I could hardly control my voice," Hidan grumbled. "Yes," Deidara said. "I knew the council was arrogant, but not that arrogant, Fu sighed and muttered, "Just like every other council." Nanabe put a reassuring hand on her shoulder before she turned to frown at Naruto, expressing her own disapproval of the way they handled the boy. Kisame hissed, "Can't wait to slice them up." He couldn't stand the way those people treated him, and even though the brat might treat him disrespectfully at times with all the nicknames, he was still his cage and a man to be admired. "And they dared demand something from me, the king of the dragons," snarled Bahamut, sad. "I'm vying for the pink bitch." According to Naruto, as I her daughter, as she sat down beside his lying form and began massaging his shoulders, Ino said in a perplexed tone, "I thought you liked her." Before he snorted, he moaned as his muscles began to relax. "Liked her? I didn't." Those who believe that the Kyuubi brat had some emotions were less hostile. "Kami is aware of my choice. I've never made a worse mistake in my life." "I could have told you that," Tamari snorted. "When will Team 1 and the fairy tale mages arrive?" Hinata inquired. "I'd estimate a few hours, but with them, you can never be sure," he laughed. "I'd say that's about right," Urza said, nodding. "To be here at that time, I told Natsu and Gray. Fred and those who knew her corrected mentally. They ought to be almost here." "Naruto!" cried 3 strong voices before he could say anything. 3 of the most stunning women you've ever seen pushed Ino away from him and glomped over him. The Ryugakure residents, who were already aware of their identities, simply shook their heads as though this were a common occurrence. In contrast, Fu, Nanabi, and the Angel Six were utterly perplexed. Naruto, who are? Sorry, he said, attempting to get away and take a breath. They're Kami, Tozi, and Yami, the 3 goddesses, and my fiancés for the future. Their jaws fell open. The 3 deities. They stopped short of questioning him and just shook their heads. Asking Naruto questions would only cause headaches and needless. Your life will turn out well if you never question him. Kisame asked nonchalantly, what brings the goddesses here this time? He eventually grew accustomed to it after experiencing several heart attacks as a result of seeing them repeatedly occur. Tozi hugged Naruto's right arm and said, we wanted to see him and we have a message for him. Message? Yep, exploded Yami. A request from Tsukiyomi and Amaterasu. Naruto referred to the big sister-like goddesses as Oni-chan and Aneki. Kami gave a nod. The Uchiha's eyes widened as he said, they regret giving the Uchiha their powers and wish to end the line and start again with Itachi. Itachi was never arrogant, selfish, or power-hungry. He didn't take the easy way out and copied everything. He gained it all through hard work. You must finish this line and begin again. You want Sasuke dead? Tenten inquired, realizing. Wait, their bloodline was given to them by 2 goddesses? Temari inquired. They thought that abomination named Madara was an honest man. Yes, he was honest at first, but he became what Sasuke is now. But much worse. We would have taken care of it ourselves, but we've already interfered with life enough as it is with what we did 3 years ago. And to answer your first question, either kill him or remove his bloodline. Anko questioned. Who can do that? Hana asked. It's impossible to remove bloodlines, right? I mean, it's never been done before. Many eyes flocked to Naruto, who shifted uncomfortably at the unexpected attention. I can... well, it's a gift of my bloodline. Infinity. It can null the effects of all bloodlines and even permanently take them away. That's its special ability besides the abilities of the Sharingan, Byakugan, and Rinnegan. They gazed at the blonde boy in front of them in wonder. After staring at Hidan for a while, Yami snapped her fingers. Almost forgot, she said, glancing at Naruto, who was dumbfounded. Jashin wishes to have tea and another spar with you after this is over. He misses his Oto-Oto. While Hidan grinned broadly and yelled, Jashin-sama, as loudly as he could, Naruto grinned. Tell him his Oto-Oto will visit him as soon as possible. Hell, tell that blood god that I'll deliver a cup of the ever-hated Danzo's blood to him. Yami gave a sly grin. Will do. Jashin will love that. Jasin-sama, Anko yelled, quiet Hidan, and he shrank slightly. Yes, ma'am. The Rookie 12 boys, who are now known as the Rookie 8 due to Naruto and the girl's disappearance, were chatting contentedly after his return. Naruto was prepared to launch a conflict in which they were resolved to assist. Their enthusiasm caused their senseis to smile, and they began discussing jutsu and strategies that would be effective in combat. It's better to be safe than sorry, even though they didn't think it would last long with Naruto present. With his mouth full of chips, Choji said abruptly, I wonder what Naruto looks like now. With all eyes on him, Shino muttered, a looker. Kurenai nodded, drawing Konoha's Ice Queen and raised eyebrows. I believe so as well, since he's Minato's son, and the fact that he's almost an exact replica of him. I'd say he's Hatsume confirmed that for me. For a moment, the rookies appeared envious. They only had 2 words in their minds. Lucky bastard. They even made the Inazuka's alpha woman drool before they smiled, and Shino grinned. Yo! Everyone turned to face the sound, and they were all shocked. Kakashi and his Team 7 were involved. As they got closer, everyone's eyes narrowed. Sakura was staring at Sasuke, who was glaring and brooding with a haughty and proud stance, while she was daydreaming. Kakashi's nose was in the orange book, which he dreaded. Kiba hissed. What are you 3 doing here? Neji went on. You're not welcome here. Sasuke gave a sigh. Of course we are. Sakura gave a hearty nod. Yeah? Sasuke-kun is welcome wherever he goes. Even Lee snarled at the girl with the pink hair. He had a unyouthful crush on the pink monster that knows no youth, after learning the truth about Sakura. Spat. Kakashi. Guy said. Kakashi raised his head. Why Guy suddenly detested him and stopped challenging him was beyond his comprehension. Only gave him glares that were decidedly un-Guy. He only attempted to expel a demon from the world except for a few. Everyone else now considered him a hero. He didn't comprehend. He grinned. Hello, Guy, Asuma said. Leave? She and the other Junin left in a small group, occasionally glaring at the 3. Sasuke stated, apparently disregarding Asuma's request, we want to spar. We have better things to do than spar with you. Neji replied. Shikamaru said, dealing with you is so troublesome. We have to meet someone. Who? They can wait, screaming. Sakura said, yeah, they can wait until your spar with Sasuke-kun is done. Well, who we're meeting is a cage. I don't think he'd appreciate us being held back by a mere genin. Kiba laughed sarcastically. Sasuke snarled. He and Sakura were still genin, but everyone else in the Rookie 9 was either chunin or junin. He felt ill from it. He deserved to be junin, not them, because he was a Uchiha, the elite. He positioned himself for battle and commanded, I'm a Uchiha. The cage will understand now, fight me. Neji grinned as Kiba and Choji laughed. Shikamaru said, turning to face the Uchiha. Not this cage. He'd be annoyed, and an annoyed cage is troublesome to deal with. Yes, keeping someone of his stature waiting is most unyouthful, Lee replied. With curiosity, Kakashi questioned, who is this cage? Lee flashed a broad smile. He's your worst enemy, a new youthful cage. Shino added monotonously, one who couldn't care less about the Uchiha. Kakashi said with an eyebrow raised, a new cage as in a cage of a new village? Nods. Who is it? Shikamaru grinned, you're screwed, Kakashi. Why? Kiba smiled. It's the cage of Ryubikir, Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze. Apprentice of the Dragon King, and immortal in favor of the gods. The rookies wished they had cameras because the three's faces were so precious. Sasuke sneered, the Dobi is a cage? Impossible. Yeah, Naruto Baka can't be a cage if Sasuke-kun isn't. Kakashi grinned and said, funny joke please, who's the cage? A joke? You think I'm a joke, Kakabaka? Kakashi went pale. That voice, it was unmistakable, though it was calmer and deeper than before, and he could tell by the shocked grins on the other people's faces that he was, as Shikamaru put it, screwed. The last person he ever imagined seeing again appeared when he turned around. Naruto with a man and 3 women by his side, he skirted his former sensei and went up to the Rookie 8 without even recognizing him. Hey, guys. Naruto, damn, you got hot, Kiba cried jealously after a moment of reflection. He added, and I mean that in a non-gay way. Naruto laughed, thanks, it's good to see you guys. Shikamaru gave him a back pat. It's troublesome to say, but welcome back. As soon as Choji saw Naruto, he put his chips away. Choji questioned, glancing at the enigmatic pregnant beauty, who are they? Grinning, Naruto wrapped an arm around Urza's waist. He put his other arm around Fu's waist, who flushed, and said, my wife, my girl. Quiet, lucky bastard, Kiba exclaimed in a fraternal tone. Yosh. Your youth shines brightly, Naruto. Let us spar sometime so I may be as youthful as you someday. The senseis turned around in response to these cries and saw Naruto and a pregnant woman. Kurenai knew right away and squealed at the thought of dressing up a mini Naruto every day. The other senseis gave her a weary look and moved away when she began muttering about adorable costumes. Naruto. Boy of ever-burning youth. Welcome home, Guy exclaimed, raising his hands in the air. Naruto grinned as he turned. Hello, Guy-sensei, it's good to see you. Guy's exclamation, Naruto. I challenge you to a duel, raises an eyebrow. You are my new eternal rival. If I cannot win, I shall walk around Konoha 200 times on my hands. Naruto laughed. Alright, as soon as I finish some business, we'll duel. Yosh. Who is this? Requested Asuma. He glanced at the large man and asked, and him? Urza grinned. She responded, leaning against Naruto. Urza, S-class mage of Fairy Tail. S-class, mage? With grateful nods, Naruto said, she would be ranked around a class here, and these are Fu, Nana, and this is Bahamut. I am the king of the dragons, Naruto's father, though his real father and I have disagreements at that. Kakashi cried out, wait, Minato-sensei is alive? They didn't pay attention to him. Kurenai exclaimed, Minato-sama lives? He turned to face Kakashi. Yeah, Yami decided she didn't want his soul, so she just put him in a coma. Only I could awaken him from he's awake. He said. He turned away from his now pale sensei after saying, and very pissed at you. He's coming during the exams sometime right now. He's traveling to meet up with Kushina Ka-san. Sasuke approached the notorious and formidable Dragon King and stood proudly, fed up with being disregarded. He demanded that they train me. Excuse me? Train me? I am Uchiha, an elite. You should be honored to train me? After a moment of staring, Bahamut laughed, then he chuckled. Urza yelled, what a bastard. Sakura yelled obscenities at her, but she and Fu silenced the pink-haired monkey with a glare, which immediately won her the affection of the others. Not really listening to the conversation as much as she should have, Nanabe scowled as she gazed at Naruto's arms still encircling Erza and Fu. She was silently cursing herself when the incident occurred. She experienced a sudden surge of jealousy and mentally kicked herself since she was a demon lord. She was unable to be easily influenced by negative feelings. I would never train someone like you, go brood over in a corner or something. I never planned on training anyone until I met Naruto. He is and will be forevermore the only exception besides a child if I ever have one. Sasuke stomped over to Naruto, growling, "Fight me. Go away, duck ass." Sasuke was furious and delivered a forceful blow, tossing the Uchiha high into the air. Naruto simply extended his arm and held out a finger. "I said, go away." Sasuke made a tiny crater when he landed a few feet away. "Sasuke-kun!" screamed Sakura. Shikamaru inquired, "How are the troublesome angels?" "Trained by elemental sprites, they're much stronger and scarier than ever here in masks." They gave a nod. "Well, I must leave. I shall speak to you later, Shikamaru. I hear you're a judge." The Nara gave a languid nod. "Judge fair. Don't listen to the council. Whatever they threaten to take away, it'll be returned." "I know I will." Azumo and Katetsu were giddy. To use the word, they were already organizing the fall of this place and deciding who they wanted to knock first after their little friend returned. As of right now, the majority of the people on their list were those who had harmed Naruto. They were aware that Kakashi was only for Naruto and Naruto alone. That is, until Tsunade approaches him first. She hasn't given him any missions higher than D-ranked ones and is still furious after 3 years. Azumo noticed something in the distance and arched an eyebrow. "Hey, Katetsu." "Yeah? What's that?" he asked, gesturing towards 6 approaching figures beyond the open gates. He quickly noticed the odd clothing style and replied, "I don't know." When their eyes met something, they smirked, sat down again, and allowed them to pass without question. There was something particular about each person that made them feel more enthusiastic. The headbands of Ryugakure, the forces of Naruto, had come. Naruto gazed at the 6 people in front of him. Morga, Jenny, Christian, Gray, Gajeel, and Natsu. The idea of the types of devastation they could do during the Chunin exams made him smile as his forces beat theirs non-stop. He almost shivered with anticipation, picturing the various expressions the Konoha people would wear. He had no doubt that Sasuke would be pitted against one of the 6 opponents chosen at random, most likely the one they believed to be the weakest, such as Jenny or Morgao. He couldn't wait to see their reactions when that Uchiha repeatedly gets knocked onto his ass. "Remember," he warned, "the Konoha Council can't make you do anything. You're part of Ryugakure, not Konoha, and are therefore under my command only." Natsu sighed. "Like we'd listen to those backstabbing bastards anyways." "Yeah," said Morga. "We'd sooner join a dark guild than listen to those idiots. It's not gonna happen." Jenny grinned and remarked, "For once I have to agree with the flaming idiot." Christian placed a hand on her shoulder and squeezed it in warning as Morga turned to face her, her eyes glaring with hatred and her hair briefly fluttering to fire. His eyes hardened as only Urza's could, and he glared, saying, "No fighting, calm down." Kyubi, who was somewhat impressed with the child, remarked, "Kid can do it almost as well as Urza. He can." "That's completely true. I wonder what else Urza taught him. I can't wait to find out." That glare made the other 5 competitors shudder. It was never good, especially if it was directed at Urza the Titania. Furthermore, even though they were currently stronger than Christian, they didn't want to know what happened to those who encountered the other end of that glare because Christian was her pupil. Naruto grinned, happy that they got along, and shook his head at their antics. He said, continuing on, to get their attention, "During the preliminaries, Tsunade has asked if we can use the angels against some of the participants if they get too many or an uneven number. She's promised me that you personally won't get to fight them, but I want you to watch. I want you to learn and assess what they can do. They are, after all, the future of Ryugakure. In a sense, I want to know what you think." The 6 understood and nodded. They're his people, and he will not wed or associate with anyone they believe is unworthy of being their leader. They didn't think they would disagree with any of Ryukage's decisions, but they would make fun of him. They wouldn't say no to him at any point, but they could give him the impression that he could. "Are you ready to, how would Kisame say it? Are you ready for a glorious bloodbath?" "Wonderful words, Kit. Couldn't have put it better myself. You were going to let me take control for a while and wreak havoc as well, right? You aren't cruel enough to keep me locked in here with blood flying in all directions, right?" Naruto grinned. "You have nothing to worry about, Kyubi. Whatever you're planning, Kit, I'm sure I'm going to like it." "Oh, you'll love it. I know something that will make us both happy." With their blood boiling for a good challenge and to deliver Konoha's judgment, the 6 from Fury nodded and smiled. "Make them wish they never met us." "Yes," they exclaimed, with the exception of Christian and Gajeel, who were calm and just grinned at the approaching times. The six hurried out the door to go to their last practice. The Chunin exams began tomorrow, so they had one more day. They wanted to perform at their best and make Konoha feel so humiliated that they would cry as they rushed through the narrow doorway. Nanabe, who was entering at the moment, barely avoided the approaching traffic before turning to face the amused Naruto, who was watching them go like a parent. She shook her head. I wonder what that delinquent wants with you now. Shush, Kyubi. She's not that bad. By mortal standards you are correct. My demon standards she's as good as they come, which is the opposite of what demons aim for such a delinquent. Ignoring Kyubi for the moment, Naruto said, Nanabe-chan, can I help you with something? She nibbled on her bottom lip as she turned to go. She abruptly said, and no, it's nothing, never mind. He narrowed his eyes and said, Nanabe. The tone of his voice made her pause and wince. What is it? She let out a sigh. I'm confused. His eyebrows went up golden. About what? About you? He pointed to himself and blinked. Me? She asked, nodding, and he blinked in confusion. Why? What have I done to warrant your confusion? I don't know. Whenever I'm near you my heart beats. Whenever you're giving attention to another woman I get jealous. I've never felt this way before and I'm confused. I don't understand what's wrong with me. She yelled, pulling at her hair with rage. What? Naruto chuckled after his eyes widened. Well, I didn't expect that. Turn her down right now, Nanabe, nothing's wrong with you. She gazed at him bewildered. So, I'm not sick? No, you're not sick. I'm surprised you of all people don't understand your symptoms. She begged, I don't, tell me please, and hated the desperate tone she gave off. Don't tell her. Let her suffer. He gave a headshake. This is something you must realize yourself. Nanabe-chan, it's not as hard as you think it is. You'll figure it out soon. He smiled and winked at her. And when you do, don't hesitate to tell me. Not what I had in mind, Kit. As he began to pass her, she muttered, tell you. Tell you what? Hey, wait, I don't understand. He grinned as he glanced over his shoulder and said, you will, trust me, don't worry, you'll understand soon. As he vanished behind the door, she stomped her foot. She huffed and crossed her arms. Despite her demon status, she is not all-knowing. Being as long-lived as she is does not imply that you become omniscient. On the contrary, because it has happened so frequently before, you start to lose interest in what is going on around you. She snarled. Perhaps a movie or some books will help her understand what's wrong with her. She could always ask one of the girls. But Naruto wouldn't trust her if she admitted that she didn't understand for some reason. She was extremely horrified by that dear Kami. She had to find out what was wrong with her immediately, or else she would swear she would go as crazy as Ichibi. Danzo grinned broadly. Finally, he returned to Konoha with his future weapon. His destiny will finally be realized. He will be in charge of the other world and all the elemental nations. He had turned into a god and ruled over everything. Using his weapon of mass destruction as a command, people were afraid of him and his weapon, which prevented them from overthrowing him. He had the ideal plan. Give Naruto a few days of freedom and allow him to treasure his remaining days of autonomy. But soon, he would only be Danzo's puppet, his devoted dog with no purpose in life other than to serve his master in any case. Jinchurikis were not intended to be free. The only thing they were meant to be was weapons. If not, why would they be made? For the sake of human safety? To make sure the demon is never used again. So why were the seals built? To allow the Jinchuriki to harvest and utilize the demon's powers? Using them as a weapon for their village was the only viable solution. Lord Danzo, Anbu bowed as he walked into the room, avoiding eye contact with his master, who was seated on a stone throne. We are all in position. When shall you have us attack? Calmly, Danzo said, patience, my pawn, patience. He was able to refer to his root as a pawn, because they understood that they were just a pawn on a chessboard, their ever-moving queen, who could move anywhere on the board with an infinite number of spaces and would only move at the king's command, was their future weapon. Danzo was their king. We shall attack after the preliminaries. If I may be allowed to ask, why then, Lord Danzo? It'll give them time to relax, in a time where it's least expected. Orochimaru had the right idea, attacking during the Chunin exams when it's least expected. Then and only then will we move in to capture my piece, my weapon. Sir? Danzo's only visible eye narrowed at his subordinate. You dare doubt me? Like all of his rude brethren, the Root Anbu was unable to display fear, so he said, no, I'm simply curious as to how you shall control the demon. Danzo smiled and used his good hand to rub his covered eye. He said, oh, and put it on his covered arm. I have something in mind. With his hood up, Naruto entered Ichiraku Ramen and grinned at the sense of nostalgia he felt. He spotted Tuchi and Ayame right away, and his smile widened. Even though they were aware that he was the Kyuubi Jinchuriki, these individuals took care of him, made up absurd excuses to give him free ramen, and fed him when no one else would while he was living on the streets. However, he saw that they appeared somewhat happier but also sadder than usual. That expression of sadness with a glimmer of hope was difficult to put into words. He took one of the chairs and sat down. "Excuse me, can I have 2 miso ramen please?" When Ayame realized she didn't know who it was, her hope was quickly dashed. Although it didn't reach her eyes, she smiled. "Sure." As the two started working, he said, "Thank you. So what's with all the fuss about around here? Surely it's not only for the Chunin exams?" Tucci let out a sigh. "No, it's because our end was prophesied by Kami. It's supposed to happen soon." "Dear God, by Kami himself?" Still in awe of the fact that one of the strongest creatures in the universe was a woman, Ayame remarked, "It's a her." "Really? That's interesting. So how's this prophesied destruction supposed to play out? Because I want to be far away when it happens. Looks like my vacation was just cut short." Ayame sighed. "I don't see any reason why you'd want a vacation here of all places anyway." Remembering that blonde kid who used to show up in their stand almost daily, Tucci laughed and said, "It's supposed to be done by a hyperball of energy. He was betrayed by the village." "Ah, that Uzumaki kid? I've heard of him during my travels. Caused a bunch of problems for Konoha, he did." As a villager entered, Ayame glared at him and said, "Much deserved problems, I assure you." The villager took the message and walked away. "Yes, from what I've heard, this downfall is far from delayed." Tucci put the 2 bowls in front of his customer and said, "It's not his fault." A ghost of a smile appeared on Ayame's lips as she nodded. He was too kind for his own good. He always had faith in this rotten to the core village. When anyone else would have tried to destroy it years ago, he'd a good boy whose rage towards this place is well deserved. Naruto swallowed a bite and laughed. He missed this place so much. "Sounds like you have faith in him." She gave a scowl. "Of course I have faith in my little brother." "Oh, so you're related? Not by blood, even though I wish he was?" "He's part of the family no matter who his parents are," Tucci stated. Naruto grinned. "Thanks for that, old man." Tucci blinked. "Are you?" Naruto pulled his hood down and congratulated them, enjoying the way their faces lit up. "Bingo, old man. You've gotten old, and Ayame more beautiful than ever." She yelled, "Naruto," and nearly spilled his ramen as she pulled him into a bone-crushing embrace across the counter. "Why haven't you come to visit sooner?" With a laugh, he withdrew from the woman's firm hold. He sighed, frustrated at the idea of all the paperwork accumulating at his desk during this brief respite. "I had cage things to take care of, otherwise I'd have been here first thing when I arrived. Being a cage is much harder than I ever thought it'd be." "Well, what did you think it was? A luxury? Did you never hear Sarutobi-sama's cries of anguish at night because of the paperwork and having to deal with the council?" Ayame gasped. "The Ryukage Council isn't corrupted, and it's the Ryukage who makes the final decisions. The council's only there to make suggestions and report problems and successes." He grumbled. He clutched his golden hair and cried out in agony. "But the paperwork is the bane of existence. It never goes away." Before beginning to eat his ramen in the hopes of forgetting the entire ordeal he would have to face after this was over. Both shook their heads pityingly. Tucci stated, "This is why I'm not a cage." Naruto asked, "Oh yay, you were a shinobi at one time, weren't you, old man?" He gave a nod. "I was a Junin until I got fed up with that lifestyle. When my wife died, I knew it was time to retire and take care of this little rose right next to me. My job changed, but I'm still a protector." Naruto nodded in agreement before a cunning smile appeared on his lips. "A father's main job is to protect and provide for his family. So, Ayame, I see that ring on your finger. When will the wedding bells be chiming?" Her expression brightened. She tapped her fingers together in a Hinata-like manner and mumbled, "F4 meters months." "Ho? So who's the lucky bachelor?" His daughter's face flushed even more, and Tucci laughed. "You'll be shocked." Naruto took another mouthful of ramen and dared to say, "Try me." "It's Iruka-kun," replied Ayame. Naruto coughed and slammed his fist against his chest to help clear the noodles that had become lodged in his throat. Concerned, Ayame tapped his back and reached around the counter. A minute later, Naruto turned to face her, his expression totally blank. "Iruka-sensei," he exclaimed fiercely. She gave a nod. When did this happen?" "What? I don't understand." The idea of grandchildren running around soon made Tucci smile and laugh once more. "Well, when you disappeared, Iruka came by a lot to feel closer to you. He and Ayame got talking, which led to their first date, which led to another, and before you know it they're engaged." How long ago?" She blushed and said, 5 months ago." "Ayame-chan." A voice that sounded very familiar. The man walked in smiling, and Naruto turned to glare at him. "Ah, Naruto, you're back," Iruka started, blinking at the glare aimed at him. Naruto yelled, "Iruka!" and angrily pointed at his brother figure. "How dare you deflower Ayame-chan?" Iruka blushed and sputtered, "Deflower? N Naruto? We haven't?" He jumped up and yelled, "I'll kill you, Iruka! No one touches my sister and gets away with it, even if it's you." "Naruto!" Ayame exclaimed, flushed, and Naruto turned to face her. "We haven't done anything yet." After a moment of blinking, he grinned, "Oh, really? That's good then, hi Iruka-sensei, good to see you again." "Naruto," said Iruka in a fatherly tone, "what have I told you about jumping to conclusions?" "Well, excuse me, but how was I supposed to take you marrying Ayame? It's been 3 years, so how was I to know you haven't done it yet?" Iruka looked radiant. "Naruto, this is not a public conversation." "But you brought it up." Tucci let out a longing sigh. "Just like old times, right Ayame?" As she joyfully fingered the stone around her ring finger, she smiled and nodded. "Yep, I'm glad he's returned to us." Naruto collapsed back onto his bed, pouting before he could break free from his brotherly hold. Iruka had scolded him for the last 3 hours. He found it incomprehensible that the man could spend 3 goddamn hours explaining why it was forbidden to discuss sex in public, even when no one else was around. Thankfully, Ayame showed him mercy that day and diverted the scarred Chunin's attention long enough for him to flee. Naruto. Nanabe was standing in his doorway when he sat up. She was shifting uneasily and staring at the floor. "Can I talk to you?" With a nod, he scooted over and tapped the spot next to him, which she immediately took. "What is it?" "Well, I've been watching a lot of movies and reading books, trying to figure out what you were talking about before and, after long consideration, a lot actually, I've determined." Her face was reddened. "Go on Nanabe, say it." "No, don't say it." She swallowed, grabbed his jacket collar, and gave him a shy but passionate kiss before swiftly pulling away. She said startled. Naruto just blinked at her. "I love you, I think." He laughed with a golden eyebrow raised in amusement. He questioned, "You think I know how I feel about you? Nanabe-chan, I love you." "Damn you kid. Shut up or I'll turn my midscape hot pink." "You're evil kid, so evil." The words made her flush. "No one's ever really said that to me. Not even your parents." The fact that she nodded surprised him. Demons don't normally express the word love to others, only when they're really close, and my parents never really cared for their children, so we were on our own usually. Biju get attached to their vessels, so in a way they love them. It's hard for a demon to explain. "Damn straight. Don't worry about it. I understand enough. I was always curious about why Gaara called the Ichibi mother. All the time I thought it was just me and Fu who got their Biju attached to them." Before her eyebrows furrowed in perplexity, she grinned. "He called Ichibi mother?" Kyuubi laughed and said, "I find this funny too." "Find what funny, Kyuubi?" "Oh, you'll know in just a moment." Still perplexed by the circumstances, he nodded and turned to face Nanabe. "But, Ichibi is male." After his eyes crossed in perplexity, Naruto burst out laughing. He was eager to tell Gaara. He always enjoyed making that redhead with the stone face agitated. Nanabe eventually joined in the laughter, putting her hand over Naruto's and wrapping her fingers around his. She smiled shyly as he turned to face her. "I really think, no, I know I love you, I think." He grabbed her chin and laughed again, and he gave her a kiss after saying, "That's good enough for me." Sitting on Naruto's bed with the other angels and the now maskless Fu, Hinata whispered, "You think Nanabe finally confessed to Naruto-kun? It's completely obvious that she loves him." Fu shrugged and leaned against the headboard, saying, "Maybe you never know with her. She understands my emotions just fine, but hers, not so much." She was beginning to warm up to the angels at Naruto's request, even though she still felt uneasy around people, the creatures she despises deeply for what they have done to her. Anko sighed. "That girl needs to grow a backbone. Seriously, she's a demon. Confessing her love should be easier than destroying a village." Hana said, "Or destroying a mountain. Don't forget they can do that." Nanabe didn't do those things. She was known as the delinquent of the Biju because she was the nicest out of all of them. "Then I wish her good luck." Ino sympathized, relieved that Naruto had discovered the truth on his own and that she didn't have to confess. Both parties would have suffered from blushes, stuttering, and embarrassment if they had had to confess. With a pursed lips, Tamari thought, "I'd think a Biju wouldn't be so shy." Fu said, "That's the thing." As she turned to face her, "Nanabe normally isn't shy at all. She's rather blunt. I don't know if it's because she's used to me or not, but she was like that the first time we met as well." And for the first time, Tenten voiced her opinion. "So, maybe it's just around boys?" "Ha," Hana chuckled. "I don't think so. Did you notice the way she talks to the Hidan, Kisame, Deidara and Itachi? She's rather out there, yet she still has this goody two-shoes aura. Anko grinned as she remembered it, rather impressive really. Hinata grabbed the conversation by saying, "It might be just around Naruto-kun." She blushed at her example, saying, "Naruto-kun made me faint a lot doing the slightest of things and no one else did." Tamari gave a nod. "Yay, that's true maybe," Hana abruptly said. "Wait," as she lifted her nose and sniffed, her face lit up with a big smile. "He's coming." Anko pumped her fists in the air and exclaimed, "Inuzuka senses I praise you." Hinata flushed and asked, "Are we really going to do this like this?" Tenten said, "Don't tell me you're going shy again." The Hyuga shook her head wildly. Her face was hot as she looked down at herself and said, "And no, it's not that, I'm just embarrassed." Throwing her arm around Hinata's shoulders, Anko said, "Don't worry kid, you got a nice body." Jokingly, "And we don't?" Ino said, "I'm not saying that." "Shush, he's coming," and the room's door began to open. Naruto's face was smiling at last. Nanabi told him the truth. He never imagined that he would be so fortunate to have so many lovely and amazing girls in his life. He had a tendency to fall in love with more than one girl, but he never imagined that he would be able to be with them all. Doesn't Kami genuinely love him? For some reason, he became excited as he got closer to his door. The air wasn't cold, but a chill went down his spine. He squinted at the handle as though it were the source of these odd feelings. He felt a sense of dread emanating from the other side, so he refrained from opening the door even though he wanted to. He opened the door, ignoring it, and was astounded by what he saw. His angels and Fu are sitting on his bed, looking at him sexily, in their underwear. "Hey, Naruto-kun." Unsure of how to respond to this, his mouth moved like a fish. "Wanna play?" He didn't mind that he didn't think he would sleep tonight.
So that's it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe to the channel for more awesome stories like this. Thank you. See you all in my next video.